Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Collegiate Valorant Grand Finals. My name is Nekra, and I'm so stoked to be here alongside some incredibly talented people. We've got Infernosis and Jackson 5K. Welcome back, and how you feeling ahead of this Grand Finals?
It's always an honor to be brought back in for the championship and doing it once again in a different state at a different university. It's just a great feeling overall.
Yeah, also different teams this year. Super hyped about this matchup. It's pretty historic between the two. We don't want to get into too much spoilers. We'll leave that for later.
Got a good one.
This is going to be a very fun Grand Finals, that's for sure. But when we take a look back at what everything has looked like leading up to this point, I feel like there are some pretty big barn burners in that bracket.
Yeah, the bracket was a little bit crazy overall for the teams. There's some crazy teams that kind of came in unexpectedly, some good teams that dropped out early, St. Clair getting dropped to the lowers early on, even having like a big name like Winthrop get dropping by Harrisburg early on. But when you've got 32 teams, 16 and upper, 16 and lower, there's so much wiggle room for players and teams to make mistakes, and that costs them very much so in the deep rounds.
Yeah, and even notably, like previous champion Northwood kind of ducking out of the tournament pretty early there, and then you also have teams that were supposed to be our previous champion from last year ended up being an invite team because they placed 5th in South, but still ended up going to 3rd place despite that.
But I love that we have a format that allows for those types of Cinderella story runs. And just this entire season, I feel like everybody leveled up their competition just a notch. I think that speaks volumes to how much these individual programs are really investing into each of their players as well as into the collegiate scene. And why would you not? I mean, taking a look at the prizing, I feel like it has increased from last year to this year. And so even more to play for this season.
Yeah, I mean, as you can see, $16,000 going to the first place team, $8,000 going to the second place team, which was actually the prize winning for the first place team last year. So doubling up this year has to be huge.
Yeah, and you've got yourself $5,000 at 3rd place, already guaranteed by Texas A&M, and then you turn that around to 4th place with $4,000. That's going to Cumberland Phoenix. So these teams, they get something out of it. They work their way this hard, but you miss out on the bigger prize pool. We miss out on the bigger picture here for the stage and in the venue, and they're going to be sorely looking on as the show gets on today.
Yeah, I mean, this North Carolina State University campus is absolutely gorgeous. We got a chance to see some of those drone shots as we opened up our stream today. And the players are getting ready to take the stage for our very first game of the day. But before we do that, let's go ahead and visualize that journey that I had you walk us through already as we look at that top part of the bracket from our spring season. And this is where I think right away everybody's attention does get drawn to those upper round 1 matches and kind of the results from there.
Yeah, so the big one to look at was Texas A&M taking down Northwood in the very first upper round, that followed by West Virginia University ended up taking first in CVAL South. Comes away with a victory once again for Texas A&M. We went flawless all the way up to the upper finals before they got dropped by Maryville. And then Maryville had a arguably easier run initially with SJSU, but Cumberland following suit. That was a huge upset team. Not a lot of people were expecting them to be so confident coming into this one. And then following up with Fisher, there were no slouches whatsoever in the upper bracket, but proving themselves that they are the team to look at. It's Maryville in that upper side finishing strong.
And then Cumberland actually really being a surprise team.
Yeah.
Relatively new. Players started getting together just this year, so for them to get this far into the tournament, that's again another Cinderella story. We mentioned Texas A&M being the invitational team, being the ones to send the previous champion Northwood down to lowers in the first round, right? Yeah. And then also some notable wins coming out from our first place team, Maryville, just sweeping through that upper bracket.
Only lost a single map to Cumberland.
Which is insane when you think about just the dominance that Maryville has had, not just here in Valorant, but congratulations to Maryville University for winning the Collegiate League of Legends Grand Finals just yesterday. So very possible that this program does go home with a 2nd championship title in this weekend back-to-back. But let's take a look at that lower bracket, because I think that's really where you get a chance to see how that second chance really did develop for some of these teams.
Big problem, though, for Winthrop, which you see always makes it through to the end, had to face down Texas A&M. That loss to Harrisburg in the upper bracket, the big shocker, straight 2-0 from them, meant that they had to come down into a very dangerous lower round. They dealt with the initial competition from UST. They had to go with Baker. It was arguably a fairly easy lower round 4 for them. And then Harrisburg, the big question is, like, how is that going to pan out when you get against Cumberland again? And then they 2-0'd them, and so you're looking, hey, Maryland lost a map to Cumberland, but it was Virginia was what, 12-2, I think, in Ascent for Winthrop when it turned over to that map. It's a scary map for them and something to keep an eye on. But there was a lot of scary teams that got into there, and the big one, I think, was Cumberland and Fisher. That was really entertaining.
And I mean, just looking at the lower bracket run, having to face Northwood already in lower round 2 has to be something that no team wants to do, even do running through lowers. But if you look beyond that, you have tons of top 8 teams already in lower round 3, right? So this was kind of the lower bracket of hell for a lot of these teams.
I mean, I'm seeing UC Irvine, another program that I feel like has a lot of history in esports, getting knocked out there to St. Thomas. And wow, already just some stiff competition through the entirety of this season, all the way leading up to Winthrop making it through that lower bracket to face off Maryville in the finals. And so that's where we turn our attention to for today, because one of those two teams is going to be crowned the collegiate Valorant champions after an intense best of 5 that's going to be coming at you later. But let's go ahead and focus on Maryville. Dominance in the upper bracket, already such a historic program, having that League of Legends win earlier on this weekend, and now taking a look at the fact that Valorant could be another title that they claim a championship win in.
Yeah, program-wise, they're unprecedented right now, and having this historic run just feels like it should be capped off with a win here today. But the competition is no slouch, and so they're going to have to prep themselves thoroughly for this, which I feel like the competition they face up to this point did prep them fairly well for, but it's going to require good leadership to get to that point.
And sometimes, if you had such an easy time in the upper bracket, you might get a little bit complacent, perhaps. But luckily for them, this Winthrop team is a team that they faced many times before anyway. So they do have enough preparation just from playing together. I hope that they are well rested, because they've had somewhat of a crazy schedule since coming into North Carolina.
I mean, there are so many different leagues that both of these teams are able to play in, not just inside of the collegiate space, but also taking a look at how far that they've gone in terms of Tier 2 Valorant. I feel like what a great way to be able to test yourselves. And now it comes down to this big final match of the season and what's happening here this weekend.
I think this would be a cap for either team, right? Because you have issues from Winthrop in prior series for them at LANs, and then you have the question before of everything from Maryville saying, okay, well, we've always wanted to aspire to do what they have done, and they lost their chance to do it. So it's a big question mark for them. But I'm honestly talking to both teams into this weekend. They're great friends. They've been hanging out the whole time. They've been cracking jokes. It's been super entertaining to see them the whole weekend.
Yeah, they've honestly just been chopping it up with each other, talking smack back and forth. It's been amazing to see. And like we said, Winthrop being able to ascend into the Tier 2 level, Maryville trying to get there. But what Maryville does have going for them is that these teams have already met 3 times in grand finals in other leagues, and Maryville so far is leading 2-1. So they do have the upper hand coming into this weekend.
Taking a look at this Maryville roster, I mean, these are 5 players, though, that I think also are really set up for success, not just from the program that's behind them in terms of making sure that they're building them up as individual players, but the team coordination from them. I feel like that's really where this team gets their strength.
Yeah, Giza is the one that a lot of people always want to look towards initially. They stepped into VCL and the other team, the rest of the team hasn't. But they're not the player I think we really want to highlight when it comes down to this roster. Everyone stands out. Everyone has their moments. But like I said, they need leadership, and I think that's where it kind of takes that extra step for them.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy that you have a 2-time CVAL MVP. That's not the focus.
CCC MVP. Yeah.
CCC MVP.
For 2 separate teams as well. Keep in mind, this player did it on separate rosters and proved they could do it again.
Yeah, at this point, they're just a plug-and-play MVP.
We'll see if they'll win it again this time around. Who knows? So add another MVP title to their name, but you're right. I think we want to go ahead and take a look at Chloric specifically because, Chloric, why is this a player that stands out to you?
Statistically, they're just the single player to look at. They're able to IGL and frag, so they're never leaving things too far behind. They find value in 81% of all rounds. They get traded immediately afterwards. This is a player you're kind of putting a highlight role on for their role in the first place, and then they have the confidence to always follow through alongside that. At 1.63 KD, they're just a monster on all aspects of the Valorant scene.
I mean, look at that ACS. Those are duelists. ACS that are coming from your IGL, right? And the fact that they're able to stay alive for so long means that they have such a control over the map, over the timings. Clutching out mid-rounds is huge, especially against a team like Winthrop.
And if you're up more, then you also have better vision to help out with some of these team fights. Maybe I'm reaching there, but I feel like there's something to be said about that magic formula. We did get a chance to talk to Chloric ahead of this grand finals, so let's go ahead and hear what they have to say.
This team was built by the coach MCE. We ran multiple trials over last summer where he handpicked 5 players that he thought would mesh well together. And I think he's done just that. I think the comparison of Maryville versus Fisher, at Maryville, we just have a head coach. There's a lot more structure and a lot more teamwork going on, where Fisher was just 5 friends going and having fun. So I think We're just been projected forward by having a coach, and we got right path. My warm-up ritual is just to listen to music and sometimes go in the range, maybe DM, and that's it for like 5 minutes.
I love getting a chance to hear from Clark a little bit there. I think we got some fun tidbits of the personality, but also maybe the ways in which Maryville is improving as a whole team.
Yeah, that coaching staff, I think, was the big part for him, saying jumping from Fisher, where they felt like just a group of friends, to then having that leadership behind them. And it feels like Maryville have multiple people who can kind of facilitate that for them, which, again, speaks, leaps and bounds to the program for them right now and the journey that they've got here for Valorant side of things in comparison to League, which now obviously champ again. I think that Cloric knew that they could step into that role for IGO, which they weren't expecting to in the first place. And it's been a journey for them, as we had discussed with them earlier this weekend, but they feel confident now that they've done that, and they've proven that that confidence can, get them a flawless run through that upper bracket and guarantee their state now here today.
Yeah, and it really does feel like Maryville was built kind of like a super team, just scouting out some of the best players from all across the league. And sometimes that can be problematic when you bring so many high ego players into one team, but it really does feel that they've meshed well together. They know their roles, and they really do end up playing for each other, which doesn't really happen when you build a super team like that.
Having mutual respect there is certainly important. Knowing that you can depend on your teammates, especially in those very intense situations. But it is going to be a very hard-fought battle today. Taking a look at Winthrop University, we already saw the lower bracket run that they were able to make, facing up against so many tough opponents. And let's go ahead and take a look at their roster as well, because this is another team that is so stacked with talent. You have seen them at so many different levels of competition as well.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about tier 2. They're stepping straight onto the VCL stage, and the confidence from them is just exuding. They know that they are statistically going to be better than Maryville because they've accomplished what Maryville has been incapable of doing so. And it doesn't really feel like it's given them a chip on their shoulder. Instead, it just goes, okay, we don't have fear for anybody, moves outright, just straight up saying, there's a lot of good teams stepping into this, but it feels like they're mostly players, and there's every single one of us on the team is better than them, so we have no reason to fear anyone in any round, no matter where we push.
Confidence at an all-time high for Winthrop. And I do also want to point out that this is probably the longest standing core of any team in CVAL. The core of Flair, Boobs, and Nasi, they've just been playing together for basically three years.
Yeah.
And now if you plug in a champion like Ali, who's able to flex on so many roles, and then you have Infiltrator come in and just bring up a storm for this team, right? Everybody on their team is just basically saying, this is the guy that's going T1. Yeah. Infiltrator is the name to watch out for.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about Infiltrator a little bit more then, because, why is it that Infiltrator seems to be one of those players that sticks out the most as that's the next tier 1 talent right there?
For a team that has nothing but tier 2 talent, to have somebody stand out like that requires them to be strong enough in their position to exude that confidence. And if you meet them in person, it doesn't really feel like Infiltrator is that guy, right? They're a little quiet when it comes to talking to people. They're chatty at least a little bit, but nothing exudes. Like Moves kind of feels like they'll talk about themselves for about 2 hours, and you have to kind of cut them off. Infiltrator is the total opposite, but their gameplay speaks leaps and bounds for themselves. 67 to 40 first kill to first death ratio. Turn that around. In 100 rounds, they're guaranteed to get a single kill in that one. 97 times out of 100, only missing a kill in 3 of them. It's just ludicrous numbers for a player that stepped into the system, the latest out of all of them.
And something that's off screen that we do. Another stat that they have, they're second in CVAL for KD. So this is your player that, every single team that they play against, they have a plan for Infiltrator. And none of them seem to work. He's just going to get in there, 1.5 KD. And the more impressive part is Winthrop has played about twice as many rounds as Maryville so far as CVAL. And for him to keep those numbers up is insane.
Yeah, 351 rounds for that side. Just short of being double. I think it's 186 for the side of Maryville. It's a crazy stat to have those numbers and having to play that much more.
Yeah, that's super impressive. I mean, I feel like especially when your back is against the wall and you're in that lower bracket run, no mistakes anymore. You've got to play perfectly. I love that it sounds like Infiltrator is that type of player that you can really depend on to make sure you can get those clutch moments. We got a chance to talk to Infiltrator as well ahead of this grand final, so let's go ahead and hear from him.
I got recruited to Winthrop University by a Twitter DM from Branchies, and they trialed I don't know how many people, but it was I think it was 20 people, and I was one of the ones that got picked. So my favorite Valorant skin would probably be the Gaia Vandal, the red or blue Radiant. I think that I'm an aggressive player because I like to take the angles that I want to peek and make it like a 60-40 instead of a 50-50, and that's what makes me more confident in my gunfights. I just think we just have to talk to each other have fun, most importantly. I think having fun is probably the most important thing in the game in order to win. And yeah, when you have fun, everything's gonna go smoothly. Everyone's gonna be talking, and yeah, what a strat for that.
That's the advice that I want in my own ranked games. Just have fun.
Yeah.
You know, there's no pressure when you're only having fun and you're really focusing on just the interactions that you have with your teammates. I feel like there's such a huge weight that gets lifted off your shoulders that you know you can play a little bit better because you're like, yeah, it's a video game at the end of the day. It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah, it almost feels like when you add in a prize pool in competition, it can turn into more like a hassle or chore or even a job for some players, right? Which that's fine if that's the case, but at the end of it, it is a game and you're supposed to be enjoying that. And I think there's a lot of players that play the game a little bit too much, but they also only play for their matches. And I think every one of these will go out of their way to continue to play because they love absolutely everything about the system their team works in and just the game itself.
Yeah, and just from the interview, I don't think this guy's feeling any pressure at
None.
all.
No.
He's just so relaxed. It's almost like the opposite of his gameplay. You know, his gameplay is just hammering it in, and this guy's just like, you know, I got a kill. I'm cool. I opened up the site. Fine.
Well, we get a chance to actually take a look at exactly how these two teams have done facing off against each other for so many times. I mean, Jackson, you had already talked about this, meeting multiple times in the finals of a lot of these different collegiate programs and also just in other avenues of Valorant. And so when you take a look at this actual match history, I think it is, yeah, there's a tale to tell here, I think, between these two teams.
Yeah, and it's most recently from CECC, I mean, Maryville coming out on top, 2-1. And they did get ahead. Winthrop did get an early start on Pearl. If you watch the highlights from that game, Infiltrator going absolutely nuts, Boobs able to back them up. But Maryville definitely able to readjust their game plan in the next two maps. And it'll be interesting to see how they bring those same strategies over to today's matchup, even though there are some slight differences between the patch that we're playing.
And I felt there was a lot of innovation from Maryville on map 2, and I felt like that carried over, at least the momentum of that carried over to map 3, which is why you see it be an even larger glaring difference between those two teams. And while, you know, one of these was supposed to be a best of 5, right? It only needed the 3 maps. It just gets finished very easily. I think that Winthrop is just annoyed that these grand final at LANs aren't going their way, and they're trying to prove that they can do that here with the third one to step up at LAN and get the job done, finally.
I mean, LAN can be stressful. How many players can actually say that they've had that experience playing in front of a live crowd where they can see the reaction of the audience in front of them? And no, yes, we have those white noise headphones, but it doesn't block out that visual effect that could have on your mental.
Yeah, and I think for players mentally to survive at this level, they have to be able to drown that out, both visually as well as auditorially, and there are things that help that, but a player sometimes will look to their teammate, they'll cross their eye over and they see it in the background and they'll see and they'll hear the noise. They talked a lot about Cumberland actually at CECC's LAN. They had so many teams that were doing so well, kind of stepping into as a program, and they said the just pure amount of like cheering that was going on for them actually did stress them out. But eventually they quieted that crowd by going like 13-1 on one of the maps. So I think that Winthrop can pull through over that, but I think it's gonna be a bigger question now for Maryville, knowing that they kind of have to follow the legacy that League of Legends set yesterday.
Yeah, extra pressure for them to try and take both trophies home today. And I think it's something that we tend to forget about LANs is the travel and the fatigue. You know, like, I don't know about you guys, but I have barely been getting any sleep coming into North Carolina, and at least I don't have to play the championship game. You know, but I don't know how these guys are feeling. Right
This is their cope as well for Harrisburg for their loss in the upper round. They said they were tired from travel. They were already playing in a LAN. There is no more coping for them, I feel like. If Winthrop loses this, then that's purely on their shoulders. And yeah, they'll still have VCL and be over Maryville in terms of that, but they won't have the LAN victor they're hoping for.
And there's a pretty sweet trophy that's involved as well. So you know you're fighting not just for the bragging rights, but for the scholarship as well as that trophy. And so let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about what is actually going to happen for this best of 5, right? So we want to talk a little bit about the map pool briefly that we have here. Tell us what maps are available for these teams to play.
The big change up as we are on the previous patch, right, is that typically it's supposed to be Sunset steps in and then Fracture takes a step out. That's not the case. We're playing on prior patch, so also Teo is in prior to their nerf.
Which is huge.
But the big question is going to be what that ban phase kind of comes into. You have Winthrop side who hasn't played Split since 2024 for track stats. They're just kind of a big unknown for them. But then you also have lurk maps that are really strong for moves, who as a player you need to shut down individually. Things like Lotus, things like Pearl. So the bigger question I think is be how do you try to remove those scenarios from them? And I think it's going to come down to playing the good ones first and knocking them out of the way. And I think the bigger one I'm curious about is Fracture, knowing that they have already been playing in VCL with that out of it. how are they going to re-implement that as it's back into this play?
Yeah, and even Maryville getting both bans this time around, making sure to ban Pearl as one of the maps, because that was one that they struggled on in the previous matchup in CECC, where Infiltrator just does what he does. And so this time around, they're like, you know what? Let's not give them a map where it allows boobs to find those timings off of those picks. Let's just get rid of that immediately. We'll start off on our strong back, Icebox. They pretty much dominated Winthrop on Icebox, with Wildfire sneaking up almost every single round. So they want to make sure that they repeat that and get the early lead here.
Well, we are going to Icebox for our first map in this best of 5, and as our players get ready to go ahead and take the stage, they have already gone ahead and selected the agents that they want to play on this map. So let's go ahead and walk through that a little bit and show everybody what we have ahead of us.
The big one to take a look at here overall is going to be, at least in my mind, what Ange is going to be cooking up in the kitchen. We've seen a lot from them when it came to their CCC game, where it was all about, on their offense, moving in down mid and having that split. They hit that A site starting off first 7 times before they would then choose to rotate to an opposing direction. So as you'd expect for Icebox, it's a slam A site over and over again and find value. But I think a lot of it for Maryville did come off of Ange and the ability to do so kind of unseen, and then getting a couple big frags on site. Even if it was just a 1-for-1 trade, I think the value for the agent difference there is very unspeakable. And the bigger difference between these two teams is the fact that one side will be rocking a double duelist with Infiltrator, who else but on the Jet, and then you have over the opposing side, which I believe was supposed to be Ollie. No, Ollie should be your smoker. For this, it should be instead.
No, they played Reyna.
Should be
last time
Noobs, who's over onto the Viper.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have the Reyna. No, let's say, yeah, I apologize, yeah. So you have a lot of value for having double duelists in comparison to a single duelist, but I think the bigger choice would be you're missing a true smoker, a true controller, and for that side, you turn it to the opposing end. It's that value choice between having something like an Astra or an Omen, and instead picking up the Clove, which is super strong for having those fights, almost like a pseudo or a tertiary duelist, but doesn't have the same oomph that something like a Reyna in comparison to that Jet will work out for you.
And I think on this map, we'll also start to see why Maryville has been so strong. To highlight 2 players, Wildfire and Chloric. We already talked about Chloric's KAST stat, but he's not even the one that leads the league. It's Wildfire leading the league in there. And you'll start to see just how well these 2 are able to stay alive despite a double duelist push onto A. They're usually still the last 2 alive and very, very well versed in these 2vx retakes.
And the big point to make as well, for at least the first map, we thought maybe we'd have a little bit more chance to talk about it. Teo in this patch still being exceptionally powerful, and the team's kind of having to question, hey, we've been playing without Teo for a little bit in current patch. We're having to step back into it. Teo was so strong, so dominant, that you pretty much have to play them if they're available. But this is one of the few maps where that's really not a requirement. You can pick up the KJ, find a lot of value with the Nano Swarm, also having to lock down to deny a push onto A site. Typically, it's the A site where you see that being utilized, do it on offense and defense. And it's pretty nice to see that we won't have to deal with Teo right off the bat and them hiding back and then playing into some salvos for the win condition that comes down at the end. But it will require a lot more emphasis on keeping that KJ alive, which was something that is a little bit hard for Moobs when they were playing that typically for the Cypher role over on Haven. It'll be interesting to see if they're able to capitalize the same way, though Moobs not playing it on the map of Icebox.
Well, now that we have Flare on the KJ for this map, and Flare typically, I think this patch right now really favors them because 80% of their agent picks happen to be on Teo. All right, iPad Simulator the entire way through. So now they're switching over to the KJ role, and it's so important just as well for KJ to stay alive all the way through the end round. I think that's going to slide into that a little better, and this will allow Moobs to play their more lurking style that Viper on Icebox is just known for.
Yeah, you have so much versatility for offense, and you also have a pretty good standard or set for defense. But we know what our agents are going to look like. We want to know how those players are going to look like. Let's throw it on over there and get this game started.
The way that I influence the team is kind of being the mediator between the energy.
2 and 2 for the trade. Oh, you gotta hit this shot. Thank you, Wildfire.
Knowing that I'm playing against Infiltrator, I know I'm gonna have to be on my A game as he's one of the best duelists, but I know I'm capable of doing it.
Flash again, knows there's one close, has to swing the shorty, doesn't get the kill, Jay crashes out.
I want to get Maryville University into Challengers as well so I can continue playing in Challengers.
He says Giza moves away from elbow, swings through the middle, they line up. Oh my goodness, it's 4 for Giza. The absolute slaughter on sight.
My warm-up ritual is just to listen to music and sometimes go in the range, maybe DM, and that's it for like 5 minutes.
It cannot be allowed to continue. Here's a copy player sitting up on boxes. It's Chloric. No longer is it Ange just holding down this side alone.
We're just really making sure to work on our fundamentals and the basics so we can push forward through that kind of barrier that we've been hitting.
How do you swing into a judge and not get hit at all? Ange once again has to play Guardian. Angel finds the 3 picks that they need.
It's not like we feel like they're unbeatable. So, we're definitely motivated to beat them in the grand finals at LAN this time.
Too many people spotted. Boobs somehow finds the backstab onto JB. Yeah, how did he even get there? This should be taken right now from Boobs. Another headshot with that Sheriff, and we may just see the Sheriff ace with the collab. Boobs winning that round solely by themselves.
I think in order to win this match against Maryville, we just have to be very confident in each other.
Doesn't spot the head, finally can. Tries to go for the suppress. Salvo to force them down. Tries to stall. No, and Armageddon force them in.
Oh, wow.
I would probably need to play more confident, calm, and do my best for my team.
Just a couple seconds left for it. Can't really tap this spike. Able to isolate. What a shot from Flare! Out into the open.
In order to win the match, I just think we have to be ourselves, kind of bring in the fire and just play how we normally should be playing.
Now they're gonna go take it now one by one. JP is the last one left, and Infiltrator is just trying to go for the highlight reel. It will get stuffed out, and Nasi the trade and Winthrop go up double digits on their eco round.
I'm an aggressive player because I like to pick the angles I want to peek, and that's what makes me more confident in my gunfights.
Overdrive in, Infiltrator in, and again it's Nazi by their side, partner in crime. And now, I mean, the recon, the salvos, it's all perfect. It's like hurdling cattle right into the slaughterhouse.
Hi, how y'all doing? You ready for some Valorant? Today, we get a chance to see the 2 best teams in collegiate Valorant take to the stage. So thank you all so much for being here to support them in their moment. And we'll see who gets a chance to crown themselves the champion of collegiate Valorant at the end of today. Now, without further ado, please join me in welcoming our first team to the stage, Maryville University. And up next, let's make some noise for Winthrop University. All right, well, now that they've taken their seats, how about we get this grand final started? For that, we send it over to our casters, Zobi and Samtox. So please take it away.
Thank you for that, Necra, and my goodness gracious, it is so good to be out here in Raleigh, North Carolina. This place is about to be the battleground of the CVAL 2025 Grand Finals. As was said, my name is Sam Talks. Joining me is Zobi. Zobi, it can't end any other way in CVAL other than these 2 teams, Maryville University versus Winthrop.
Yeah, the perfect conclusion to a perfect scripted season. These teams just touched on it, meeting 3 times in grand finals in most of the notable collegiate leagues of the United States. And for it to come full circle to a best of 5, where they started out in a best of 5 for NECC, we would have it no other way, Sam.
No, we absolutely wouldn't. And now you're dealing with the pressure. You're out here in Raleigh. You have made it all of the way through. The desk obviously talking about it. Maryville having that beautiful upper bracket run. Winthrop knocked down early on by Harrisburg University and having to make their own run through in the lower bracket. I mean, you look at it, right? They played almost double the rounds that Maryville University did. But now you come in, CVAL, you're focused purely on CVAL. If you're Winthrop University, you're done with the VCL. I mean, Maryville University had a little bit of premiere going on last night, but now they can focus on this. This is everything on the line for both of these squads.
And I'm so glad that you mentioned that upper bracket run for Maryville as well, because it actually gave them both of the bans coming into this best of 5 and that map 5 side pick. So a huge advantage when we talk about the map pool that Dest maybe didn't get to dive fully into. So we know Icebox is where we're starting starting. Lotus will be that first map on the Winthrop side. Then we go to Fracture, Haven, and Split. Now, Split's that interesting one if we make it 5 maps because it is a no-go, the insta-ban for Winthrop, which is where that advantage shines through.
Right.
But I really love how this best-of-5 Grand Finals is developing because Icebox, Lotus, that's how CECC ended, right?
Yeah.
And Icebox was such a shining moment for Maryville that they carried that momentum into Winthrop's best map of Lotus. And so there's some nerves there. Okay, if Maryville gets hot, maybe there's a chance for a sweep, but maybe Icebox has shown improvements on the Winthrop side.
Well, I mean, we also get a little bit of taste of the agent select going into Icebox and getting an idea of how these teams like to play, and it's really nothing out of the ordinary for both of these squads. And if Maryville can, contain that, if they can, somehow we make it all the way to Split, that gives, I think, just a good storyline of what could be happening here for both of these squads. They're really just ready to go at each other's throats. They have had all of the fundamentals drilled into their head. They know how each of these squads like to play against each other. And the fact that we do get that map of Split, right? Maryville knowing that, you just get rid of Pearl, you get rid of Ascent, one of the maps that Winthrop likes to play on, and then we just go to places where we know that they may not be the strongest, but it's just all about having to make it to that final map.
And that's what's so perfect about a Maryville squad is they've learned how to learn from their mistakes as the squad was growing, as they were just put together at the beginning of the academic season, right? We talk about that full circle moment. They got 13-1 on Ascent, so now it becomes their insta-ban. They were still figuring out their map pool, and now they know what they're confident on, they know what they're comfortable on, and that's where we come into this best of 5. But I want to talk about Icebox. That's the map we're getting ready to ramp into. You talked about the composition, the Des touched on it as well. It's such a good map as well to start on because the Taeho changes feel neutralized. It's one of the very few maps where Winthrop wasn't diving into that Taeho, right? We talk about the Ollie Reina kind of unorthodox, but that's the role they've been leaning into more and more, this double duelist with the departure of Taeho and having, your Flare lean into these other roles like the Killjoy, like the controller, like the Yeoman that Ollie used to play. So all that to say, I think this is a good map, but again, when you're not warmed up, it's such an ego map.
It really is. It's one of those maps where if you can take your fights, if you can win them, that's why we see Reina on this map.
On both sides.
Yeah, on both sides. And in fact, that's why we also see a Clove on the side of Maryville, because they have that confidence, which also lends into an interesting question for Maryville. Would they pull away from the sort of dive duelist of a Jet, being able to push in onto the side, or a Neon, or a Raze even? You don't see it typically often on Icebox, but it's still something to keep at the back of your mind that they're ready. They just want to take their fights. They want to take their fights and win.
And you're also like, okay, there's no Jet, there's no operator in play. You're going to see the Giza operator on B side if the economy starts to go their way. But getting ready to jump into game, it is true, though, that Winthrop will be starting on the attack. Maryville, they like to start on the defense when they get their choice here. And again, it is, you have to get that ball rolling. You want to get that operator in play. And I'm curious to see if that is, in fact, how things are going to play out. I mean, we talked about predictions. We both thought this was not going to be a clean 0-3, but we were shaking on it. Okay, 3-1 to what team? 3-2 to what team?
Yeah.
And this will set those stakes early on.
Yeah, it's whichever team is able to get that leg up, especially when you look at the rest of the maps that come next. Lotus, right? Now, Maryville has had a better track record on Lotus against Winthrop, which is, of course, Winthrop's best map. You think about how they just went up against a team like Envy, 13-6 of all things.
And then they just got 3-13 for Maryville on Lotus at Red Bull Homeground in Dallas, a week ago.
Yeah.
So it's like such a in-the-air map. I'm just excited to be jumping into into Icebox first.
All right. But we get to take a look at this, right? We know that Maryville University is going to be starting off on the defense, giving us a look at the attack. Winthrop. We have 2 players eking and peeking towards mid. Wouldn't be surprised if we just have a poison orb go down to create that pressure. It's Winthrop University's sort of calling card, and who better to do that than Moobs? You just spread it out across the map, figure out where the weak spots Maryville is going to be.
I mean, we can start breaking down a pistol, but we got to get hype here at NC State. It is CVAL Grand Finals. It is the pistol, and of course, you got a Clove, you got a Reina, you're going to get aggressive. That's how things work. So, little scale up, start to charge up, or at least bait out these players with the orb tap, and we're going to get an early confrontation between the Killjoy, actually, that lurking Flare who's still finding their sentinel footing, maybe.
Yeah, there we go. Caught out by the alarm bot. Torch is going to go ahead. Scale back just for a little bit. Infiltrated. Who better than to get the first blood of this entire series than the duelist extraordinaire themselves? And that's going to be just straight up put the spike down on the site. Nasi sacrifices their life to get it down, but you have the spike, and now that forces Maryville into your hands.
I'm surprised that Ellie's actually fighting forward because, you're beating off more than you can chew. Really double swing. But Infiltrator, when you're finding kills like that, it doesn't matter. We didn't get to see it, but the 4K found. They did everything that round. They made the space for the spike plant. They inserted themselves deep, and that's what that double duelist kind of gives you the freedom to do. You can rely on each other. If one pillar falls, there's another one to hold up the entire foundation, the entire structure.
You're talking about a pillar, though, right? If you ever want to have a pillar, that's Infiltrator.
Oh,
they
yeah.
just showed up in force.
Second round Vandal.
Second round Vandal. That's what you want from your duelist. That's what we think back on that interview. We think back on how confident Infiltrator is. This exudes it in spades.
Oh, for sure. I'm curious to see where they're going to take it. It still is kind of double-pronged lurk, aggressive B main front. And Cloric, I mean, you got a shorty. If there's anything that can dominate, it would be this, especially when you're challenging Nazi and that Owl Drone. Is that a wallbang trade? That's crazy.
It was, right? You got tagged by the Owl Drone so they know exactly where you are. Oh, Flare! Give it up for the 3K. The Bulldog, of course, putting in the work. Wildfire, now you're trying to decide how you want to go about taking the rest of these fights in a 1v4. Not the best of odds here, but try to take what you can in this anti-eco.
You might think Wildfire is over here, but when Trader's able to find it regardless. I mean, all in all, I don't think Maryville played that round incorrectly or bad. It's just, again, the second round vibe, especially when it's as lethal as multiple Bulldogs and that Infiltrator Vandal. You had to take your chances. You had to take a 1v3 against a player like Flair, who, with that Bulldog, was just able to ensure that no rogue clash Scots got the trade. There was no upgrade and there was no chances. So Winthrop keeping things really, really clean here out the gate, but this is the first rifle round. I am nervous looking at the bonus here for Winthrop. It almost looks like a full committed buy, and I'm curious to see what is a result of this now anti-eco. And it looks like maybe it's a more mid-centric approach with your double lurk and, you know, some A-Tech similar. Challenge these players you know are pushing through aggressively A head-on.
Yeah, I'm liking this from Maryville, and I'm also liking that Giza first pick. Oh, that's the power of the Reyna that we know and love.
Wow.
This is the Giza that we know and love. They sometimes play that Sentinel, but when they need to flex over into Reyna, they make it look so clean. They're up here by themselves at 3K. We're finally being brought down by moves. Wildfire dropping back down to the ground. Rins goes in for a swing of their own. It's a home run, and Moves is hanging on for dear life. Bleeding, and Rins is going to go ahead and put that down to the ground. Maryville University, that's a fairly clean bonus.
And I'm glad to see that we're going to get a competitive map, right? It's not going to be no 0-3 antics. It's not going to be a dynamic lead out the gate here. And that's what we love about these two squads. But I did like kind of the nuance to the strategy there out of Winthrop. Hand the hero rifle from Infiltrator over to Moves because they are that solo lurk player. And they were able to find picks here and there to keep the buy competitive on the Maryville side. You see the light shields for Wildfire, you see the light shield for Giza. And I think that's showing, okay, they set the seeds of doubt that hopefully now will strike in the late round economy. But already, back to the next rifle round. Rens here. This is spicy. I mean, Clove isn't what they once were, but we'll see if that pick-me-up can get them away, if they can even find the kill.
They may actually be able to, right? Winthrop University has been playing off the back of Maryville hasn't been pushing up this entire time, but you're never going to expect the Clove that far up. They even put down a smoke to cover themselves back in for another fight take if they need to here, and they know at least Ali is there, and potentially with that out drone coming, yeah, Rins is going to go ahead, back off, and be happy with what they were able to grab.
And I think it's smart. It's exactly what Double Duelist has played. Double them up with your anchor, Pseudo Sentinel in this case. And it's just hard that they were the one to fall, right? Now you don't have that retake wall on A. You don't have that orb for defense on B, which I think is why there's now a magnetic draw to Winthrop over towards the A side. You don't have to worry about the decay. It should be a little bit easier to puncture through, but Maryville has been ironclad. No rotation, full fixation here. So they are all here in this stack of 3 to receive it.
And he's even going to go inside of the Empress, but nothing to be gained. Thankfully, Cloric has the trade onto Flare. Still pushing your way in. Moves the double kill, leaving it all on the hands of Rins to win this 1v3 with Spike being planted. They're up in the high ground, coming in through rafters. Now it's down to the 1v1. Moves, the last player standing. Rins! All they need is a pixel. You give them that much, and it's gonna be theirs.
And you heard it from that interview, like Ren's recognizing the prowess an Infiltrator has and saying, I will rise to the occasion. Look at Infiltrator, they made that full circle moment. The pistol, Ren's does it here in one of the most impactful rounds in the early stages, right? When you get to tie it up 2-2, they open it with that aggression you mentioned, unexpected over towards Garden. They close it with a nice 1v1 clutch. So again, showing how you're gonna have to pull out all the stops in rounds that are so close and come down to pixels. And all that to say, now that you know it's tied, you've broken the bank on the side of Winthrop, so you now have given yourself that opportunity to in fact pull ahead.
If there's anything I've learned though, Zobi, is even if you're seeing your opponent in Thrifty, you can never discount their lethality. These sheriffs can hit differently, so can these stingers. But it's up to Winthrop University to be able to prove that. Up goes the Poison Orb. Moves this time, still gonna poke further along, see if they can maybe grab one of those lurk frags and a weapon upgrade to go along with it, but the Maryville Universe, oh my goodness gracious! And that's what we're talking about, right? Infiltrator 4 goes, forsakes it because they have their ultimate. Now you're gonna go back in for another dip, but Infiltrator just built differently. This duelist extraordinaire, but now they're gonna go and try and grab the weapon left behind. They can do this, they may actually be able to get away with something here. But remember what I was talking about with lethality! Infiltrator, they got the ace, and they may even be able to get the 6th one. They know exactly where they are, but it doesn't matter. And by themselves, a 1v3, you're gonna be looking for miracles here. But they are in short supply. Winthrop University, doesn't matter. A Thrifty is theirs.
An Infiltrator is locked in. I said it's an ego map. I said you've got to be warmed up, and I'm so glad they get to get a second look at that. From the heroics of Infiltrator to how the rest of the team supported that dive as well. You notice they didn't leave a void over towards ring. They didn't leave a void backside that only Infiltrator could fill. 2 players, I think it was Flare and I think it was Nazi, pushed up with the eco weapons to facilitate and make sure that, okay, they're not going to flood in off of that contact. It's not going to be this balancing act. And I mean, they are 11-3. The blades were perfectly executed, and that should have been, again, the calling card from Maryville to take the lead. And Winthrop now, they've broken the bank of Maryville. It's again push and pull.
It's push and pull. And Winthrop University, they're here. They're out for blood. This is what we're saying though, right? It may be sheriffs, it may be something, but you can never discount a team when they have weapons that can do that. That's my word!
Spike down B.
And what world are we living in? My sheriffs do not shoot like this.
I mean, it's the player that denies the Infiltrator ace. They were shut down by Infiltrator a few rounds prior. They've clearly taken that to heart. The Sheriff comes out, gives him a chance to throw the eco right back in the face of Winthrop. Thrifty for Thrifty on the table, but where Giza with the hero rifle we're talking about here, you know, may not have the full shield, but with an overheal and a potential timing under 2.
Oh my gosh.
It might be just what they need.
They haven't had the drop on that, but look at Infiltrator, right? We know that they're this jet extraordinaire, but it's 34 HP, and you're going up against Giza and Rins. One shot is all it takes from either of these power weapons that they have in their hands. They're gonna go inside of kitchen. The second anything happens here, oh, it's the perfect look. Giza's right there.
Keep your weapons.
And Maryville University not going to leave this untied for very long.
Giza saying there's too many cooks in the kitchen. They face off, and we see our true head chef there. And again, we talk about it, how, again, look, it's literally mirrored on the scoreboard at this point, right? Like the better buy rounds and then the thrifty rounds. Like, that is absurd, and it is off of Ange here. I'm a little nervous, right? They get first blooded off of Ren's aggression, and I'm like, this is not the Anchor Suit of Sentinel we're looking for. And then they rise to the occasion a few rounds later. So again, a shortcomings and heroic moments balancing out here to tie us 3-3, and now you have both of the aggressive agents challenging forward.
No, I like this, right? I think this is where Maryville has kind of been falling apart, is that they don't play for this aggression very often. Giza's still up there. They were trying their best. You can't go toe-to-toe with the entirety of Winthrop University right there, where the 2 power duelists, you could say, have fallen. Now the site is going to go along with it. Winthrop University is going to get that spike planted.
There we go. Talked about that denial utility, right? The orb and the shocks, the orb and the snake bite. Great combination. Flush out time, flush out players. But again, when you have game control, when you have a deep lurk, it becomes more difficult. But Florida can navigate both obstacles flawlessly. They have Infiltrator pin with a swarm grenade. They take out the lurk player. And now you get out the spike plan as well.
Yeah, this is so smart. Winthrop very nervous about taking their fights, taking their ones. But again, it comes down to one player that moves. She's going to sweep right under the rug, let the snow take them. Winthrop University back in the lead, but man, Toby, these 2 teams are just, it's blows back and forth.
And I mean, just again, how they're able to, on the side of Winthrop, keep everything Maryville is doing intact, keep it contained. Even though Maryville's doing a great job of challenging these kind of deposited players. We talked about Klorg. We talked about they were able to flush utility there. It's really, really nice. And I mean, that's around in my mind, I was like, it's going to Maryville every single step of the way. Klorg finds the kill, you deny the plan. And somehow a player like Moves comes and sweeps out the 3K, and it's still done and dusted. So again, a player we look forward to seeing. But speaking of things to look forward to, another eco, another Giza hero rifle. And I do like how Winthrop has kind of found what's working. They're just copy-pasting it, right? Flush out aggression, and now add the Hunter Fury too?
Somehow Giza's staying alive. They're expertly dodging. And that was the perfect smoke to keep their duelists alive, where call-outs could have been made, but he did not break the leer. Giza's going to be the one to suffer from that, and Ali is going on a tear, followed up by Nasi. things are looking really good for Winthrop to take this B site yet again, and maybe not so much tepidity towards getting the spike planted.
And I mean, when Infiltrator, right, is out of the fight, that's when you get to see Ali, you know, fill those shoes, get to see them step up into their own spotlight, an understudy taking the stage and giving their solo. So they find two, they sweep up the eco kills. That, you know, Ren's got a nice share of shot, not to discredit, and this should be an ironclad way to deny the eco, but we've seen more chaotic things happen. So let's see what Cloric and Ange are able to pull through.
Swarm grenade. Swarm grenade
The
out.
answer here is a couple of swarm grenades, seeing if they're hiding out inside of the poison orb. May have been able to grab up. Ali just has the perfect timing, has the perfect aim, has the perfect everything, and Winthrop University pulling even further ahead in the lead.
Wow, and I mean, I set Ollie up for success, and he delivers every line flawlessly. The 4K delivers when Infiltrator was off the table. I do like the use of the site smoke to try and get that wrap, to try and isolate fights, but I do think this is a fair time for MCE to be stepping in. It's been a little bit rough around the edges. Not to say Maryville's been playing bad. It just feels like Winthrop has shown up and is out aiming. And that requires, I think, a little bit more ounce at the micro level. The macro has been great, like the way they're challenging these sites. I just want to see some more double swings, some more like reaction to the utility, just so there aren't these opportunities for key players to slip through and punish, right? We talked about how, okay, you had that stinger fight over towards yellow, but there was no tradability there, right? Ali just swung back and was safe and got to pivot back around because the player was in the smoke trying to get around the spike. So just, you know, take a breather, rethink, re-engage, because, again, you guys are calling great. Credit to Cloric there. Just, again, take a friend with you.
Yeah.
The path is long and arduous ahead of you.
No need to take these crazy duels, take these crazy fights. And that's what I was kind of applauding, the change in pace from Maryville to try and play in the way that they did. But now it feels like they're being a little too stalwart about wanting to hold onto the space at all odds, relying on the fragability of Giza or Rins, where it just hasn't been happening. And Winthrop's really starting to catch on to that in big ways. And again, it comes down to, like we're saying, that micro level where they're winning their shots, they're winning these duels, but they're not doing it alone either. The rest of the squad is there behind them to take these engagements. And they're not afraid to invest up Hunter's Fury if they have to, just to even win an anti-eco.
And that's something we've seen from Nausea on every single map. They are not afraid to use that to make space. You never see them save it for the post plant. And I really love that about this Sova main, playing on every map, meta or not. And now they're in the zone. They're in one of the best Sova maps other than Ascent. And we are seeing them reap rewards as a result. And the reactions as well of Infiltrator, being able to find these kills, and then the team immediately backs them up has been so quick. And the reaction as well with the lockdown is gorgeous. But Frenzy's optional to the painful. Screens, truck, it doesn't matter.
Flair had perfect side steps, even gets the lockdown. It's going to be safe through this as well. Gonna force Maryville back into awkward situation. No, they counter it with a lockdown of their own.
Neutralization, you know.
Okay.
Venn diagram.
So we have one lockdown for another lockdown, like a nice little Venn diagram, like you're saying. Now Winthrop University still has to chew through the rest of the site and actually get on there. And it looks like they're staying determined to get this A. And you've left behind Ange to make sure that any players going for the rotate will be caught off guard, hopefully by them. First, the smoke's gonna come up. Cloric seen over its screens. Are they ready? Yes, they are. Ali leaving no stone unturned. Spike planted.
Yeah, it just feels like they didn't have enough power on the site itself, right? You have the Viper all the way through guard, and you know you can keep the stack over towards A, but that's, excuse me, that stack was only 2 players up against, right, what is it, 4 players strong for Maryville. So it's a similar situation while Infiltrator made the opening for this team, and then the rest of the team is able to reap the rewards. A safe 4-strong post plant here on the A site where Cloric has to navigate and wait for this flank to get past the Killjoy utility flares.
All right, Cloric may have grabbed their one, but at 30 HP, it's Flair capitalizing on that situation. And what have you got? They don't even know you're coming up through the flank. It looks like the alarm bot down. Not able to grab them now. They just walked right past and went over to the high. And see how many players they can play for the exit frags. Ozzy's going to be one victim of that. Come back right over. Edge claims another. And so you may not have won the round, but you at least did some economic damage.
And I honestly think, yeah, that's the best you could have hoped for Ange. And it's a little bit jarring that they weren't able to fight through that Killjoy utility quicker, because you can't hinge off of mistakes being made on the Winthrop side for you to capitalize off of in that fashion. But all in all, I mean, they capitalized off some mistakes, but it wasn't for a round victory here. They didn't expect him behind because he was waiting for so long, and you weren't going to save a Bulldog. So at the end of the day, though, Winthrop finding 6 on their attack is a really good sign, because I feel like both of these teams were fairly defense-sided the last time we saw them on Icebox. Now Infiltrator, you know it's Nico. Some of those have been dicey, so pull out the Outlaw. Why not?
Yeah, pull out the Outlaw. Go for those one-taps. Doesn't matter where. Just land them. And we know Infiltrator is crazy like that. We're just keeping themselves safe from it here. One Lear's going to go out, try to blind them for as long as they can, get over towards safety. And just keep an eye on the high ground of screens of where Rins could be. This Aldron's seeing one player, but you have to keep that in the back of your mind that the rest of the Winthrop University team is also going to be leaning towards this direction.
Get out of my way.
It's going to be a little bit more difficult. Yeah, we're hearing those knives popped out. Second rig pokes their head. Moves is going to rip it right off. And it's all just falling apart for Maryville University on this site. Wildfire's going to try their best, but yeah.
Plant down.
Last player standing.
Rotations now are made, and I really do like the eco default that Maryville's going for, right? Keep Rens concealed, make it seem like business as normal, while you trust in your anchor sentinels and pseudo sentinels in mid on the B site. But if that trio can't hold the A site anymore on these ecos, I think you just need to play off and play retake strong 5, because the Reyna, you know, the Clova are really good for those sort of situations. And clearly, when your Killjoy and your Viper are left a little bit disjointed in these retakes, it just isn't working out. And now Winthrop has a guaranteed lead at the half, and they are going to look to widen it, because again, you win this round, no thirsty shenanigans warranted, then you'll have a 9-3.
For Winthrop University, right, first map, the map choice of Maryville, and the way that they're playing too, Zobi, it's the confidence level striking is going to make Lotus a scary affair for Maryville University in this best of 5 series. So hopefully they have something in the back of their mind, how they want to approach the rest of Icebox to start getting things back into their ground, into their favor. It's going to take some time to get there. Aldrone always going up. We had 3 players now rotating back over towards B. Leaving behind the turret and kitchen, the alarm bot to protect mid. We know how the play goes through for Winthrop University. It's just get them in there. And they're just going to commit the Viper's Pit. They just have to go. But look at all of this chip damage from the Hunter's Fury from Wildfire. That's going to be huge.
Yeah, refreshing to see him on the Sova, but again, it felt a little bit early because the Viper's Pit already scares you back. So I guess they thought they'd be funneled right into that yellow kind of empty space into Garden, and it just does not connect, and really doesn't, I guess, scare them away from the prospect of fighting towards B. This time Ollie's actually ahead of Infiltrator, who's usually the one to take that dive first, and Ollie runs up the damage, but when both are just following each other to the break, there's not much else you can do. So these ults coming in, clutch really to convert what we're doing. Pivotal right to rest of the team. But it's not done just yet until Angie dusts it off for the shorty.
Yeah, clean them up. Good ultimates here from Maryville University. The Hunter's Fury dealing a lot of that chip damage towards 2 of the power players, right? You had Ollie, you had Infiltrator caught inside of that. Second they tried to make any of their swings, it was written in stone how Cloric was going to take those engagements. Yeah, that was a clean headshot from Moobs, but still, you know, Ange dips out of there smoke and goes crazy with the shorty.
Whoa. Last round attack operator from Infiltrator. The Outlaw, it wasn't enough, you know it's a full buy, full shield situation out of Maryville after that last round victory. You want to end things with a bang. You get that novelty factor, that shock factor multiple times this map, and as a result, they're trying to use the aggression while showing B presence, while showing mid presence. They want you to peek, and Rens would have been the victim, but narrowly avoided over towards Pipes. They'll live to see another fight. Now they're starting to realize maybe that pressure over towards B, over towards mid wasn't a fake. It was just operated bait. So they got to start patching up those holes in the sinking ship.
Stayed for far too long. It's Ollie inside of the Empress too. This is going to be, I'm fearing for Cloric's life right now. Look at how Infiltrator has set up here. They go out any further than that, and I'm feeling very confident that Infiltrator would have sent them blasting back into spawn. But Winthrop University is just playing the map, right? They're playing the time, and they're playing the opportunities that they have. They don't want to give up. They don't want to make any missteps against Maryville and fumble a 8-4 lead that they could have.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it could have been a 9-3 if you won the last rifle round, so damage control at this point. I mean, you're taking out Ange, so again, you're not going to fear that retake orb. You have the toxic screen again with you, like you mentioned, there aren't solidified
30 seconds left
on the Winthrop roster. And all of this shaped up to again a great mission on the post plan. And again, it's required coordination for Maryville to take the dive into the other world. And that's without any complications from the duelists like Ollie, like Infiltrator, who may try to push forward. As I say that.
Yeah.
Look at Ollie going with the Empress.
You gotta go inside of there! The second you peek your head, though, it's Infiltrator holding yellow. They go over the high ground, but it doesn't matter. Rinse, you're calling cards, you're just looking for moves, you're seeing where they're gonna be, you're seeing how they're gonna fight. But you're being run down by the Jet Extraordinaire. Winthrop Universities have 8-4.
Switching
And the
sides.
setup there was perfect. I said Nazi doesn't save the spike for a tap, you know, or to save the ultimate for the spike, a tap on the spike. And all to say he uses it instead for zoning for early flush aggression in that setup. Infiltrator, that setup Ali who was pushing forward. It was perfect. You're not expecting the operator to post up that aggressively when there's a pit in play. Expect me to be shorty out to play the close angle. All in all, Winthrop would get their 8-4. And we talked about how Maryville was very smart in their picks, but if Winthrop just sweeps it under the rug as well, they're like, we've grown from our mistakes too. You know, we may have lost this in map 3. We were down, you know, I think it was 6-13 on that map up against Maryville. We can come back. We were riding off copium of being tired of VCL, of CVAL and CECC. It doesn't matter now. We are refreshed. We are here in Raleigh to slay and steal your map pick. But yeah, it's only halftime. There's still an entire map of Icebox to be played. But this is where Remsen, he's a should shine, right?
That's a crazy peek out through the smoke with barely any information. Maryville is just throwing it at the wall and see what's going to stick here. But I mean, if it's Rin, you know you're going to do a lot of good work. Now it's down to the 1v1, but does Wildfire realize what's coming up through the flank? It's Flare. They may not even plant here. They may just whip out the knife and start running in a different direction. Now you have 2 bullets, but you got to know you have to be ready to take this fight. Wildfire ahead of the situation. Do they have the aim to back it up? No, they do not. Flare and Winthrop University.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like Flare rejected Wildfire's offer to play some mind games. Like, oh, I reloaded and I left. I'm totally on my way to B. And no, Flare is not caught off guard, takes the angle astutely and locks in what was a very pivotal pistol round for Winthrop to stay forward in this match. And now the Outlaw, now the Guardian. It's not the confident Vandal that we saw, but you kind of need a 3 or 4K in order to get that sort of money flowing. So I think this is the next best thing. But speaking of next best thing, this is do or die. A Stinger Force. You lose this, you're gifting Winthrop 11, essentially. And then you're on death's door for your map pick.
Maryville University. It's do or die, it's now or never. Don't leave Ali an opportunity. Rin a little bit too long, and the Stinger outranged. Ali gets an escape card too with the dismiss. Back over to the high ground, and they are tearing them all down one by one. This Reyna, lethal as can be.
And here we go. Giza, the forward presence here. Solo Stinger left in hand. Backed up by the Sheriff, but this is what I said I wanted to see at Maryville. Playing full retake on this A site when you have these sort of agents that facilitate with an Outlaw, but we'll see what Infiltrators is be able to do, especially pulling out the last and secondary if they even need it. A just crunch. That's the coordination we wanted to see on the defense out of Maryville. Winthrop teaching, schooling a lesson there on the second round to deny the Stinger force up and get their double digits.
Yeah, I mean that triple swing out on Rafters, you just flood back in, and you get a flawless round to go to your bonus, where you know that Maryville University is not going to have the weapons and not going to have the buy to take this fight. And so when you're taking a gamble, right, you're at least hoping to get something off the board. You're hoping to get anything off of the board, but to take away nothing from Winthrop University, they're going to be feeling this in spades.
I mean, Ali has 2 dismisses, doesn't even overkill at 39 HP and no shield. That's aura, I'm sorry to say. And again, we talked about how that breaks the bank only prolongs the inevitable at this point, because you got to go for full Sheriffs here. So now that, you know, you're not going to buy up anything more if you're Winthrop, just going to further bonus here and should be good for an 11th. No, with no, you know, Sheriff shenanigans. And I mean, I think be smart, cite the smart execute here. You know that Moobs isn't the sort of anchor sentinel, or pseudo sentinel, I should say. They like to play a little loosey goosey, like to for kills, not wait for them to be handed over. But speaking of waiting for you to hand kills over, the entire team for Winthrop has built up. They purposely over-rotate here because they know it's going to be 5 strong on this eco.
You just gotta back away. You're even trying to get the spike planted, and it's costing you so much of your health to make that happen. Now the toxic screen goes away. You have no cover to get back onto the site. Except for maybe you're in smoke. And Moose is getting played so casually. I mean, good lord! How is Winthrop getting away with all of this without losing anybody? A second flawless round in a row, near flawless.
And I mean, Sam, we were looking over some of the NACE upper finals action, right? The past times these two teams have faced off against each other. And we had this kind of view of Winthrop where I felt they were kind of one-tracked minded at times, right? And I think that favored them that round. And on their attack, actually, they had a very good balance between big map awareness and their kind of site executes. And that's what I think Maryville is lacking right now, and hopefully what MC is saying, right? It's been very like, okay, A site or die, now B site or die. I think that's because of the force and because they haven't gotten a full buy through. But I mean, this is the last time MC is going to talk to you. It's the last buy before, again, your money will be gone again. It will be map point for Winthrop on your map pick, which you purposely chose to set up this series for success after you got both bans. And I mean, we talked about how I was hoping for the Giza operator from a successful defensive start. Well, I mean, Winthrop can do the same, and that's what the Jet warrants here.
We got a small taste of how that infiltrator operator was gonna go in their attack half. The very final
with the Viper's Pit
on the very final round, and I mean they got one. Then we see the movement tech, we see the ideas of how infiltrator is able to hold on to space and stop them from coming through.
Bro even discards the outlaw and spawns. Says, I don't need it. I know it's gonna be a full buy, full shield situation. This is their last ditch attempt at salvaging this map before we stroll into our best map of Lotus after the fact on, again, a snowball ego map like Icebox into it. And all of this to say, I mean, they even had the stat correct. And I was thinking I wanted Maryville out of that timeout to be a little bit more map-wide focused. So I do like the mid presence. I do like the Sova kind of waiting outside of B main. It feels more, again, spread, divide, conquer here, which is okay for the start, but then you've got to shift effectively into a execution before time is up.
Yeah, exactly. But this is working more of the Icebox map that you need to, right? Create pressure. Infiltrators move from A into mid where there's really no presence just yet, but that smoke let them know how this is gonna go.
You never saw this out of Maryville. They never cleared out the DK lurk or the mid players because they tried to against Flare and he was just winning those duels. And this is what I really liked, double player to take Ange out. And yet even when you have players like Giza and Ren trying to fight into it, they're still stronger. To really
It's unstoppable. It's undeniable. Winthrop University is here and showing up in force. Raleigh, North Carolina, it's match point for them on map 1.
Well rested, you know, warming up on stage. We saw some TDMs, we saw some death matches. And, whew, I mean, every player here is delivery. I can look at every player and say, this is the impact you have had this map on the Winthrop side. And again, for Maryville, it was a second map. Or sorry, it was the third map over towards CC. When it was the second map. No, it was the third. I'm lying to you guys. No. It was the second map.
It was the second map.
It was the second map in CECC Grand Finals. So they had already won map, which is a map that, you know, they've lost it. They come in and turn the series around. Speaking of turning the series around, they have to do that now. That's why they tried to use the map, but no one was pushing forward. The Killjoy is the one on the site.
There we go. It feels like it's been forever since Maryville was able to grab any frag, any pick, any kill here. And it's still being exchanged, having to pay for almost all of this in blood. Rin's activated, taking a small amount of that chip damage. But for Maryville University, you're going up against 2v4. This is your best odds to take a round in this attack half. Oh, Rin.
This is your feast or famine. You know, solo lone wolf Reyna, an infiltrator who's doing most of the work on their own at times, but up against Ren's again. Easy work here in an easy 4K to keep Maryville afloat and get a 5th round.
And this was very important to talk about too here, Zobi, is that you only lost Giza. So you still have opportunities to be able to give them a buy, give them a purchase, and the rest of the squad still has enough firepower to potentially be able to take this round. But this is where Winthrop University, they're calm, cool, and collected. They are at match point. Maryville University needs 7 rounds in a row. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that anymore.
And Winthrop is a team that normally doesn't take timeouts, but I think the ones we saw were against Maryville, actually. So we could see those come out here from Nazi at time to time, since they really don't have that strong prowess coach like the Maryville squad. But for the time being, like you mentioned, just take a fight until you win it. When you have players like Elite, players like Infiltrator, those can come at any point in time.
Rin, you're going to have to put in a powerhouse performance, but already eliminated. They're going to bring themselves back up from the dead, but we know how this works. They got to go in and take the fight. You've at least seen 3 here. Coric is going to hold this angle for as long as they can. Winthrop University, they're not going to play into these tricks. They're not going to play into these traps because guess what? You have Flare on the alert. They can play for that perfectly. Now it's just one last player. It's all Coric or nothing. Winthrop University landing the first blow on Icebox, 13-5.
They steal away the map pick of Maryville, who have had so many advantages coming to the best of 5 since they were never wounded in the double elimination formats. But I mean, look, the scoreboard tells the entire story. And even that last round, it talked about how, okay, there's things that Maryville can punish because they are fully committing to site rotations. I mean, you expect double duelist aggression, shut that down double duelist. You don't expect any other players there. And there was immediately moves. There was immediately Nazi to back them up. So they are, it feels like underestimating Maryville getting away with it right now.
Yeah. I mean, with that performance, with how Infiltrator was playing, right, we were saying, look at the scoreboard, but still the rest of the squad, too, they're coming up. They're not being left behind in the dust by this player. I mean, you're looking at what it was the 4th round, 5th round. Infiltrator's already up 11 frags, and that is insane performance from your Jet. And we were talking about it too at the very beginning of this game. It was back and forth. The blows were being exchanged, but once it got to that 3-5 scoreline, Winthrop University just pulled so far ahead that Maryville, that kind of momentum that you need to get yourself back into the game, was just never to be found again.
Yeah, it was lucky they won that kind of late round bye as well, so they could have that 8-4 over a 9-3. But again, losing that pistol, downward spiral where you mentioned, it would have taken kind of high hopes to get the job done.
High hopes, a lot of really digging into the jar to figure out what you need. And you did 2 timeouts, but you weren't able to find the magic. You weren't able to find the way. And in your attack half, you were only able to get that 1 round. You gambled your chances away. Then you're trying to stand tall against this Winthrop University squad that, yeah, they're not messing around anymore.
Oh, for sure.
This is...
I mean, that's map 1. I talked about how, to me, this felt like kind of a repeat affair of what we could have seen from the closeout of CECC, more just mirrored in order to set it up, and that just was not the case. And now, honestly, that's about 3-1. This feels like the beginning of a possible 3-0 going into Lotus.
Possible 3-0, but I think we're about to be sending it over to the desk of Zobi, so that way they can go ahead and break everything down for us on that map of Icebox.
Thank you so much, Zobi and Sam Talks. Very excited to be back to talk about that map number 1. Already off to a hot start. We have Winthrop University leading this best of 5, 1-0.
Yeah, knowing that they were already coming into this confident, right? They said, we're tired of losing in grand finals on land, so we just want to get the job done. They think they're better, and they proved that on map 1. And doing it on your opposition's map pick is just it's you know, butter to the toast that they probably had this morning to get the breakfast out of the way.
Oh, 100%.
Is that the southern version of that, like the icing on the cake, the butter on
I
the
just
toast?
use it so often, so I try to find something new with it. We'll say it's the southern way to go.
Okay,
I'll
I like
start
it. I like it. Okay. I'm adding that to my own lexicon for later. But it is a great start for Winthrop.
I mean, just to highlight from Zobi saying that it does feel very much like CECC Icebox.
It does.
But just mirrored, and I think that really gives credit to both teams on the homework that they've done. We saw early on Maryville making that adjustment, trying to take fights early, right? Not being afraid of Infiltrator. Yes, you're the big bad boss man coming through, raid boss, but we're going to put 2 on every angle that you swing and try to stop you. And it did work for a little bit in the beginning.
Can you even argue that it did? Infiltrator had like 11 kills by round 5, right?
That's
like,
true.
Yes, you kept him a little quiet in rounds 1 and 2, but it's a slow start for Infiltrator.
Is it? Roll the tape here. Hold on. We got a highlight from one of those rounds, because you said 11 kills by round 5. Well, half of them happened in round 5. So, like, I think we got to take a look back at what happened in this game 1.
I mean, Infiltrator gets through fairly unseen, right? It's all about that very quick aggression onto the A site. You try to keep back as much as you can Wildfire. You can see them here trying to hide off back towards screen. A lot of danger and a lot of potential for the lurk as well through mid, which is something that Winthrop were trying to use, that Ange had used previously on their offense. But no, the Bladestorm is ready. Send out the Blades, get your first frag. We thought this would actually go in favor for Giza, but Infiltrator had other things to say about it. The crawl back around through screens into defender spawn, collecting a weapon, which I was like, hey, they're going to have a rifle there. No, it's still classic in hand for Infiltrator. And then they'll take that stripped away Bulldog to get the 5th in the ace technically, but you still needed somebody to clean up this last kill because they got away with a good one. But it's still a devastating result for Maryville.
I mean, we could see from this clip right there what he was saying in his own interview. He wants to take the fights on his own terms. Name another player with 26 HP that will just keep hitting W key with a classic, right? And still end up getting this pseudo ace. I don't think I've ever seen something like that.
Well, I really love that this was, I think, the perfect map to really be able to execute on a lot of that. The aggression that Infiltrator was able to set alongside the rest of Winthrop. I love that the team was like, okay, do your thing. You got this. We're just going to help enable you, and you get to go play as aggressive as you want.
Especially when it comes to how typical you see the ace site get hit for Icebox, right? And how consistent it was for both teams in their prior series for CECC. I think that the bigger question for them is going to be, how is that first half going to turn into? You need to get something like an 8-4, which obviously was doable and accomplished, but then things went really wrong at the start of that second half when they went for the, hey, we lost the pistol, let's force in round 14 for some reason, and that cost them, and it never felt like they got things back under control.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting to look at, because you would think that on the attacking side, like, that would never happen, right? It really looked really good for Maryville after they were able to get just a couple of rounds heading into the second half.
I see the plan that they were going for, because usually what their buy was like 2 Stingers, 3 Sheriffs. You really want your Stingers to get in there first, not just to get kills, but just to eliminate shields. That way you leave your Sheriff players to just get that one deagle shot to the head. But I just think they chose the wrong position to push. I mean, A site, Stingers on attack, not really favorable angles, because you have so much high lows, you have so much distance. Maybe I think running through mid perhaps might have fared better for them.
I think a lot of it as well was we talked about them doing their homework, and we saw that kind of work out for Winthrop on their defense, saying, hey, let's prowl down through mid. Let's isolate Ange, who's trying to wait for that lurk as the team hits onto A site so they can come up and sneak away a kill or two. But it didn't really feel like Maryville read into any of that past that and just said what we did previously that worked should work again. It's not going to be the case. Winthrop said, we want the Outlaw and Infiltrator. And so you try to cut that gap if you're Maryville with those Stingers, try to close into the space, but it ended up not being the problem in that 14th round. And instead the problem came down for every other weapon and the passivity that you're looking for of playing the engagement on your terms, that you have the value to do so as a defender. And I don't know, it just needed to be a slightly better read and maybe try to go for a soft buy, just getting those ghosts, getting those Sheriffs, and just say, we'll take it on the chin. Because if we mess up here, which they did, it's going to cost you too much. It cost you your map pick for the very first start of this best of 5.
And a lot of that also, not only just to put the spotlight on Infiltrator, but to highlight moves as well, because they struggled a little bit during the previous Icebox matchup, but this time, I believe they were right up there in the leaderboard. I think like 23 and 9, some other insane like KD ratio.
And I think most of that was on their first half, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was down to the potential. You talk about the lurk. We talked a lot about the lurk for moves and the value, and that'll come up in our next map as well. But where it came into instead was they're always the second person out into a firefight. Yeah. Their value was found when Infiltrator died, and even when they didn't die, they were still peeking the opposing angle, so you had 2 like tertiary swings. But when Infiltrator would die, knowing that they got their 1 kill, got their 2 kills, sometimes 3 or 4, they were cleaning up immediately afterwards. And we had that big one, I think it was like round 6 or round 7, where Moves got a 3K out of nowhere within a Viper's toxic screen, and it was kind of a big shocker, but that's just what Move does best.
And Moves was another player that I think we really wanted to highlight on this Winthrop roster, because while, yes, a lot of eyes are on Infiltrator right now as kind of the next big player to make it in the Valorant Tier 1 scene, I think Moves is really not that far behind.
No, they lead the charge. The confidence from them, they have no fear. I mean, I think that was the big thing. We had an interview with them yesterday. There's like, there's not a single person that we have any sort of, we don't shiver. We're just like, oh, they're really good. They talk about JP from Cumberland, like, oh, they're really good. They're like a confident player. I'm swinging them. Like, I could not care less about how good they are individually, because I know my team will be better than them. Which is also why I think that the overall KST for that side is so strong, because they can trust their teammates to follow up behind them.
And Moves really is the glue holding the team together, setting the vibes. When you lead with confidence, you really enable even someone like Infiltrator to be even more confident, knowing that like. Typically, we highlight Moves as the work player, the one that finds the timings for Winthrop. Now, they threw a wrench in Maryville's plans. They're looking for Moves mid. Guess what? He's right behind Infiltrator. They clicking heads, right? That's something that we haven't really seen happen, and this is why it's also important to highlight Moves' role in this win.
I love that. Let's go ahead and roll the interview that we did do with Moves ahead of this grand finals.
Yeah, so we've played a lot of different leagues, especially we've played a lot of different collegiate leagues and a lot of professional leagues in VCL. We've made playoffs in VCL twice now, and we're one of the top teams. We play up to 5 matches a week, and for a lot of teams, that'd be like a lot of pressure, and they'd feel burnt out. But for us, we're really resilient, and we just use it as extra practice. Yeah, so currently we are 1-2 against them this semester, but if you look back to the previous semester, we beat them like 3 times in a row. So, it's not like we feel like they're unbeatable. They have beaten us twice at LAN in the finals. So, we're definitely motivated to beat them in the grand finals at a LAN this time, but it's just another day for us. No, I can't bench 315 yet. I'm at 250 right now, but I'm on a cut, so it's probably even less now. My goal is to hit a certain body weight and then push 315 bench.
Great.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there, guys. I'm getting there.
All right, jacked in-game and on LAN. This is definitely not a guy you want to face either way.
He is such a character. I mean, we did interviews yesterday, and Moves we did the day prior, and we could talk to him for like a 2-hour haircut and just let him do whatever he wanted to do because he was always willing to talk about something, always willing to give an opinion about something. I wouldn't, you talk a lot and say, oh, this person's opinionated. Honestly, it felt like they were facts from him because he was just saying them so confidently. And I think that's the overall team is really taking that vibe and just riding off of it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the questions that we asked him while we were chopping it up, just for fun, was if you had to trade one player from your team and take another player from the enemy team, who would you let go from your team? Surprisingly enough, his answer was, just to show you how confident he is, let's put Infiltrator on the other team because I've never gotten to play against him. I want to see what that feels like.
Yeah, he wanted Renz back, which is a good answer because they played with Renz before. But at the same time, that means you are giving up Infiltrator, and that is a scary person to face off against, but they still felt they could do it.
Well, I love that. Maybe we'll get a chance to see more of that aura on stage as we look towards our second map in the series. We'll go ahead and show you what the rest of this map draft and ban phase looked like ahead of the series. Icebox was just map number 1, but we also had a chance to see Maryville ban out a couple of maps, and we'll go ahead and I think be able to show you what's coming up next as well. And so when you think about heading into this map ban, I know, Infernosis, you gave us a little bit of this strategy at the very beginning of our day, but could you remind us a little bit of where you feel like Winthrop or Maryville could find the edge in this?
A lot of it is going to come off of moves, not to continue to talk about this player, but the lurk potential for some of these key maps for Winthrop, and Lotus is one of those key maps, and that's what we are seeing and heading into next. It's all about timing for them. And you have teams that this was everything, right? This was how Cumberland managed to take a map off of Maryville previously. This is where Cumberland typically took down extremely strong teams like Fisher and, dealing with the competition in a pretty easy manner because they have arguably the best lurkers at, in the championship up to that point. And then you had to have players kind of either counter that or find a way to not be so susceptible to it. So the way that we saw Winthrop try to counter that was just to use their own lurk and try to survive that first half or the half that was going on for their offense from Cumberland and then turn that the other direction for Maryville. They just beat the timing. That was the way they did it. It's like, okay, we're going to brute force this. We will always be ready for that lurk and to try to shut that down, and then we'll take you to an opposing map if we absolutely have to. But Moobs is someone that is really hard to shut down for the timing, and if they can stay inconsistent with their timing, which I know sounds kind of bad to be inconsistent, but if you're hitting the same side on that lurk every 20 seconds into a round, you're going to eventually pay the price. Maryville are going to key into that one. I think that's the big condition for Maryville is to try to make sure that they don't let the lurk go too crazy.
Yeah, I think for Winthrop, you have to continue your two-prong play style, right? They didn't really do that here in Icebox, so that threw a wrench into Maryville's plans. But on a map like Lotus, it is very important to have Infiltrator, the battering ram, try to come through their front door. But that draws so much attention, you got to allow Moobs, the Thief in the Night, to just sneak through the back door, pick the locks, find the kills that they need in that backline so that mid-round rotation becomes a lot easier. Because Lotus is a lot of like a show and go kind of site, right? That we have that coming up. You kind of just slam full force on something, but oftentimes the mid-rounds is going to be whoever can lurk up the site and find a free site to get the plant down at the very least. That's where it's going to happen.
You also have to worry about now Teo coming back in because Icebox, you didn't have to see it, right? We are on old patch, so Teo is rearing his, we'll say gorgeous head, but my goodness, way too strong at the state. So you have to now worry about that. And so Flair's going to be happy. Flair having an 80+% pick rate for this in the championship. They're going to be plenty fine, but now you have to keep Chloric alive as well for Maryville, which is something that they can typically be pretty good about that, but you also have to be very concerned for the counterplay on the defense for it, because it's a little bit harder to use that Teo in that direction. But the obvious issue will be Nasi turning around for the Winthrop side, because you have to keep Nasi alive and valuable on the offense, which has been a problem, despite this being one of, if not the best map overall for this side. You are struggling to make sure that Nasi can participate. They come alive on the defensive side of things, but I don't really feel like their initiation is as valuable in comparison to, say, having the Yoru, which we'll see on the opposing side, to having that dual prong, or something like a Fade, or maybe a little bit more value out of a typical kind of initiator that has a flash, like the Breach we're likely going to see from Maryville.
Well, let's go ahead and see what agents have been selected for our upcoming map, Lotus, as all players have already locked in, and we'll get a chance to see just how right you are about the agents and kind of how well that's going to lend itself to the strategy that you've also talked about.
I feel like a lot of the championship teams have gone for that Vice and Viper dual prong, so the team can pivot with the rest of three, maybe have one player prowl down mid to kind of test the B sites. But otherwise, it's players rapping amongst each other and saying, okay, whichever one of our lurkers can get a kill, the team will start to take that transition to find value. That's not really something in the docket for this, right? We don't typically see the value out of a Viper from these teams at this level. So they're
Yeah.
going to go say, okay, a Vice is also fairly solid, but we want to try to stick to a Sentinel that we're going to be a little bit more comfortable with, which will come down to the Cypher choices, the information quickly and clearly down through Mound, as well as the initiation value from Wildfire over in the Breach, and then you turn that the other direction, Infiltrator off of the Jet and over to the Neon, which is always fun to see them do, but it means that it's even more important for Nasi on that Sova to correctly get the information so that Infiltrator knows what they have to push into.
And I do like this Breach pick coming out from Wildfire to combo with Renz on Yoru, because while you're missing the Owl Drone, I think having that Yoru is just even better, because now you have to physically clear any lurks, right? And you have Wildfire to support that. So anytime they're able to catch boobs unexpectedly, just fault line stun, you can have Renz swing for that just to clear it out. Because if you're running like a Fade or a Sova, you can kind of just wait out these like initiator utility that kind of just fakes you out sometimes. If you don't see anyone, Boobs is able to just hide from them, and then now you think, oh, you're in the clear, you start to rotate, and Boobs just takes you out right there.
Then that puts up the bigger question now for Giza for the side now of Maryville. Well, you're questioning, can Giza get the job done as a Sentinel to be a lurker, which I think for them, they don't typically rely on them for that. They say, sit back towards attacker spawn, lay up your tripwires, watch direct towards Mount if we're hitting in towards A side and trying to clear our herbal as fast as possible. Just be there to assist, because Rins can close that gap very quickly, taking that step, TPing off into the back of the line, and then trying to get a bunch of information off of the Dimensional Drift and having that essential VTOL right for free intel. But it also requires Rins to get some kills, which I didn't really feel like they were able to highlight that spectacularly on map 1, but they were in a different role and a kind of a different system for them. But the team overall needs to start to pick things together as we went through this break.
And then it may not have seemed like it, but Maryville was playing very aggressive on Icebox, and they were hitting their shots. So I wonder how that's going to translate, especially for Giza, who is used to being this aggressive player. You know, they're used to being the guy that frags out. Now having to play a more conservative role on a map like Lotus that kind of just runs out the clock on every round each time. So that transition is going to be very important.
Especially because there's so many big rotations that you can make on this map too. And with the setup required to make sure that you're getting all the intel to make a smart decision for what site you also actually want to approach, I could totally see this map being a very converse effect to what we just saw on Icebox. And I think that's going to be really fun to watch and also very telling. As we are in a best of 5, Winthrop University being up 1 map, if they win the second one, they only need 1 more in order to take the series. And I know we didn't get a chance to talk about this before we actually started out our series, but what are your predictions? Who do you actually feel like might take the match and the championship?
The confidence from Winthrop is a little bit infectious, is maybe the way that I would phrase it, right? So they're coming in with absolute confidence at the back of their shoulders, and they want to get the job done. So part of me wants to just straight up give them that edge, but I do think that Maryville is going to completely give them a run for their money. If this isn't a 3-2 win for Winthrop, I think it can be a 3-1, especially at the result of map 1 and Icebox. But I think Winthrop come in, they have no more copium. They can't say, oh, we retired from Milan. You're here the whole time. You even stopped playing your premier game so that you could, have a little bit more time to get rest in and talk things through with the team. I think they're at 100% right now, and I think they very well will take it.
I think my predictions would have been a little different pre-game. Now that we've seen Icebox, right, and how that went, I honestly, I would have thought it would have been about a 3-1, still in Winthrop's favor. I thought that Maryville would have taken the win over on Icebox to get that early lead. But now, after seeing the adjustments come out from the side of Winthrop, it seems that whichever, and we talked to the players on Winthrop yesterday, and they tried to, play it off like we don't really know what we're gonna do. There's no need to do analysis on us. I watched that Icebox game. These guys did their homework, right?
Yeah.
They knew exactly what counterplay Maryville would do for them, and they reversed that.
Yeah, and compare obviously the round difference between them, right? 351 rounds to 186 for the opposing side. They got a lot more practice. VCL as well on the docket. They've been playing their hearts out.
Well, let's go ahead and get right into
this. Goes here.
2.
Now, I think for Lotus, this is a do or die moment for Maryville, right? Winthrop University was able to get that first map of Icebox in a fairly convincing fashion. Now Maryville is going to have to go that next step on what is a Winthrop map.
Oh, for sure. And we touched on this a little bit. They made that change from the Neon head-to-head to the Renz Yoru, and it just helps with some of these fake outs, some of these rotations, which I think are going to be important. I really like how simplistic they kept Icebox and had a shortcoming as a result. But, shoes are on the other foot. We're swapping sides. So, having maybe that level of control could be helpful.
All right, Winthrop University starting off on the attack. This one smoke, though, enough to completely stall them out. Here it comes, though. And we're also getting a taste of the Tejo yet again, right? Guided salvos gonna go inside of connector to push Cloric back even further. And all of this space has been given up to Winthrop University. But you're going to hear the doors open. You might see the fast rotations come in inside of connector, but they have to be so ready for Cloric. They're gonna back out, realizing that they may come in this direction. That stealth drone is gonna see everything they need to. Infiltrator's gonna try and get ahead of that, but they're not gonna be able to, right? But they also dodged the guided salvo and the vault line. Oh, wait. It's gonna be on the other side of this. That recon bolt has seen everything in the perfect relay bolt. Infiltrator does not miss. When they want first blood in these maps, they get them until Ange fires back with a double kill of their own. Nasi's gonna trade it out. Now we're looking at a very sketchy 2v3 for Maryville.
Oh. And I mean, B-sides on pistols are so dicey, but Winthrop is so good at changing on a dime as a result. So difficult here. I mean, we're back to Prime Tejo, great dichotomy between that, continuance that we had over on Icebox. So it's back to post-plant simulator, and it looks like we never left. Flare infiltrated, perfect contact off each other, perfect delay, but Ange is just better. 3 kills out on the round, and the perfect bodyguard for Wildfire for their 4th, and to get things started with their first pistol, actually, of the entire series.
This is a great recovery from Maryville to be able to survive through that 2v3 and done in such a phenomenal fashion, right? That was the teamwork it felt like we were missing on Icebox, Zobi. The way that Wildfire and Ange were playing that out, the fault line done to perfection, Wildfire holding that, forcing the play of Flare to have to push into Ange's Ghost, and it just comes out so cleanly. And Ange's performance there, phenomenal on top of that to grab that 4K and secure that pistol round for Maryville.
Okay. Here we go. It's just going to be a slam over towards Pillar where, I mean, he's a judge. You should have this written down. He does it every single second round of Lotus. And, I mean, now you can't see anything. You're nearsighted by the paranoia. Ren's able to challenge forward, but this stinger forced up from Winthrop is doing some damage, but not enough. The forward heavy buy, like multitude of rifles, and just Ange, who is having an infiltrator level start to this map, is keeping things under wraps for the time being. It's all down to Flare. 1v2, the players are hot on your heels through revolving door. Ooh, so head to A.
And not only is it the final 2 players of Maryville, it's Wildfire and Ange again against Flare in the 1v2. Ange has got a Phantom and Wildfire has a Vandal. You cannot lose these weapons if you're either one of these 2. Wildfire goes for the swing. I saw the vision for Flare, but just not enough HP. Wildfire barely survives through.
Oh, and that celebration from Wildfire as well. You saw it on the camera, the Vibe Merchant himself. I mean, you're starting up 2-0, already a great, after you lost that map. Again, this is a Lotus map, but again, for Winthrop, this map, it's been their best, but it feels like a gamble to pick it, right? You lost up against Maryville for it previously. It's the only team that knows how to kind of keep your one-track minded nature on the attack under wraps, and so maybe looking towards them to kind of make those changes, to have more developed lurk players, and that seems to be exactly the keys that they're going for. Maybe the crunch to clear out of B main, again, dislodge Giza before going C, but this looks like their typical CN, and that's where I'm curious to see how Rens and Ange are going to disrupt it with aggression, maybe off of a one-way or off of fake no util over towards C Mound.
Wait a minute, there's just paused here, right? There's not the trademark one-way set up. My God, Infiltrator! You expect Ange to be able to get that with the Phantom, but Infiltrator to be that step ahead with the Sheriff of all things now has a massive weapon upgrade. No one to stop them, no one to trade it out. You left your Omen on this island by themselves. And that's something that Winthrop University can eagerly capitalize on inside of the smoke. Once it dissipates, you have to be quick on the flick. You cannot lose players like that. On the flip side, though, Rins has a Phantom at their feet they could use to get away from the Outlaw.
I mean, you keep trading it up, it's still even numbers, so no harm, no foul there, because Infiltrator wasn't able to get multiple kills like he usually does. So credit to the side smoke there from Ali to try and make that opportunity, but again, you've got to convert on those sort of ones, especially in these ecos. So again, we love a Stinger Force and a team like G2, but it's fair for Maryville. It failed for Winthrop, and now it kind of set them up for this downturn on, again, an attack side of the Lotus, which makes you nervous for the longevity of this map, the conclusion. But we are far from that, because you mentioned those weapons are down, easily collected, and this round is far from over. So we'll see if they can turn things around early on.
They left behind the Phantom, but it was kind of playing to the favor of Giza, right? You're so determined to get it, and it may have cost you something here. Clone goes in. Spike still has yet to be planted, right? Ali struggling to get it down, but but look who's coming up through the flank at Mach speeds. None other than Wildfire themselves. Flare trying to take the angle onto Waterfall, was not prepared for the fight at Mound. Push them over onto the other side using the fault line. Wildfire just jump peeking, figuring out where they are. Push them out with the aftershock. Flash them. So much layering of utility here to mess with Ali. And then Rins to put the final nail in the coffin. Maryville University. It's a bonus round that is theirs and a map of Lotus that's looking strong.
Yeah, it felt like that upgraded weapon management was a little off, right? They give it to Ali to clear his out backside while Moose is trying to go aggressive through water. And as a result, he just gets picked off by Giza, who's playing safe, but still on alert to take down some of these additional eco kills. And all that aligns very, very well to shut down that and get that third round. And that honestly was kind of gifted again by Winthrop, you know, disrespecting you, forcing up those fingers, trying to get that 3-0 kind of mentality we thought rolling. But all in all, this is where you kickstart things if you're Winthrop. This is the rifle round. If you lose this, I'm a little nervous for you because, again, defense then thriving for Maryville, even though that's the side they chose to pick on here for Winthrop's pick. But I haven't really gotten to see that kind of head-on fight because the Yoru is starting to see consistently, and I think that's what Winthrop has started to identify because that gate crash, because they can rejoin the fight on A. They are able to occupy this space pretty much for free versus last time we saw these situations on Lotus, it was always these headbutt collisions.
Yeah. But that was also like the neon v neon action that was happening occasionally. Yeah, so
a lot faster
pace. You have the fast lanes to give you that cover that you don't get from the Viper anymore. Infiltrator sneaking inside of tree, seen by the camera, but only them. Spike still weaseling its way back over the hands of Ali. Wildfire, fault line pushes Infiltrator back out. Quick run, jump peek to see that they're out in the open. You're even going to have and step in with the dark cover. That is unbelievable, Infiltrator. Then you're just going to slide in and take down another player. A double kill. The Duelist has done their job. But guess what? Winthrop's not going to end here. It's all just get to B and plant it there.
And I was curious. I was maybe hoping there was an anti-strat happening there with moves like over towards B. Right, Trapwire gets destroyed, maybe a Paranoia, open door, and fight through. But none of that happened. So all this setup, all this potential just kind of fizzled out off of, again, the aggression from Infiltrator and that you mentioned fast-paced rotation to B, where, again, they set themselves up in what feels like uninterruptible post-plant situations. And that's where you have to go towards players like Rens, who, again, tag team, distraction play, and Winthrop just clotheslines you for a near flawless.
Yeah, that looks like the Winthrop University we know and love on Lotus. Right, the way that they play through A, you leap behind moves on the lurk to gain that space, to create that space. And also the way that they set up the trips to protect the flank, right? You have one coming out through C main, you have another one at A. But the way that they were set up here for the previous round was you had them layered onto B. So that way,
was the end goal.
Exactly. You knew that's where you were wanting to go. You knew that's where you were wanting to end. Meanwhile, it's just all about protecting yourself from anyone pushing into you at the moment.
And this gives that move's going to be lurking over towards Pillar while the team goes A or the team goes C. And it happens to be this is when, you know, Maryville's decided to fight over or out towards A and also crunch through Pillars where, look at the Paranoia counter. They know they have to flush out Giza. They know they have to flush out his support because Clark has actually really been good at supporting things. Following up late stealth drones, going for these trades, but without the weapons, you really have nothing. It's all bark, no but, because Renswood, your hero rifle, TP's out without getting punished.
Good lord, Winthrop University is locked in. Infiltrator even more so. Rins, the only player left standing, the only one here to do anything for this team, and a 1v5. They had to get through so much. They had to get through the raid boss Infiltrator themselves. Look at this swing. Look at the timing. Look at the Winthrop University flawless perfection.
And that's, you know, how you correct what was a difficult stinger kind of gamble on the second round. And it does feel like, yeah, I'm so glad that MC is stepping in because it feels like things, again, that you were getting away with prior when you were stealing Lotus away from these opponents isn't working, right? Giza isn't winning these fights over towards Pillar. Cloric isn't having a fast enough follow-up because you're seeing this extra added layer of utility like the Paranoia. And I honestly think, to me, you know, I'm sure they're better off, you know, in their Red Bull Homeground matches and other matches on Lotus where they have this Yoru picked up. But I think the neon that they had really was allowing them to fight and kind of discombobulate the Winthrop players on, versus it feels like here it's less substantial, the impact that we're seeing. But outside of that, you know, I mean, Infiltrator's been set up nicely off the Tejo. Flare looks like he never left. Again, Des mentioned it, almost 80% of the time he's been playing this agent. And now it's been obliterated in the new meta. So, again, it shows the flexibility of these squads. And you also are taking time to realize, okay, how can we revert to our old set plays going back to these compositions? So, All in all, I mean, you still have the lead, so like it's not like you're out of luck just yet if you are MCE and you are Maryville. So just keeping things ahead, keeping things under wraps, because again, you lose this round and it's gonna be a Winthrop lead because you're also gonna be broke. So
yeah.
I'm wondering what the change up is. It looks like they are trying to support Renz a little bit more on this C-mount aggression. And it is still this Giza Chlorica duo. Now, how they're gonna keep A under wraps and how moves can recognize that and maybe make space is where I'm a little concerned.
That's where we're all feeling a little bit of that fear. Renz. There is no fear, right? You could be able to TP out, and not seeing anything on this mound may have lent them to fearing what could be possible. Infiltrator's taken so much damage, but 36 HP, and they're still leading the charge. Finally gonna back off, let the Owl Drone scout out and figure out where exactly these players are hiding. Stealth Drone is going to go out. May not have suppressed Ali, but it's still going to do something here. He's just walking through, moves, caught in the arms of Ange's firepower. Now he's just backing away. Infiltrator's still holding on for dear life, but again, we're talking about how low you are on that HP. Doesn't matter. As long as Wildfire is landing those headshots, they are looking so good. Until Flare shows off how good they can look themselves. Giza back on the floor, though. Puts down a quick cage. They stepped through it just in the nick of time, but I think Giza had enough of a view of Flare to be able to land the killing blow and keep Maryville away from the Winthrop tie.
And it just feels like this map is, it feels like the defense is so different for the side of Maryville this time around. I mean, you really don't have that kind of deep sea mound control. You really don't have all this information so you can stack sites. It feels like they're playing more retakes, more site denial, and this time it works over on the C side, and I'm curious to see what the changes as a result are out of Winthrop. And part of that comes out of the operator for Infiltrator here. Maybe again trying to get that early stage impact because you realize that too many players are left alive late into the round. You aren't able to get that space, that kind of security for free.
There's no way we get an Infiltrator attack operator again.
Neon Jet doesn't matter.
Neon Jet doesn't matter. They want to show off. They want to make plays happen. What better way to do that than with that operator in their hands? You gotta be tepid if you're Maryville once you hear that operator shot go off. You may even have that understanding of they had this much credits. What kind of crazy plays can they be working with from here? Yeah, it's just all about opening the door. It's just all about poking and prodding. Winthrop University, you can feel that they're on the back foot right now with the way that they're spread out across this map.
And not quite sure if the Infiltrator overdrive is online. To me, that's the only thing that would warrant them also having,
I
was gonna say, the operator. Because now you get, what do you do when you're in a situation like this? Can't ADS anymore. Go for the no-scope. Right, you need that kind of get out of jail free card when you actually need to execute for your team. And there it is! Fingers are blazing! I'm mind-meld with Infiltrator. He says, I'm not going to be taken out of the fight. I'm going to, open up the B site. Finds the kill onto Chloric. Shorty out in the close proximity. And they are now coming off rotations even from the C site where the stack was.
And you got to think about this too, right? They committed the rolling thunder, but it doesn't matter. It does not matter. It's all alone here. But you're HP, just one shot from Moves. Now it's down to Wildfire v Moves. And they can just play the jiggle perfectly if they need to. Moves doesn't need to do anything crazy here. They're going to still try and go about doing it. They go over to the other side. Wildfire, a step ahead of the game. They're just going to go ahead and start pushing this. Moves is at 10 HP. Wildfire, a classic right click. And a saving of the day for Maryville University.
And he waves Moves goodbye out of that 1v1 clutch. I mean, just the confidence to know that wallbang headshot hit. He has 10 HP. I'm going to run up and right click him with a classic. I mean, I don't think in a 1v1 high pressure situation like that, like, it's so difficult to call. And again, it shows how these teams said, we're coming to play our game, we're coming to have fun, we're coming to win. And Maryville's showing that again on Winthrop's strongest map. We thought it was going to be, the beginning of that Winthrop turnaround, and Maryville is keeping it competitive here, bouncing back out of the timeout, both the 2 rounds going their way. They, flushed out some nice ultimates at the expense of their Rolling Thunder, but I think that was a fair trade-off now, because again, money is low. Winthrop's back up against the wall where you lose this. Maryville, again, when we set up kind of like they were over an Icebox for a guarantee, Maryville will be kind of now the ones guaranteed for a lead.
Winthrop's no stranger being on the back foot here. That's an early commitment of the Armageddon.
Whoa.
Didn't clear the other corner. Giza may have been caught inside of that relay bolt, but not going to lose their aim. Not going to overplay their hand. Moves has to back away. They're getting at that 70 HP marker. But you're Rins, right? You hear that stealth drone, you TP away before you get caught inside of the suppression. Not risking anything. Ange, the second ultimate expended by them to get in there. Flash away. This protects Ange too from the Armageddon, but they're still flashed themselves. They couldn't see anything coming in their direction, and this may have given some way and some credence to where Winthrop University needs to go from that neural theft.
Ooh. you mentioned both Armageddon's used, both for clearing out space, kind of setting you up for late round success, but feels like Winthrop keeps ending B.
Oh no.
And Maryville is able to, just in a blink of an eye, make these disruptions just like they did with the Dimensional Drift.
But the rest of the squad's taking so long to get onto the site that Rins was just left on this island by themselves. Moves again, right? But this time supported by Ali, who's coming up through the flank. But how much further can they go? Giza's just gonna go ahead and be able to stick, but they don't know. They might be able to set themselves up. Giza just going for the full defuse. Ali, you may have gotten the kills, but you didn't get the spike.
Oh, and you shoot the bodyguard before the diffuser. You thought you had the time, the internal clock perfectly, but it might just need some fine tuning ever so slightly out of sync. And Maryville, again, have just had such a strong B retake mentality here. And I mean, Winthrop consistently going there is not what you expect out of this team. They did struggle on the attack, I would say, up against this team in recency. I think most notably it was, okay, they weren't fighting, confidently enough over towards C. They were losing the A fight engagements. And it feels like even when they invest, like, the Armageddon, right, over towards A, there's never a team to fight forward. Maryville is never fighting A anymore. Do you realize this, right? Like, they really don't. It's so different from how Lotus is typically played because they're so C-focused, C-centric. And this maybe feels like an anti-strat to Winthrop in partiality, but just, it's working.
And the capabilities of the squad to be able to play off on the fly. Yeah, oh, wait a minute. Wildfire. They're just dodging it enough. Good bait of the Hunter's Fury.
A good bait there.
Man, and Giza was even able to beat Infiltrator, who had gone so far. And that Neural Theft, seeing everything yet again, may have been able to get a little bit ahead of the curve, and they absolutely are. Giza is back alive. Giza, the Demon Sentinel, is here to take names, take numbers, and give Maryville University that extra round.
And I don't know what it is about Lotus, right? It's the best map for Winthrop. They are usually dominant, like, even against previous champion teams. And then it just feels like when you actually get into, like, looking at the map, it feels like they rinse and repeat things. They have gone B time and time again and have yet to find a fix to that post plant. I think that round it's because they realized, wait, Infiltrator's gotten all the way through top site. But then again, it doesn't feel like there's a plan to follow it up versus Giza. Friends, they always have a plan to kind of crunch, to retake, to flood back in, and never give that space or respect to Winthrop. So again, maybe just go for a default. Look at the big picture control before, looking at the micro fight plant and see what happens. Oh, this is what's going to happen.
This C-stack. Oh my god.
Oh, this is not what I wanted to see what happened.
Yeah, up goes the one way. Winthrop may even just be thinking, right, okay, a couple players here, maybe something at Mound. Nasi's going to commit the drone. Yeah, you've seen Rins. You always know that there's at least Ange there to support them and to keep them safe. This one way is doing miracles at holding Winthrop University off and is doing just enough to scare them back and corral them to where Maryville wants them to be, where Wildfire and Giza has this double tripwire set up on B. They're tired of Winthrop ending on B.
And he's the one that's been, like, mentioned, demon lurking. And,
no way.
You got some support, you got some friends. That's what I thought was going to happen when the trip was destroyed on B, when I thought there was contact being made. They would immediately fight it head on and win. And it seems like that was an idea in previous rounds, and that's the execution that we were waiting for. So,
and on the high ground.
Yeah, they're left to clean up the pieces, but when there's a high-low like that, Ange feeling himself this map, 8-2 on attack side of Lotus, Sam?
On attack side of Lotus. I'm so glad you brought that up, right? Because that's exactly what I was thinking of. Winthrop University, they have this composition set around Infiltrator, this Neon who is just not able to run on the site, not able to do anything that a Neon is supposed to be able to do. And I think it's this adaptation of Rins being on this Yoru, not adaptation, but something that they have been playing so many times, that Infiltrator is just really hard to play against. You have so much control of the map, but then when you are able to pull back, the retake from Maryville is just next level.
Yeah, it feels like when Maryville's being a lot more cautious, they're not giving those fights to Infiltrator like they were over on Icebox, unless they're prepared to take them with utility, with numbers. And even then, Giza's doing a great job cutting off these lurk players, right? They got the player over towards A. They looked like they were poised to get the fight onto Ali, but even then, it's immediate rotations, immediate cleanup, and Maryville stay ahead, even now, right? It's still a 2v1, and Clark tucks away, waiting for Rens to join him.
Yeah, you're just going to break the door here. Flare has so many options of where they're going to go but they need to also be judicious about clearing every single corner. They have a minute left, but it also gives Maryville the chance to speed up and get close to them. Look at this, they're already one at Mount. Both of them are going to be playing here together, right? That teamwork that was falling apart is now back together. Yeah, and like you said, there's a drone fake. There's going to be, oh, the blind was perfect. Flare has no HP. Chloric, you went up against the mirror matchup. Had that failed, Rins was going to be able to pick it up, but it's Maryville University. It's a 9-2 half so far with one more round left to go.
This is where Winthrop, I know you don't take timeouts, but
maybe
could be a time to chat, just for confidence too, because this is, you know, your best map. Again, it feels like Icebox is a good map for snowball-esque kind of prowess and a best of 5, but again, it's a best of 5 like we just said. Marathon, not a sprint maybe, saving it for those late rounds, late maps. My only concern is, we said it, if it goes to a map 5, split is not a pretty map for Winthrop. But Ali did say at breakfast they are prepared for it. While Move said, I don't know what's happening. So it's a questionable for us just as much as it did for you guys. But we have to get there first. I mean, Maryville making it look easy right now on the precipice of double digits. But this rifle round is make or break for Winthrop.
Wow, and the rare instance that we have this A-site, like A-main contest, no one is there. It's all on B. It's where they want to end. It's where they want to take the fight on this final round. But we know they're kind of corralled in here. And you got to think about all of the ultimates too. Chloric has an Armageddon. You either have to take your fight inside of here, or you have to just push in and hope for the best. It's back and forth though. But it all is Maryville University. This squad is firing on all cylinders. Flair going to be the one to try and break their back. But Chloric says no. Maryville University in a dominant first half. It is 10-2.
Wow. Even when it feels like Winthrop is at their A game, they have a constructed post plan. Just, you know, slide to the left, slide to the right. The chaos of the Armageddon disrupts everything. And Chloric is able to find those opportunities, make them, actually. There's that saying, you know, luck befalls those who make the opportunities and seize them. And I mean, that's what Maryville, I think, is able to do this half perfectly, summed up to a T. Doesn't help that they're getting so many reps on B retakes because Winthrop is drawn there every single time. But you mentioned it, they even innovated. They finally fought over towards A, and they still had a way to, you know, flip that into every, like, possible outcome.
It's the comparison between Icebox and Lotus between Maryville, where Icebox felt like this team was so out of sync, uncoordinated, they didn't know what they want to do. Lotus is a completely different Maryville squad who are able to land those shots. We talked a lot about the micro, we talked a lot about the gunplay that Maryville University was just kind of missing out on, but not here on Lotus, not at all. And so now Maryville is on the attack with a 10-2 half in their pocket. So many ways to go about doing this, and we're talking about the momentum from Lotus. That's now in Maryville's favor as well. So much, especially if they can win. They cannot let Ali get away with that, and they don't. And strikes back. Look over in this corner, hit the paranoia. Flair gets out just in the nick of time, but you're not gonna get any further than that. Infiltrator, Flair and moves, occupying the kill leaderboard. And Maryville University falls to Winthrop in the second pistol round.
Yeah, it may have been a 10-2 half, but it is not going to be the fast track to expulsion on their playground. I mean, now 1-for-1 for pistols on this map. They really get a second lease on life here, but then the difficulty becomes you need to extend that. You need to prolong it. You need to make a deal with the Grim Reaper, and that's where, you know, selling your soul to better weapons come in. The Vandal, the Guardian, the Bulldogs, but it has to be near perfection, because if it is not, you're not going to have a third round bonus. You're not going to have that continuance, because again, you are down to your last life, last leg. You have no chances left when there's already double digits for Maryville on the board.
I like this though, right? They just let Rins have the spike, get in onto site, get past the tripwire and try to plant it. But that guided salvo, right? This return of pre-nerf Teho is just a thorn in the side. Flair proving to be more than a thorn. Giza, some tricky hops are gonna bring them down to 1 HP, but at least it gives them something. And the fight back from Maryville University is intense, but it all ends in the same way for Winthrop University.
And I mean, how wanted they get their 4th round, right? But what did I say? Had to be clean.
Had to be clean.
And you have a Vandal and the Bulldog recovered. You lost everything else. And again, it came out of, like you mentioned, that fast-footed nature. You know, get the spike plant down. We have a hefty lead. We just need some extra funds flowing. And I do think Flair really gave them that kind of credit. I think Flair's best gun is the Bulldog to me, hands down. We saw it hold its own over on Icebox, and it does it here again in a blue room. But again, now it feels like they're scraping the bottom of the barrel just because they need those extra power weapons. They need that Guardian, they need Vandal, they need this third round conversion. And I mean, I think we've seen them use these weapons to do it before, right? They did it on Icebox. So I wouldn't put it past them, but it definitely means it's an uphill battle, especially when you're leaving Moobs solo on C. The entire team seems to be pulling up.
Okay. We know Moves is capable of great things. Infiltrator's even just going to step inside of the guided salvo from Flare. It doesn't really matter to them. They can take some of that teammate chip damage. Maryville University, it's a slow scale up on C before the execution begins. Right, we have the double cage one way and a trip that's going to be taken care of along with it. A lot of commitment of utility, and that was on the high ground. When we're talking about these power weapons, Maryville University needs to fight back here. They cannot let them get away with anything else. Rins may still be alive, but it's at death's door, 13 HP, and they still need to get the spike planted. Back over on the other side, Giza is just going to run and gun them down with that Phantom. A 3K for the Cypher Extraordinaire. And Maryville University looking strong.
On that track, towards closing out this map again. Haven't played a best of 5 since the beginning of the season. If you're Maryville. So again, just trying to get back to racking up their maps. And all in all, said that felt like a must-win for Winthrop, but they did buy just enough to get rifles out here again. But again, it's that situation like we had over on Icebox. You lose this round and you're basically gifting the last map, or the last round I should say, to Maryville, right? 12, you'll have no weapons. So coming in, you never lose steam. You never lose kind of confidence if you Winthrop. You take every fight like it's your last, and you hope.
Wow, Giza! In what world are they getting away with that? I can't believe they even get the neural theft off. That is a perfect stun onto Flare. They can't get away. There's nothing fancy that's going to be happening here. Maryville University is going to get the spike planted, and Moves has to win the 1v3 to stop match point.
Stop match point, stop the inevitable 12th closeout on our Nico. I mean, there's a player you want to credit it to. It is Moves with no utility. It has to be done the old-fashioned way. And I mean, just the fear, right, of an offside caloric that's clearly warranted was enough to draw their attention and draw the round to a close.
Match point.
This is going to be tough tides for Winthrop University. We're talking about how hard it was going to be on Icebox for Maryville to make their comeback. This is just as devastating for Winthrop. Maryville University turning the tables on the map choice. Both of these teams turning the tables on each of the independent map choices of each of these players. And to really just hammer that home, right? Maryville University is winning out on a map that for Winthrop is just so perfect for them. And Rins,
you just lost that fight. Why are you running it back again? Again, on the attack, on the defense, it feels like they aren't innovating. And that's sometimes where you need that coach, you need that external voice just to come in, take a timeout, be like, hey guys, you're doing the same thing. Change it up. Because if you get into this kind of rinse and repeat mentality because you play this game so much, it becomes difficult. And you're expecting, you know, the same thing, which is why Maryville is just playing very receptive, just waiting for that aggression to flush out, waiting to piece off these external players. And then they're going to go for the execute. I do like the information robbing Winthrop's doing. They fell off. They didn't fully commit, which is nice. I mean, you lost your first player. You lost your smokes. You lost Ali, but...
And Infiltrator's not looking good either. Yeah. Right, this is... that for your star player, for your fragging duelist, it's just not how you want that to go. Yeah, like you said, Atejo faking things out here. They're going to flush them out. I think what they got, no, they're still going to let that corner be held by Infiltrator. Nasi's going to throw in the bolt as well along with it. And here it is. Just go ahead, use the dimensional drift, figure out where everybody is on C. Moves still playing inside of the cage, but it doesn't matter. It does not matter. Giza, the intuition, next level. Hunter's Fury, but it's still 3 players left alive. You have to look to that high ground. You have to know that they're hiding out up here. The Armageddon is going to push them into your waiting arms. Flare is not going to go down without a fight, but it does not matter. Maryville University striking back on Lotus, 13-4.
Wow, the 10-2 to the 13-4 closeout. You know, only pistol and follow-up is all you get if you're Winthrop. A brief breath of fresh air. And, I mean, what a turnaround. I mean, you know, Moves and friends, they're all so confident in their Lotus, and for good reason. They have the history to back it up, but something about Maryville, even when they completely change up the look of how they play that map, it's astounding.
It's just it cannot be understated how strong both of these teams are coming into today. And we had that question mark at the beginning of Lotus. Can Maryville do this? Is that first map of Icebox going to be to their detriment? Thankfully, though, it came back roaring with a vengeance.
And that's what's scary to me. We've seen that snowball. We've seen what happens when Winthrop's confidence gets broken down a little bit, right? And when you lose your confident map like that, you start to question other things. And now you're heading into a map like Fracture as well, that you haven't played. It's going to be a full show.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy, but it is nice to see the return of Fracture, even if it is just for a little bit, even if it is just going to be for this series, but it's going to be that Taeho, that really is going to shake things up on Fracture. If we thought Taeho was a menace on Lotus, just you wait for Fracture. But we are going to send things over to the desk for them to go ahead and dissect this crazy map of Lotus.
Thank you so much, Sam and Zobi, for taking us through that second map. Now we get a chance to walk back a little bit, kind of go over what we saw, and we got a chance to see Maryville take their first map of this series.
Yeah, opposition's map pick as well, right? So that's like that value as a mental game for you to say confidently we kind of dropped the ball a little bit on map 1 if you're Maryville. Icebox didn't go as anticipated, but you can close it back on Lotus, which I said before, I feel like is arguably Winthrop's better map, I feel like, in their repertoire. That just got shut down. There really was not much participation from them, and even their attempts to try to recover fell through.
Yeah, I think that breach pick really made a big difference because that also stops Infiltrator in their tracks anytime they're trying to come in. He still ended up going positive, right? So that's a bright sign. But it really also, if it didn't stop the Neon from coming in, it splits the rest of the offense from going into support. And we saw, Winthrop very, very good in assists when it comes to helping out Infiltrator, but it just weren't able to get that. Moves wasn't able to find the timings that they need. So many rounds, they predicted Moves being the lurk and would actually anchor 3 on the site that they expected them to be lurking. And so that really turned the tide for Maryville there.
But I think that was something that both of you had identified as a big win condition for Maryville. Make sure that Moops cannot get the flank on you, can't get the jump, and really can't make this such a lopsided equation. And I think Maryville being able to figure that out, that's why we saw such map dominance.
I mean, compare the difference in style, right, between having Giza and Moobs and their play and positioning. I said Giza's going to sit in towards attacker spawn. He's going to play your trap wires and just kind of play the long con. We saw Moobs trying to do that and was a lot less comfortable, it feels like, over on that Cypher to be able to participate in the same level that they usually do when they're on Vice. So I feel like maybe they tried to innovate, and it's maybe a little bit too late for that one. And Maryville is a team that has always thrived against lurking teams. They've always felt like the best team to counter that. They didn't have to worry about it at all, which means they're less stressed to worry about it, and it kind of turns into this rattle effect of death throes of trying to recover, and I just didn't see it really potentially, especially when defensively Ayoru was such a powerhouse, being able to quickly pivot between all sites and with no Viper to cut off all the other rotates available for your defending team. It was pretty easy for Maryville to just thrive through the first half.
Where would you have slotted the Viper? Because I think that was something that we were looking at kind of as this game played out, especially after we got to the end of that first side, where, where was Nasi? Where was the impact of that particular agent?
Yeah, that was the big win condition, was to make sure that Nasi could participate on offense. And in comparison, where you're typically used to seeing like the Taeho be super valuable, right, and not really relying on them to get kills, it was total opposite. Flare got a ton of frags, but we didn't see that from Nasi. In fact, that's not really Nasi's role, but even when they're trying to use utility, it didn't really feel like it was working in tandem or really meshing well with the rest of the team, and they're the exact same way we expected to kind of see it. It just didn't go as spectacularly as it should have. Maybe would have been better had the breach. Maybe you see that transfer over to a Viper. Just something to try to give yourself a little bit of an extra edge, but Nasi just did not look in their element for the map.
And I think like recon darts, Aldrons, these are really strong when you are able to slice up the map with the Viper.
Slicing.
But when it's just a dark cloud, anyone can hide from that dart, right? And you no longer get those blind fires that you would normally get. So I think it was more of a composition thing and not really just on the Sova itself. I do believe that the breach works better with the Omen and even the Neon, as we saw from the side of Maryville. Like that combination just worked. It forced Flare to have to play a lot more aggressive.
Yeah.
And then we highlighted how important it was for Flare to stay alive during those post-plan situations, but they almost were never around. We see clutches have to come out from other players on the side of Winthrop and not just, tap the iPad, fire missiles. it made things a lot more difficult for Winthrop that time around.
Yeah, I think we saw a lot of value from Infiltrator, but maybe not enough. The closing the gap, the fast lane didn't really do much pivoting. So good plays from Infiltrator individually, but I don't think the Neon did enough on offense for them.
Well, let's go ahead and look at some of these replays from the second map, because I think that's where you really get a chance to visualize what we're talking about here in terms of the individual impact of these players, but also how Maryville just really stepped up to the plate in terms of just having that team-focused impact as well, being able to shut down moves.
Yeah, so early on in the first half, it was really just the final 5 rounds. Felt like there were some big key moments, about 3 in the final 5 rounds to kind of solidify the Maryville dominance that was going forward. And some big misplays individually as well from like Ali trying to shrouded step from B-Link. And I'm sure that'll be shown. And getting cut off from Rins from the B-Link switch door, where you're having so much like emphasis and attempt from the side of Maryville, from the side of Winthrop to try to take and prowl into the B site using Infiltrator, the Jet, the Neon to get into there fast and get away from a lot of utility like the Teo Salvos for countering. It's not seeing that work efficiently and essentially having the same problem that a Vice creates where you have the wall that comes up and closes off your front line from your back line. They're doing that with Salvos, which I think fills that niche that Maryville are used to having being filled, and something that I don't think was ready in the back pocket for Winthrop.
Yeah, and I think the aggression coming out from the side of Maryville really put I guess a damper on the plans of Winthrop. They weren't really able to find the timings that they really needed. Weren't able to slice up the map. Didn't really feel like they had enough like crowd control utility to sort of take the spaces that they need. They kind of just let Ange teleport wherever the heck they wanted to and find those off angles.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and see the replays because I think we really can see that.
I think the big one to take a look at was obviously coming first into round 8. Now, we'll get the whole round for this, which is, again, a fairly standard default coming out from Winthrop. They're already behind. They're trying to make sure that they can get into site fairly safely, and they're coming off of a somewhat disjointed buy overall. Huge frag from Infiltrator, taking that link side, the Armageddon to cut off the back line, forcing the rest of the team now for Winthrop to have to make a decision in the moment to take the rotate. But then you have a beautiful cut for the rest of the team and the approach all the way back in the TP viability to keep them honest when it comes down towards Mound. And Jackson, the big thing we highlighted was how long a lot of the rounds for Lotus can feel like, and this was a really long one, seeing both Armageddons come out, forcing players to fight on their terms, and even then still failing to get the C-site like you wanted to have it go elsewhere.
Yeah, because again, there wasn't enough lurking that was effective coming out from the side of Winthrop. It really allowed Maryville to just take full control of all of the rotations. Like, yes, you get the plant down onto B, but it's already too late. You've lost so many team members on the side of Winthrop that you don't have the ability to play that post plant. You see Flair being caught in such a dangerous position, unable to really use those salvos. Now it leaves the pressure all onto Ali here as they try to do this 2v2. You see moves now. Oh, sorry, this is moves actually on this 2v2. They get taken out, but now Ali has to find themselves in a precarious situation as they try to swing out. They'll see the bodyguard first and unable to get an angle on the diffuser, and even though they clutch out the 1v2, they aren't able to win out that round.
Yeah, and you have the final moments of this round here as well, the speed and the attempt to escape away from the Armageddon. A lot of the players actually as well were re-stepping into the Armageddon before it actually goes. There's Nasi playing directly into it, trying to get an early fight. Huge clutch round from Flair, and this is one of the moments where we saw them kind of get a couple big frags. And those Teos in the last few moments, you know, being a part of those last 2 remaining for your roster, coming up clutch. And Cloric was maybe a little bit slow in terms of comparison for Flair, but was still able to come out with a pretty confident overall showing from them. And Maryville, when they already got a big stroke of love getting that defuse in that round, or 2 rounds prior, technically, from that moment, it just continued to be an even further point. And yes, there was a really big moment here for Maryville to cement themselves at match point for this second map, and it was off of insane push from Giza, knowing that they needed to close the gap that Renz was incapable of doing so, and shutting down 3 to open things up.
And even in the clip previous to this, when they utilize the Armageddon, they're comboing it with the breach fault line. That ability just covers so much of the map when you compare it to something like a Neon Stun, that you are really just funneling the enemy into the angles that you're already holding. You no longer have to worry about checking any off angles here, as we see even in this 15th or 16th round. And when they utilized the swing for Giza, he didn't have to clear any of the off angles. It was already set for him.
Yeah, a spectacular map overall, and there's a lot of small moments that really felt like push Maryville to that edge, but it's just that uncomfortable, kind of the niche that Winthrop were really good at with this previously that was just totally absent.
Yeah, I think this makes me excited after seeing what played out on the second map to see what's going to come for the rest of the series, because 3-1, you know, 3-2. Maybe that really is on the cards here for a very close finals here for the Grand Championships. But I feel like there was one player that had a lot of individual impact that I'd love to be able to get a chance to see the interview for, and that was Ange. So let's see what he had to say ahead of the Grand Finals for today.
I'm Adam Milian, also known as Ange, and I play smokes for Maryville University. We've been struggling a little bit to make it to Tier 2. We've been trying for almost a year now. We're always getting right to that last match or just close enough in Premier, but we're always, falling a little bit short. So we're just really making sure to work on our fundamentals and the basics and just our overall teamwork just to get the basics down so we can push forward through that kind of barrier that we've been hitting. We just recently came back from DreamHack Dallas. Our performance was definitely not up to our standards versus Envy, but it was a good experience to kind of play. I feel like that's like the biggest stage we've played on thus far, but we have won 2 of the lands before we played at. It was just one bad game from us, so we're not going to think too hard on it. We're just going to keep moving forward, looking for this, or getting ready for the CVL match. Towards like the end of last year with Dobros, we got relegated, and I was in a spot where I wanted to keep playing Valorant, but the professional salaries weren't there. So I wasn't able to sustain myself just being a free agent for another year. So it was really just quit, or I had a great opportunity to come and continue my education while playing with Maryville. And I think it's kind of like one of the greatest things that happened to me in the past couple of years, because I got to work on myself while being able to keep playing Valorant at the same time. And I just think it's pretty cool.
I think we got some really great insight there from Ange on how Maryville has really helped to shape him into a better player, but also kind of what that can feel like being on the brink of defeat after that LAN at DreamHack and then coming back and having that power and that fire to improve.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about how the mental is kind of important, and Winthrop, they feel confident about everything, and now the question's going to be Maryville. They obviously didn't like the result of map 1, and it felt like they came in with new fires. Like, this is probably how we played pretty similarly at DreamHack. We did not like the result there. Let's close things out. And I think that break between map 1 and 2 was just so big for their overall morale.
And I think we mentioned both teams winning the opponent's map picks.
Yep, collegiate special.
That's got to be something that might be weighing on Winthrop right now. Just, you were so confident coming into this, especially after game 1. Now you give up arguably one of your biggest and best maps, playing your best style. Leading now into Fracture, it might change things up a little bit. And this is a map that neither of these teams have played in quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, it's been a little iffy for them, but I think Fracture is a plenty good map for both sides, and the confidence should be there. It's just going to come down to that agent select. Will be pretty important for, more specifically, Ollie, I feel like, to kind of change up what they're playing.
And as you can see on the graphic on your screen, this is where we're going to go for the rest of the series and also which team picked which map. And so this one is going to be Maryville's pick in terms of Fracture. Why do you feel like they might have wanted to go to this map in particular? For
Winthrop, a lot of this, like I just mentioned, Ali, they've played both the Brim and the Clove. I just don't think Clove is sustainable for this map, their composition and their style of play. The Brim is too valuable. The Stim is good, but the Sky Smokes and everything else between the Barrage to their Orbital Strike completely lock out of sight for a post play and just kind of keep them flushed off on defense. It's too valuable, and that was kind of the big thing. It's one of my win conditions for them actually on this map. If they try to play that Clove, I don't think they can sustain themselves, which was already a problem we proved last map. But for Maryville, I think they read into that, and they said they're going to want to try to float around to see how Ollie is feeling after map 1 and 2. And map 1 was fine for them, but map 2, a couple big mistakes: the failed TP and B link, the failed push, and then Ange completely outperforming them, nearly double the stats. I think this is just something to look at and say, okay, we still feel confident. This should be still a very solid third map for us.
And I think a bright spot that you can say for Winthrop coming into this map pick is that Fracture is kind of a high-paced, early, aggressive kind of map, especially when you're fighting for A main and getting the pinch from B. It kind of plays into the strengths of Infiltrator today, where he doesn't have to worry about different angles. He doesn't have to worry about lurks. He just needs to worry about clicking heads, right? And this will be very useful for them to come into this, especially how they performed on Icebox. If he's able to, and I don't think he was playing cold on Lotus. He was hitting his shots, but albeit a very difficult situation, not having that setup. But if he can carry that over into this third map, they do have a chance to kind of sneak one away from Maryville.
It is on Raze, though. It is on Raze.
That is true.
That is the problem. So if we do see, as expected, the Raze to follow through for this map, It'll be for both sides, Rins and Infiltrator. This is not an agent that Infiltrator typically plays very often. In fact, when it comes down towards Split, which is our map 5, obviously, they're going to split that role and responsibility, right? They want to try to have 2 players to work with it, and that's what we see as well for Maryville. So they actually have Chloric play over to the Rays instead of Rins. So both sides, not always the best agent for it, so it kind of comes down to comfortability, but Fracture is just a difficult map in the first place, and Noxie's a little bit slow sometimes to rotate in off post plants. You need to get Rins to find first frags and haul off towards B site. And if you can't get these like initial things out of the way and just kind of check them off your checkbox list, it's going to make the final 30 to 40 seconds that much more difficult, especially if your duelist isn't able to close the gap as effectively as, they say, Infiltrator is with that Jet with the Tailwind Cloudburst combo, or even for the opposing side with for Rins and saying, okay, we know Rins likes to play the Jet, we know like to play a couple other agents. You know, the closing gap potential needs to be, you know, snuffed in quickly. And I think Rins is the eye in my eyes, where they obviously get outperformed by Infiltrator consistently, but their job is the most important right off the rip from them. Get that frag down and haul, and then solidify that position for the team.
I mean, we have seen instances where Winthrop does run the Jets, but more so often it is the Raze and Breach combo that's so strong on Fracture. It will be interesting to see whether or not they're able to stop someone like Ali being that secondary lurker from getting onto site. I think the way that we look like Clark has gotten a really good read on how Winthrop likes to play throughout the first 2 maps, right? Even though it's been kind of one-sided either way, they're consistently the last alive. They're consistently the one that cuts, rotates, and they're consistently the one that catches the lurks. So it's going to be very important, especially on a huge map like Fracture. It's huge, but not so much for the defense. It's very easy to rotate.
Oh, it's so easy to move around. You have a rope that takes you to either side, right, north and south. I mean, there's so much viability for mobility. And that also makes it much more difficult to not succumb to the agent that is Teo, which, as the casters kind of alluded to before they handed it off, Teo will rear his beautiful face here once again pre-patch and post-nerf, or pre-nerf, I should say. And that's going to be exceptionally powerful because you put Chloric over on that role, you put Flare over on that role, and these are 2 players that Flare goes crazy in the kill department for that last map. Have a little bit slow overall for Chloric, but Chloric was doing a good job at being one of the final 2 standing and being a consistent factor and making sure that if they die, they're traded. But you don't want the trade here for this map. You want to be that first person, that last person still alive, to make sure that their salvos can just rain down terror on these post-plant objectives, because Brim can also do the same thing. You have a Molly, you have a stim to get your team to rush out for post-plants. You also have the orbital strike. So many of these small little things that add up. It's going to put more, you know, weight on the shoulders here for Chloric, who's already used to it being an IGN, but at the same time, it will start to get a little bit tough if they succumb to the same problems they had on map 2.
There's still that pressure that can mount in those types of situations, and especially when you're so even, you kind of want to try to just get the edge in the series and actually have a comfortable lead, especially heading into Haven and Split at the end of the series. I feel like Fracture is definitely one of those maps where I'm glad you brought up the fact that, you know, we're kind of in the previous patch, Tejo is still obviously very viable. We've got Fracture in. How much do you feel like this is kind of a place where either team can get the edge, you know? Where can you, how have scrims been going, you know, that kind of thing?
Well, I think the scariest part is that this map isn't even in the new pool, right? So Sunset stepped in and Fracture gets knocked out. So it was the big question prior that, you know, Zobi and Sam were kind of bringing up. We had discussions with, like, do you think, you know, their VCL team out of Winthrop, do you think they're going to continue to use the new strategies they brought up, or is Teo that broken that they're going to continue to use Teo strats? I think we've proven that they're going to continue to use their Teo strats, but at the end of the day, Fracture is a map that they probably haven't had as much work on in the last month since that patch, which I think was like 15, 16 days ago. And they've been playing a lot of games. We talked about 351 rounds, right, for the side of Winthrop, but they've also been playing VCL rounds in between, Premier games, everything. So I think that they may be a little out of practice, and this may be a map that they needed to kind of hyperfixate on and focus on. And Maryville hasn't been playing as many games, so there's much less you know, cluttered knowledge in between of Valorant, so they're probably a little bit more refreshed for it.
And I think this all boils down, once again, to the point that we made earlier. The Tejo matchup. One Tejo gets more kills, but the other one stays alive longer, and ultimately that's what makes the difference, because the broken part of Tejo is just the fact that you get 3 sets of missiles throughout each round. You get so much crowd control, you get to stop a push, and you get to get a free post-plant play for free. So if you're not utilizing those 3 missiles per round, you're almost kind of not even using Tejo to its full potential, and that's kind of what we saw. Yes, Flare fragging out, but you cannot lose him in the mid-rounds. You got to keep him alive.
The Teo's good, but you also have the Brim, which is another point that I was making for Maryville as a win condition. Elevate the priority for Brim to be one of your final players in that post plant, because I feel like when the ultimate's there, they prioritize it. But that's not just the win condition for it, right? It's also valuable for the Molly, also valuable to have those smokes. It feels like they didn't really key into that in their prior games, in their prior series, and I'm hoping that that's something they looked at, because I obviously saw them make up for it on Lotus. The big things that we were worried about, they completely shut those down. I'm hoping that the knowledge has been ingrained or ingratiated for them for this next map.
Well, we are still waiting on our teams to select the agents that they want to play on Fracture, so hopefully they are taking all of this into account as well in terms of how to make sure they can shore up some of the weaknesses that we've already seen from both teams looking at the 2 previous maps in our series. And I feel like we've gotten to a point where we've kind of identified like the big bullet points. Let's go ahead and summarize those really quickly. What are the bullet points, big bullet points for Winthrop here in order to get the win on this series?
Ollie do not play Clove, and that's at least in my mind. Super solid to have kind of as a pseudo-duelist, because they can overheal themselves and come back with the Resurrection. But the smokes aren't nearly as good. The Brim brings too much to the table. Get them into the Brim. Turn it around for Nasi. Faster on their rotates. I don't feel like they're able to transition with the team correctly, and we obviously saw them struggling on map 2, so they have to start to get that ball rolling a little bit quicker for them. And then Moobs needs to be a little bit faster on their utility use for the map. They're always in the right spot, and that's something that Moobs is always good about, being correctly positioned. But I feel like the utility has been a little bit lackluster for them in terms of time. We do see our agent select, and Jackson, I'm not seeing anything that is too surprising for it in the big one. We do, in fact, have Brim for Ange.
Definitely the mirror composition that we were expecting to see. Because of this, I think Maryville are going to have the edge up. Renz does feel a little more comfortable on that raise than Infiltrator does. And again, boils down to who can stay alive longer as the tail. Chloric, again, we highlighted in the pre-show that they have the highest KAST stat in all of CVAL, so that's going to be a player to keep an eye on for sure.
I think the bigger factor will also be that Renz has great stats overall with playing Raze, but Infiltrator doesn't play Raze as often. But their stats for Raze individually and Agent are still pretty spectacular. They play it much less often, so there's much less rounds. But Maryville as a whole have a lot less rounds, right? Nearly half of what we saw coming out from Winthrop. So a lot of stats can be a little bloated. And Infiltrators are. You got those 350 plus, and all your stats, your average KD, your average for everything, is still just outlandish for what that is. And the Raze is a great way to try to facilitate that style of offense, and then the greediness that's in there, but it's a much less prevalent case, it feels like, than, say, the Jet, who at least has a Cloudburst to updraft and hide away, which is something we did see Infiltrator do on Fracture quite a bit. But I like the Raze choice just a little bit more in terms of consistency for them.
Well, thank you so much, Jackson, 5K, and Infernosis for sharing your thoughts ahead of this third map. We're going to go ahead and toss things over to our casters, Sam Talks and Zobi, to get their thoughts on how they feel about this agent selection as well as we go into Fracture.
Right between both of these teams, and Fracture is blowing our minds a little bit here, because it's not the Maryville side that's a little crazy, it's the Winthrop side that we're like, wait, what's going on here?
Yeah, we already knew that Winthrop was going to have this kind of identity crisis with, okay, we got rid of all of our Tejo compositions with the map pool change, with the Tejo nerfs. You know, Ollie swapped to kind of a secondary duelist so that Flare could come onto the smokes. And now it's almost like, why did they switch the Tejo onto Ali and the smokes on to Flare? And I'm wondering if that maybe was out of some of the kind of difficulties they had over on Lotus, because it feels like a very last minute change. And also, like the desk mentioned, you know, raised for Infiltrator when they were playing the Neon, I think the last time, or more recently they played on Fracture. It's definitely, I think, a statement again that they're trying to go back to, again, like they mentioned, mirror compositions you know how to play by standard, that you're playing in your ranked games. Because they do think that they aren't as prepped for a map like this. They haven't played it. It's not in the pool. They don't care, frankly, about this map. And I think they just want to do the safe bout. To mark this on their tally, because again, they still want to end this in 4, not 5 maps.
Yeah, exactly. And especially when you look over at the looming horizon that could be that split map. If
you don't want map 5.
Yeah, you do not want to get to that map 5 if you're Winthrop. So you want to end things here on Fracture. You want to end things on Haven. You do not want to go any further than that. But yeah, taking that step back, looking at that agent composition, and you think of what happened on Lotus. I mean, Flare was struggling, I think would be fair to say, on the Tejo during that map. They weren't quite having that same impact that we were seeing on the other side for Maryville, that Chloric was giving us time and time again. And I think that, yeah, that maybe this change, you know, get things back into the groove for them. And Brimstone is kind of that sort of decent agent where if you're not feeling comfortable, it's really not overly complicated to be able to get value out of him.
And that's my difficulty. We've talked about, Winthrop a lot on this map because it feels like they're the ones that are kind of under the pressure because Split's map 5, because they are kind of waiting now, in a pool they haven't played in a while, versus it feels like all of those roles are so well fitted to the side of Maryville as we get to jump into the action, right? And this was picked as well by Maryville as that map number 3 too. So they wanted to play this before Split. They wanted to play this before Haven. And I think that shows the preparation that they have coming in this map. But it feels so storied for Winthrop as well because they got back into challengers with this map up against Shopfort Belgium. I casted that at the beginning of this season, Sam. So they've got to have a trick up their sleeve. They have to remember how important this map is and let that muscle memory come back because it is map 3 of CVAL Best of 5 Grand Finals. Let's get things started at NC State, Sam.
Maryville University on the attack, but yeah, they're just kind of chilling in spawn right now. They're waiting to see the Winthrop utility dump and how it's going to be played, but they're waiting for the contact, right? They're waiting for any signs of life coming through either of these directions. And you see it, Nasi set up with a fault line. We got smokes here, and of course the guided salvos waiting to go. It's all just about the move that Maryville wants to make, but they're just stacked here. But you're leaving Ali over on the other, or rather Ali, Cork on the other end to try and take their fights, and they even do some chip damage onto Flare.
Yeah, this is not the typical Fracture that we're seeing, and again, it's been out of the pool for a hot minute, so that might be why, but I also do like Maryville waiting, right? You expect Winthrop to come in hot. You expect them to go for that kind of, you always clear out one side of the map, you then rotate and retake the other, because that is how this map is played, but they didn't invest any utility. It's more of a trap setup as soon as contact's made, where Nazi is at the crux of it, and Nazi, again, off-roll. Sova, more prevalent. The Breach, still strong, and we're going to hopefully see all that utility line on time.
Yeah, just going to come out. What happened? They're not hitting the shots, though. Infiltrator thought that they had it, but it wasn't in time. Then Wildfire makes their swing. Nazi's gone, and everything is falling apart for Winthrop University on this map of Fracture. The only one left alive is Moobs, and Wildfire, they don't even care. They're going to stick that spike because they know Cloric has their back.
And I mean, I'm not going to discredit Moves. It's so hard playing Sentinel Simulator every single time. Like, we need the desk to count how many times Moves has been in a 1vx clutch situation as the last standing because it has been absurd. But it does feel like Giza is going to be only heightened on a map like this. This is very like your solo is on their own as a Sentinel on the opposite side of the map, but has to find that presence. And that was perfectly coupled with, the rest of the team, the stack diffusing the entire trap that Winthrop has set up over towards A main. So a great slow methodical start, very uncharacteristic of Fracture, but it was also a pistol round. So better weapons in hand. I think they're just going to go for a, good old B dive. And we'll see what Moves with a singular spy cam and some Bream offsite support is able to do.
Yeah, look at this. Utility set up in the perfect ways. Fault line there to stall out any player who's close. And that's what Rins is doing right now, right? They're scouting this position out to see where these players are. And the second anything happens, the Flare's being very patient with the smoke going down until they get the idea of the timing when they want to use it. Done perfectly, set up perfectly. And that one smoke is going to push Maryville out through tunnel to go over on the other side, where Giza has been pushing up towards arcade. So it's going to be a rejoining of the squad to push in through that arcade. And Moves has already been seen, right? They're going to be pushed out by the aftershock, and my lord, Wildfire, devastating on that Vandal.
Yeah, good transfer, and since you're low HP, hand it off to the higher HP player, hand it off to the full shield. It's over on Giza's side, so they can go about their business. They can go terraform the land. Speaking of terraforming, Nazi introducing an unexpected element there. Does take down one, so you're not going to have as much utility, not going to have that post-plant prowess, but again, they're piecing apart, identifying where these players are, and they're careful. They're not giving them dry fights, they're flushing them out with utility every step of the way and keeping things clean, keeping weapons in their hands.
I mean, you're going through this round with 2 Vandals and a Bulldog. Cloric could pick up any of the weapons that were left behind. Yeah, look at that. I mean, this is going to be a devastating bonus round for Maryville. Your entire squad is packing that firepower, and Winthrop's going to have to try and deny that with whatever they have.
Yeah, I mean, again, it feels like Maryville is just leveling up with each passing map, getting cleaner and cleaner, more in sync, more focused. And you mentioned how cohesive that execution utility was on the B side just from the main side. And you can see it already set up here with the Molly, the Tejo, fake out over towards B. This is a full util dump B side for an exit, and then you're going to go A. The drone fake, the Molly lineup fake, you're hoping that that's enough to flush out these players over towards A. But Infiltrator, Ali holding their own here. Maybe able to peek off the solo Brimstone if these players coming out of Dish don't clear out deep enough into main. And that's where my curiosity from Ali and his timing is going to be. Why you got your knife out? Thank you.
Yeah, I was just do that quick jump peek, see where they're going to be going. over on the other side, already taking complete control of this A side, unless Nasi shows up in force like that. Wildfire has the immediate trade and an early rolling thunder in this instance too. But wait a minute. Oh, I thought Orange may have been able to make a play here, but moves coming up through the flank themselves. The spike's still not even planted just yet, so you expended that rolling thunder, and it's just nothing coming through for it.
And Cloric is left to pick up the pieces. Not impossible, not unwinnable with the wallbang right in that box on your side. But again, finally some coordination comes through. The backstab for moves to bail out the players, kind of tucked over towards a main. And some weapons taken down, but the heftier buy for Maryville does get punished. Their bonus is denied. And you mentioned it. I did like the Rolling Thunder kind of to patch things up. They've been funneling all those old Torbs over to Wildfire. It is a hefty attack side advantage in that aspect over on Fracture. But all in all, cut your losses and move on. It's back to the rifles round. Nothing out of the ordinary in the buys from either side. Now you don't have to worry about those ults, except for Cloric. Quite a few off here from the Armageddon, and that's maybe all you could see this round with some heroics. But looks like they're back to the slow approach. Wait for any flush utility, which interestingly Winthrop really isn't doing. It's just, look, Infiltrators walk down off of this smoke over towards deep A, and now they have this information. Now you can have your breach rotate back over, maybe help facilitate the denial off this trap wire, a stun maybe to spray through, etc. They have a nice counter offsite play set up.
Grenades going through. You got to be careful of this trip that's so close. You should be picking up on the noise from it. And the second the smoke goes down, Flare sends the molly out towards the other end. Go for another high ground. Infiltrator just couldn't answer anything before Edge rips their head off. Now they get to keep pushing forward.
Wow.
A fault line. Oh, Lee, unbelievable. They get away in the nick of time. Leave behind a couple of presents from those guided salvos. But man, look at the damage that's been done. And Maryville still has 50 seconds left to do whatever they want in this round.
And the speed in which three of them as well dip to realize, okay, there is going to be more than one. It's not going to be Infiltrator alone, but utility just late. And look at the thoroughness. Look at the respect here, right? Overstrike comes on lane immediately. You immediately use it because you never dislodge moves off the site or didn't realize that he repositioned over towards his canteen position. Now, additional utility just the bay, deny a flood. It's so cohesive. How can Winthrop get in?
Well, it's not going to be through moves. Rins has that headshot clean and on lockdown. Ali, though, sees an opportunity. They're going to be taking it. Molly down. Stop them from pushing any forward, but you got to keep an eye on Arcade. You can't let Giza get away with what they just did. Another opportunity is abounding here for Maryville University. A small speed bump in the last one. They're back on the road.
Wow, wow, wow. I mean, Winthrop, they're kind of playing very similar on their defense to how they played over on Lotus. And I'm not opposed to the retake mentality. I think it works really well when you can set up these floods. But when Maryville's knocking up on your front door, right, depositing Rens there off of an aftershock, off of sprays through smokes, it is so difficult. And to me, that's where it goes back to, okay, that kind of spawn push from Infiltrator. From Ali needs to succeed so that you have that kind of multi-pronged retake pressure over towards the site. Or even fight Dish. If you can't get through A, you can't get through spawn, we need you to isolate, deal with Giza, this solo player who hasn't even fought a singular time, by the way, head on.
Hopefully for Winthrop, an idea of what they want to do here. It is just not working out for them. Then you gotta figure out some way to deter this Maryville attack, and yeah, it's just have so much of the space. Look how many players they have gambling on B site, right? This is Fracture. They can get back. Yeah, they can get back fast. But again, it's just Maryville. They're waiting. They're seeing what the aggression from Winthrop is going to be before they make their move. There's 3 stacked in spawn. You have your Initiator and your Sentinel boking in different directions to try and pull that back into their favor. But yeah, look at that. You've spread Winthrop out again where we had that 3 sec on B. Now they're leaning back over towards A, where the majority of Maryville is going to be eventually, unless Cloric may be able to open up something here.
Yeah, I mean, you've gone with the fake outs of utility before. Now it's actually just a veiled commitment in the late round. I like it. It drew the stack over towards A, where Giza's also going to go for the backstab, go for some hungry eco kills, which could charge up the neural theft, kind of poise you again for a successful boost plan. The only kind of red flag here is that you're running into the here rifle that was forced up by Infiltrator. And this is Infiltrator we're talking about. Finds 2, but Ange's clapback is perfection. So now your post-plan players are still alive. Ollie denying for the time being off the salvos will buy time for the rotation, but still, how do you have the weapons to fight back through this?
Yeah, that smoke is in a little bit of a dicey position. Ange, the demon
Ace
of Fracture. 1 more to go for the ace, and it's just Nasi. But it's now a 1v1. It's so close, Cloric, but it's only 3 HP for Nasi. You sneeze on them and they're gone. And Chloric's gonna prove that with a clean shorty pickoff. Maryville University.
And the IGL violence, for crying out loud, Chloric. I mean, you almost threw that round just to give the ace. All right, I saw that. You know, okay, you gotta be careful there. But it shows how comfortable Maryville is right now with their 4-1 lead over Winthrop on a map that hasn't been played in a very long time. You'll give that flare to Anj. You'll kind of set them up for that star power moment. And they're 7-4 right now in a support full over Brimstone that we said is a safe pick on a map like Fracture when you aren't feeling it. So all this to say, again, things mounting, getting dicier by the second out of Winthrop's side. To lose this round, it's 5+. We're finally getting that aggressive mentality we asked for, but look at the Armageddon.
Yeah, this is not looking good for them either, because Chloric is going to open things up with a guided salvo. They're blind too. They're just full running it down with their knife out. That's how confident they're feeling, but confidence deterred by Nasi. Blinded Giza. Leave it to this Sentinel to pull things back for your squad. And that neural theft, just to figure out where the final player is. This might be a bit of a gamble though, right? Anj is going up through the flank, and you're going to leave Giza alone in the 1v1 with a spike is planted to take this fight.
Yeah. I mean, no orbital strike, no sound cues to be played, I think. But it's playing out in the open. It's planted for that. And the smoke really just veils exactly what corner they're playing out of regardless. So I think you mentioned it's a gamble, but it's going to pay off perfectly unless there's no tracers anymore, even in this pre-Teo nerf meta.
Oh, no way you go in with the classic. A shorty again, but Anj, oh my god, that flick! Next level!
The shorty flick, that is hilarious. And that again shows, you know, how they're playing a little silly. They're confident. They're having fun here in Raleigh, North Carolina for the CVAL Grand Finals, even though it's tied 1-1. I mean, again, the macro is so clean at the moment, too. Winthrop, I'll give credit to them. They're innovating. They're changing things up, which is a lot more refreshing than what we saw over on Lotus. But it feels like, again, they finally had an idea. They finally sunk their teeth in on a main, and what happens? The Armageddon, the immediate challenge after the, rocket fuse is employed, after the showstopper is sprung. And we're seeing a similar facet where they wanted to challenge forward or fake it at least off the salvos. But now that Maryville know they can win the A fight, just outright,
yeah, just full send it. Oh my god! I don't know what happened to Maryville, but they have just locked in immensely. This squad is not missing the vital shots that they need to. Renz is activated. This duelist ready to fight back. Wildfire. Looks like they barely just get out in time. And again, Nasi sitting at that 2 HP with just a stinger on top of that. Infiltrator not looking much better themselves, trying to go in all of the different directions they possibly can. This is a good start from Flare, but they still have so many more players left to chew through, like Wildfire. And every single inch is being fought for in bloody affairs. Maryville University, it is 6-1.
I mean, calculated risks off your confidence level, right? Plug in the variable, see if it'll result in success. That's what you do. Wildfire swings, is able to find Flare, gets back to safety to employ additional utility to neutralize the higher threats like Infiltrator. So no Thrifty, no Eco shenanigans are able to slip through. And speaking of slipping, this half has basically slipped away. You have a semblance of a buy here.
This goes here.
It is. You can keep maybe Maryville off of a guaranteed half, but even then there's 5 more to go. 4 after that. And here we go. Look at this confidence.
I like this.
This was fresh. It's
Right.
nice. But look at, but again, Maryville has changed things up at the same exact time.
Yeah.
It's strong arcade.
It's keeping an idea of how everything. Renz even has the showstopper, but they got caught inside. Oh, that's the only way that they could have kept themselves safe. If they didn't have that ultimate, it could have ended in disaster. But Chloric is a walking disaster on 2 legs themselves, and Winthrop University is getting the full brunt of that fury.
And again, ships passing in the night. Ali able to shut down the spike plant. They didn't clear out all of the pests that were lurking outside of B main, but they cleared out the main threats, and all of them will soon follow. Moves left a little bit more manageable of a clutch situation. This time a 1v3 with Spike spotted. Ren's now known to be in cubby. If you're still worried about that lurking Giza, I haven't seen him, and he's making a rap on you through Canteen.
Oh, well, that's going to go ahead and pull the string on whatever Giza was trying to play through with that neural theft. But yeah, Renz just plays it safe. They play the number advantage that they have against moves. And the second Giza's been seen by anything, Renz would make their own. But Giza's not even going to let that happen. First with a headshot, and of course, a little bit of disrespect on the opponent.
It's almost as if it was foretold that Maryville would be able to get that round. And not only that, but now that you break the bank, so you're guaranteed not just a lead, but a dominant one at that, 8-4 or better. You know, granted, there's no, again, hero rifle shenanigans or such, but 5 rounds in a row. And we said this kind of prior, Winthrop's not a team to take timeouts, but the few that we have seen do end up turning things around. But I guess it's only when Nazi has that light bulb moment and he just doesn't have an answer just yet. It's an eco. You do have, I believe, an orbital strike online for Flare and Armageddon for Elise. So there's resources here to maybe deny, but again, look at they're met tenfold by the support players are high fragging. They're farming the orbs. It feels like they have every advantage in the attack. They have all of these resources at their disposal to execute these strategies.
And they may not even need to, right? The
Yeah.
orbital strike's gonna happen, but Ali's already gone. We have a couple of shots from Giza, but it's really just left behind while the rest of the squad is coming in through drop. You just go ahead, commit the Rolling Thunder to disrupt and discombobulate all of Winthrop University. Infiltrator is at 86 HP, and this time no shenanigans from Wildfire, right? They are going to get that spike planted. They're going to play for the advantages of whatever they have, and hearing that boombot exactly where it is, Infiltrator has to take their ones. They have to isolate these as much as they possibly can. But when utility is being dumped at you, one after another, the aftershock into the paint shells, into the molly, what do you do if you're Infiltrator? You have nothing to fight back against them except for your own aim and a hope. But those hopes are few and far between when Maryville University is here.
Maryville locked in, looking like they want that clean sweep here at NC State for both CLUL and CVAL. I mean, in previous matchups against Winthrop, CECC, NACE, NECC, you'd see them challenging these players head-on, underestimating them, thinking that we are on the same level mechanically. Here you saw it. They did not want to take a fight against Infiltrator. They wanted to keep his back up against the wall to the last second possible, and even then they didn't do it alone. The high-low, utilizing the geometry over toward Dish, perfection. So, and they're not even, like, you know, tempering their ultimates. That was an eco, and they utilized 2 of them. They know that now that they're up 8-1, it doesn't matter if they lose the next few rounds. They want them when they can get them, and they are sure that their strategy will result in a victory. So all of this to say the pressure, the kind of impetus is on Winthrop. You have the Vandals, you have the Operator for Infiltrator, and you still have an Armageddon.
Oh, and that Armageddon is in the craziest spot too. Leave it up to Rins to get them in there. Ali may have claimed the life of Rins, but stuck inside of the Chloric Armageddon is only going to end in disaster. And even with the door shutting, Chloric has the vision, they have the aim, they have the knowledge. Infiltrator showing off with the Operator. It doesn't really matter. Spike still yet to be planted. Maryville University, if you're Wildfire especially, you got to go over to that corner to get it done.
No, they learned their lesson on the eco. They know exactly where Wildfire plays to have optimal swing and utility balance. So the micro level, making adjustments, improving upon these retakes. But again, you have 2 post plant players, the Teo and the Rimstone. So Chloric salvos come in, and you can have Giza, the insane fragger for the squad, swing. And Infiltrator with 20 HP left. I mean, you could pop the Showstopper, get 1, but even then you mentioned in no time. Chloric's deep main. And, I mean, you get the kills, you get the stats, but you don't get the round.
That's what matters at the end of the day. And honestly, for Maryville, they're not hurting in the credits department either. Things are looking right as rain for them. Winthrop University struggling to get that impact that they're looking for in each of these rounds. And we were talking about that unprecedented success that Maryville had on Lotus. It was a 10-2 first half. They're looking to exceed expectations here on Fracture. It's 9-1 for goodness sake, Zobi.
Was it 10-2 on Lotus?
Yeah.
More or less, Sam. We're looking at 9-1 right now. It's a narrow one, but look at this. When you have the pedigree of, what is that math, 7 rounds in a row? And again, you're about to break the bank again. I think here, I'll ask you after this round, because I think, well, no, because that gives it away. I think if they win this round, I think it's an 11-1.
I think so too. At Maryville University, where they've been outpacing Winthrop on these early rounds, early moments of the round, they're not doing it this time, right? They're playing the map again. They're playing the time and letting Chloric poke around. Oh, they jumped over the trip, Zobi. Someone had to have heard that, right? Surely someone heard that. Yeah,
okay.
No, Nasi heard it. Nasi was ready to go with the aim, and Chloric's not going to get much further than that. And it may be breaking our prediction of the 11-1.
I said if they win this round.
So
if they don't win this round.
There you go.
There we go.
It's a possibility.
I'm covered. But all in all, you know, we don't know if it was purposeful or not, but they cleared the mistake nonetheless. And they are set up for a nice retake. It's smart when you have Armageddon, when you have a showstopper to just play for this retake. But curious to see again what the disruptions that are developed for Maryville look like here. Because I don't think they have them this time around.
Oh, no way, Ange! You deny Infiltrator the opportunity to use the showstopper, and then the rest of Maryville is just gonna play out of their minds!
Wow.
Last round in the
I mean, just... I'm just trying to come to terms with the weeks like, okay, where are our predictions going? Where is our storytelling going? And they still get the 10-1. And I'm like, I don't think they have any defenses set up. It looked like they actually got surprised by the showstopper coming in that hot. They didn't have like any breach utility set up to delay, right? And then An just says, yeah, I got this, guys.
Yeah, I got this.
It's interesting because like we kind of talked about how, okay, maybe like your post-run players can play forward, can play in the heat, play in the moment with you, and then fall off. And that's exactly they're finding that fine-tuning of at this point. And I mean, it's for reach calibration, it's 10-1. Look at the money. Like a Bulldog with a region shield and the Stinger. Like, it is set up for an 11-1 here, Sam.
Yeah, it really is. Thankfully, though, moves. Gonna start things off with the first blood onto Wildfire. Rins, meanwhile, is still inside of Heaven. Armageddon is gonna slow down the push through the rest of the players in out of Arcade. But you still have the rest of the squad going nuts. But it's Ange and Rins giving the fight back. It's all done to Chloric. They know exactly where this player is, too. And defying our expectations, Winthrop is not going to let this be an 11-1 half.
If there's anything we've learned, it's unexpected, the unexpected with this team in particular. But again, that we're celebrating a 10-2 half tells the entire story.
Yeah,
right?
you gotta take as much good as you can if you're Winthrop right now.
Exactly, and that's my concern. Is okay, what happened when they had the 10-2 half on Lotus? They won the pistol, they won the fall, they bought very heavy, but the second round bonus was sloppy.
Yeah.
2 players walked away without their weapon. So first off, we haven't even crossed that box off yet. Please win this pistol. Then, I like the aggressive buy-up. It feels like a must when you're down this low. But again, you have to win it convincingly. So, we have our little checklist set, guys. Let's, as a group, start checking it off.
Start checking it off. Winthrop, I'm sure, has that same mental checklist inside of their own mind. And as daunting as a prospect as it is, right, you got to take it all one by one. And Winthrop, where Maryville was slow on their pistol round, Winthrop's just going to go ahead and speed it the heck up. Oh, that's the Infiltrator that we know and love. Unfortunately, couldn't get past that one roadblock named Giza. The cam comes up. They see another player in going through main. But you had to expect that this arcade approach is going to be deadly. You're all alone on this side, isolated by yourself. Wildfire tries to go in for a peek through the flashbang, but they're not going to go in through anything else. 2 players up through main, and they managed to take care of moves. So this is 3v3 with the spike planted.
As long as they can hold on. This is what I wanted, right? Was a multi-pronged retake. The players having all this main control, knowing that you can't play at a safe spot with your post-plant utility. That's already limited on the pistol. Trey's following, and suddenly the advantage is wide and it's gaping. Ali.
Oh my gosh,
out the open back turn. You had to take the gamble. The 1v1 that was granted towards Generator. Chloric, IGL, ACS leader coming into this grand finals. You said that was a must-win pistol. Now even that's been robbed away.
And now there's no choice if you're Winthrop but to gamble.
Stingers.
There's no other option. You have to gamble the Stingers. You have to hope that whatever attack you're working with at Maryville University is going to be caught off guard by it somehow. But Chloric, that aim, it's just, what do you do if you're Winthrop when you have one player steamrolling through you like that? And it feels like everyone from Maryville has had that shining moment.
Now, I've seen the Infiltrator Bucky do some damage, but that's on a Neon where you can close space quickly. Let's see what your satchels look like here, Infiltrator, because you are going to need them to close the distance. And Wildfire seems to be mind reading you there as well. But Island's elevated position, again, trying to make the most difficult situations for these close-range weapons, and Ange has done just that.
Yeah, an Infiltrator can't even get inside of Arcade or inside of Heaven to really use and take advantage of this Bucky. It's fire through the smoke. Get rid of moves. That Sheriff may have looked fancy. How much further are you going to go? You aren't going to go anywhere, Infiltrator. The last remaining puzzle piece, and Wildfire is going to stunt on them with that Bucky. Maryville University. It's one more round to go, and they're going to be up in the series.
And in 13-2 fashion would be impressive. Again, a map that probably is pretty good in the history and the feelings of Winthrop, but it feels like Winthrop showed up for a final exam while forgetting to study a unit.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's been so long since they touched on it. They're like, oh yeah, I remember how to do that. And then they get there, look at the question, they're like, wait a minute. And that's what this feels like. Again, they don't look like themselves, because I've seen them at their best on this map. Again, they're getting aggressive, they're pushing through, they're clearing space, they're ready for these retakes, but his moves is still ready for, you know, shining through on his own, his lonesome, but even Giza's always been dissing him right now.
Yeah, this is the crazy part about Maryville, though. They can lose a couple of players and still be ready to go on the fights, and that's being proven in spades here right now by Giza. The 3K from this Sentinel, it was so close to the A's, but now it's all down to the shoulders of Ali. But Maryville University always stealing it in the night. It is a 13-2 fracture, outpacing themselves on Lotus.
With a ghost! We questioned the role swaps, we questioned Winthrop's preparation coming into this map, and we knew that Maryville picked it for a reason, and this is why. I just saw a glimpse of that scoreboard and I saw very little first bloods. It felt like Maryville was always in control of the tempo. They had such good map understanding, they had such good set plays. It shows, again, the support from their school and the preparation by having a coaching staff behind them.
No, I agree. I mean, right, we were looking at this series. Just an overview real quick. It was 13-5 Icebox to Winthrop, then 13-4 to Maryville on Lotus, and now 13-2 Fracture. And now we are
Haven.
At the precipice. Maryville is on series point. All it takes is just that one more map.
I don't want to steal the desk's flare, but I'm getting some like future premonitions. New comp for Winthrop is the ISO Yoru. That requires confidence, that requires ego, that requires hitting your shots, and after getting 13-2'd may not be the move, but their old comp had the Tejo. We are on old Tejo, so maybe they need that consistency. Maybe that's what we'll see save them as them to a split, a map that still doesn't look like it's more navigable waters.
I don't know, but there's a lot to dissect with this map, so we're going to send it over to the desk. Desk, you got your work cut out for you.
Oh, you're so right about that. Who would have ever predicted that Fracture would be so one-sided to Maryville?
And they even made the changes for Winthrop that we were kind of expecting, but it didn't feel like they were really super comfortable with it. So win condition met, but I guess the rest of it was just shooting better, was just not applicable at all for them.
Yeah, we mentioned, I think we pointed out that we would expect Ali to play the Brimstone, but clearly they didn't feel too comfortable on that role and had to roll over to the Tejo, which takes Flare off their flavor agent. So overall, it just didn't feel like Winthrop had as much of a game plan or even a counter meta strat coming into this.
Yeah.
But how much of it do you feel like goes back to the question that we brought up even heading into Fracture, which is how much practice has Winthrop realistically had on this particular map?
Their last stat tracked play for this was back in March. So it's been quite a while for them, now 2 months, or technically 3 months now. I believe it was the beginning of March for them. Turn that around, May 4th was the last time we saw this from Maryville, so they've got a lot more recent memory for this. And you didn't really think you'd have to play this in the first place because you're like, hey, you know, VCL, we didn't have to worry about this. The map was taken out, we're on the current patch. It's back in because we're on the old patch. And obviously Winthrop just weren't really prepped for it, which now also brings the question, how are you going to do about split if we have to go to map 5 and you force this 4th? Y'all haven't played that since 2024. What are you going to do?
Has something cooking in the kitchen that no one knows about.
It looks burnt across Fracture, though.
Well, I hope it's a slow cooker, you know, because we got to give it some time, I think, to build up, and they're definitely going to need it. But let's go ahead and look back at some of the replays from this third map, because I think there is still a lot to break down there that really showcases Maryville's dominance on this particular map. And I mean, right away, as we kind of look back through what the map gave us, we saw just Maryville off to such a hot start.
Yeah, I think that overall, when you get such a dominant lead right off the rip, you didn't really want to call out too many of the big moments in the first, 5 rounds, but after that, it felt like things were just escalating, and it got really bad really fast. The offense was so dominating, and so when we see these replays, I feel like the big thing to look out for is going to be Giza being a highlight player, highlighting that your Teo needs to be valuable at any moment in these rounds, and then also shutting down a lot of what the defenders are playing into, and these high-impact kills. I said Renz needs to play inside a hall. That was very present. There's a big moment I specifically asked for in a replay. I hope we see that one completely shown. They just in the face of the offense pushing you, and that's where you need to thrive.
And as we see now, they also, Maryville had a very good understanding of how to push and pull rotations. We saw this deep pulse onto Chloric here, onto this B site that pulled all the rotations over, and then they immediately come out with a hit. And Ainge has been going crazy this entire map, finding the frags that they need. And I believe this is the round that they were able to just secure this anti-eco round, even though Ali came out hitting some pretty nasty shots, they were able to find so much position, so many crossfire angles so early. Here, they were trying to bait for Ainge to get the ace, and now it's Clark instead with the shorty in hand. Just jumps up with the jump shot onto Nasi and a little bit of IGL banter there.
Yeah, and test the crouch key afterwards as well. You just got to make sure everything's functioning. It's game time, baby, so you got to make sure you're locked in. And as for all these opposing rounds, again, it comes down to the disparity between having Ollie over on that Teo instead of Flair. Maybe feels like maybe a couple mismanaged times. Here's that rush through A Hall where you see so much instantaneous value from the offense of Maryville, and you need to see someone counteract that. And for Winthrop, it has to be Nasi for some reason through that sand door, and I wasn't exactly sure why Winthrop were playing into that one, but obviously getting a 3K for them kind of builds up a little bit of confidence. Here's Giza, clears out the tripwire, now worried about the player back towards defender spawn. You also have to worry about this outer hall, and then once you get forward, the Teo salvos keep that front line back from the back line that we mentioned was really prevalent on Lotus, and Maryville survived that initial push, get onto site, get the plant going, and even though there's a showstopper, look at the confidence from Ange just to swing that and get the kill and shut it down.
That's, here comes the party. I am the party, said Ange, coming out, soloing that ult by themselves. And a lot of this feels just, they didn't have enough control coming out from the side of Winthrop. I don't think they were ever able to find their pace on this map. It really was just Chloric calling the shots, staying alive the entire time as that Tejo that we mentioned too earlier.
Yeah, and that final round there for Chloric, just putting icing on the cake, or the butter on the toast. We were talking about
butter on
earlier,
the
the
toast.
butter on the toast, and making sure that they could close out that round with a 3K to ensure. And if you were already dominant the first half and you start the second with the retake and getting the pistol, it just felt like that was the nail in the coffin for him.
Well, I want to go ahead and highlight Giza a little bit further because I think this is a player, you take a look at that kill feed and Giza is showing up. And especially when it comes down to a lot of those big frags we saw from Maryville on Fracture, I feel like Giza was kind of at the forefront of a lot of those big plays that were happening there. So why is this a player that you feel like the roster can be built around?
I mean, first off, they're two-time MVP from CECC, right? One under SCC, this time now under Maryville. So they're coming with a lot of confidence because they are good. They know that they're good. They played for Chet's Pets as well for VCL. And while they didn't feel super content with how that went for them, they're like, oh, I didn't do great. I didn't show it like I wanted to. They still performed just enough, and they're now trying to prove they can go a little bit extra and beyond. And for them, knowing that Lotus was a little bit slower in terms for Winthrop's performance and that they needed to outperform moves, you turn that over to this map as well, and you're doing the exact same thing. It's like, okay, we saw a lot of really good things on Icebox, making sure you had moves following directly behind. That's kind of the big difference maker, to levy that control behind Infiltrator. You turn that this way and you go, okay, well, I can do the same thing. I'll be up front in your face. I'll have that confidence and get those kills. And Giza just let the tally continue to tally.
And I think this is also a testament to the organization of Maryville and the coaching staff to take a player like Giza, who's used to be star duelists on their team, and fitting them into the Sentinel role. It allows them to just take safer fights. They're no longer the guy that has to figure out where all 5 angles are and still have the pressure to trade one. They can just sit and wait and play their game to their full effect, and we are actually seeing that on Fracture.
Well, we got a chance to sit down with Giza as well ahead of this grand finals, so let's go ahead and hear what he had to say about this.
My name is Tanner McGee. My in-game name is Giza. I play Senti for Maryville University. Adapting into different team environments is kind of hard, but not really. You just have to basically have time together with the team and make sure you guys all mesh together. And that's basically just taking time and figuring it all out. And yeah, playing in VCL with Chet's Pets definitely lit a fire under me. Even though I was only filling for them for a couple days, I want to get Maryville University into the challengers as well, so I can continue playing in challengers. My favorite teammate, I would say, is probably Chloric. I don't have a worst teammate. I love all of them, but if I were to say to have my favorite, it would probably be Chloric.
I love that the team synergy is already there. You can tell that there is a lot of mutual respect amongst these players, and especially going back to that story point ahead of this match where Maryville is this big super team now. I love that there's that fire to want to try to get Maryville there to that next level of Valorant, while also still maintaining that cohesion that you need to be able to perform as a team.
Yeah, and it clearly shows, right? Whenever they play, they are swinging together. Yeah. And I think the good thing about the way that Maryville plays is each round kind of feels the same for them, right? They don't really rely on any hot streaks. They can lose 1 or 2 players. They can lose the first 2 gunfights and still somehow be able to play. It shows that they practice their 2v5 retakes, their 3v5 retakes, and they come out time after time over on Fracture.
Yeah, we talked a little bit with both teams about what their kind of practices look like, and it's like 5 hours a day, 4 or 5 times a week, getting in 3-4 scrims as much as possible. This kind of like real-world applicable experience, and that's the same thing for a lot of teams. But when you know that you've built up this super team and you know that you have this rapport and these teammates around you, it honestly turns into this bigger battle of what can we do, because we're already so good. What can we do to take that extra little step? And I think Giza was this perfect player to move into this, knowing where they have performed, the teams they played against and scrimmed against. These teams are facing T1 teams in scrims, right? And saying, okay, this little thing, my coach will tell me it, but at the same time, I'm also able to find things my coach won't find, which just adds just so much more for the roster as a whole.
And so impressive that they're all doing this while still being students.
Yes, student athletes, and they got grades
at
for
its
days.
core, 4 to 5 hours of practice on top of still attending classes and doing well scholastically is just really, really amazing for all of these players. And as we get towards the end of this grand finals, only one of these teams is going to be able to call themselves the Collegiate Valorant Champions. As we take a look through our map set, we've already past the halfway point where we've got 3 maps down, Icebox, Lotus, and Fracture, where we have Maryville that is going to be at match point as we look towards Haven, our 4th map in this series.
Yeah, this is, what did we say? We were expecting it to be 3-1 kind of.
Yeah.
We were teasing towards Winthrop, but after map 1 went so crazily, it felt like, right? And then the return for map 2 and Lotus, the way that it was so despairingly different, I have to feel like Maryville are on a roll right now, and it's going to be hard to shut that down, especially when we've seen so many glaring problems for Haven, for this side. The exhaustion levels that was there, they're coping for Winthrop, for Harrisburg, and that loss. They felt like they were tired. They were maybe, we've had to play a LAN that whole day. We weren't ready for it. Maybe a little jet lag or bus lag, and they were talking about being bussed in. But there can only be so much cope, and you're 4 maps in. You have to be ready for best of 5s, and this team is good at best of 5s. But with the scorelines being so greedily in favor for Maryville, I feel like they maybe are a little stressed at this point.
Yeah, pressure is definitely on. I hope that now, this being their map pick again, they're able to fall back onto their comfort picks, right? I really want to see Infiltrator get back on that jet. I mean, this is a jet map. Get him the operator, get him going in there. Push this to a map 5. I think our predictions earlier was, like you said, 3-1. After Lotus, a dominant performance coming out from the side of Maryville, that may have switched over to 3-1 Maryville. Yeah. Now Winthrop really has to get their act together and make sure that they close out this map and push it to you.
And I feel like for Harrisburg's victory against Winthrop, the big problem came to them just rushing Moobs on C side, not letting him play. Moobs has to be able to realize very early on that he can't be the hero every single time, and they have to be quicker to fall back. That was one of the strengths we saw from Maryville, was they were much better about falling back. So keep Moobs alive. Don't let Giza get rushed out either. Have some extra assistance for it. All these little things, right? Yeah. Just counteract it as much as you can, because that was the way Harrisburg just thrashed you in a single half, and you couldn't recover in the second.
Or even like double up the site that Moobs is defending, right? That was one of the criticisms that we had. Yeah. That, they lost like 8 rounds in a row, and they still left Moobs by themselves.
2-11, I think, at halftime was their stat. It was bad.
Very, very one-sided for Maryville, and I think we got a glimpse of maybe what I feel like you both are thinking as well. As Zobi was kind of mulling over the end of that 3rd map, they went, I feel like we're going to have to see some type of compositional change come out from Winthrop. So let's take a look at the agent selections that have been made by Maryville and Winthrop ahead of going into Haven. And we'll get a chance to go into that in just a minute, but do you agree with this? Does it have to be kind of this full-sale swap from Winthrop, or at least got to make some adjustments here?
Well, Zoe stole my thunder a little bit there, so shout out them for that. I appreciate that.
They did say, hey, gun, maybe get ahead of the
they got ahead of it. I had it specifically listed as a win condition for Winthrop, switch the ISO and Euro, because there was a big question when we talk about, Teo being a current patch. Haven is a map you play often enough that ISO and Euro was already really good, so might as well use that comp in the first place. And we'll go and see what they've already locked in, but I feel like them switching over to the ISO and Euro is solid enough for them, and we've seen them compete at a very confident level for it, so I'd like to see that get locked through.
There we go. Yeah, got that ISO and Euro online now. Versus Renz on the Neon. Now, this is going to be pretty difficult for Renz to try and get through onto site with Moobs being there. However, that was one of the compositions that they struggled against with Harrisburg, was a Neon that was extremely dominant. Now we have that Breach Stun come through as well. So again, I would like to see them not leave Moobs on an island. He's a great player, and he's able to hold his own, but can't be doing that round after round. and especially if they start to snowball.
A lot of the problem, though, is moves, right? And they were mentioning as well in the interview we did the other day. It was like they need to be a little bit more willing to fall back and not just let it be taken away. You're not playing as a Sentinel for the total denial for a site take. You're playing for the stall, right? You need the team to come back into it, and it feels like maybe there's a couple chances. For Maryville, I think they need to get ahead on defense early off the start. They need to counterplay the UENA and be ready for it, so whether or not they were expecting this change to be made, even with the Teo comp back in, and also find more value for Ange, who was a little bit slow in a lot of their series prior and just didn't really get the success we were looking for on Haven. But still, the rest of the team picks up for it, but that can't be reliant when it comes down to the value for them in a grand final like this and the stage is set.
Well, Ange is online today. And he's been killing it the last 2 maps, so let's hope that that carries over. And they, with the found success early on with a double duelist composition, I think they are very comfortable in this aggressive style of play here, so this should work out well.
I feel like, though, when you take a look at Maryville, like, is there really anything that's going to be on this Winthrop side that can stop this momentum that they've generated over the last couple of maps? Who do you feel like would be that big difference maker outside of the fact maybe it's a bit less aggression coming out from moves or knowing that they might need to take some rotations?
The big thing about Haven, which is what I love, and when this strategy started coming into play for Collegiate, I ranted and raved about how much I adore this. Is that Cypher lurk play down through B, controlling Courtyard, playing the low rotate over towards A, because it's one of the most retakeable objectives in all of Valorant. Typically, defenders just will give up the site and play for the retake because it's just that consistent for them as a team. But then you're going, okay, that's good. Now where's that 5th player, that Cypher, that lurker? And Moves has always been the lurker we're expecting, but we haven't seen that really today. That's not been a huge case, even on maps we expected, because Lotus was so short, Fracture was so dominant the other way. I feel like Moves, this has to be the map they do that, but that means that they have to survive defense in the first place, and I truly, that defense was just so hard to look at for Harrisburg. I question it.
And even on a map like Icebox, where we expected them to really be lurking the entire time, they were the second entry backing up Infiltrated there.
Yeah.
However, if we saw from the hype video earlier that Moves did have a Sheriff Ace on a bonus round because of that exact play that you're talking about, lurking up Courtyard, able to find those timings. So if they're able, if Winthrop is able to get their game plan, which is a 2-pronged attack, heavy showing of the main initiation, and convince Maryville enough to start those rotations, that's where Moves really shines. So far, however, it seems that Chloric, at least in the last 2 maps, has gotten a read on the timing and the pacing that Winthrop like to attack with.
I guess the question is going to be how does C-Site hold when it comes to Maryville. If you know that you're facing the ISO in your route, that's the site to take every single time. Whether it be the kill contract to strip a player off of side and be able to clean up should your ISO lose that fight, or anything else, I just feel like you have to survive C, and they're the better team at surviving it, so I think they've got a lot coming into this.
Oh, well, it's going to get tense here. Maryville on match point. If they win one more map, they are going to be the Collegiate Valorant champions. And that's right off the back of their League of Legends team winning just yesterday in that division. So it's going to be very exciting to see whether or not it's going to be all down to this map in Haven. We're going to go ahead and toss it back over to our casters to get everything ready to go. And Zoe, you must be pretty happy about these agent picks, I think.
Thank you for that desk. Zoe, they called you out. Are you happy?
I don't know. I have an angel on one shoulder and a devil on the other for Winthrop. The angel says, Icebox, the double duelist worked really well. You know, it is their more recent composition where they went into VCL. And then there's the devil saying, the confidence has shattered after Fracture. Can you run an Eagle composition that requires that sort of potential? But this is Winthrop. I do think they have a really... I'm going to say easy time because it is going to be a mental, block, I think. Just, shaking it off and saying, we need to send ourselves to Split. But then again, you're, overcoming all odds at the point. Because then also Split, a map you never play?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you're hiding it.
Maybe you're hiding it. Maybe the moves, we don't know what we're doing on the map was just a...
maybe Moves doesn't know, but Ollie is like, yeah, we know.
We actually have the strategies. We just let our Sentinel lurk off on their own and do what they need to.
I mean, that is Split.
Yeah, that is Split. But this is the important thing, right? You just had 2 maps in a row, 13-4, 13-2. If there was ever a moment where you need to dig down deep inside of whatever this team has, whatever you have in the war chest, it is now. And I think, right, this gamble of this composition has to be that.
And I do think that, you know, maybe something that can help them with that is I believe they are starting on the attack here for Haven. So Winthrop maybe has an opportunity to control that tempo, leverage double duelists, leverage the moves lurks out the gate, versus even though they got to pick sides, you know, over on Fracture, I think attack Fracture lets you control the tempo so much faster. And previously before that on Lotus, obviously Maryville got to choose to start the defense. So they chose their favorite half in that regard, and we saw how that that attack went another 10-2. But we don't talk about that. We're talking about Haven. We are talking about the bread and butter of Collegiate Valorant and a possible decider map here. 2-1 currently, Maryville up in this best of 5 for CVAL Grand Finals 2025 at NC State, Sam. And I mean, I think it's a great map to end on. It's very well rounded. I'm glad Ascent's not here. It's the compromise map.
It's a compromise map. It's a possibility of a map that we could end on. And you know, this is possibly the map so far that we've had the most differences in agents between the two teams.
No Tejo!
Yeah, no Tejo. No Tejo to be seen. And it makes sense for how big this map is versus, you know, Lotus may be that 3-site map, but it's still more closer affairs where you can get more value out of the Tejo. But I mean, for Maryville, right, it's kind of the bread and butter of what Haven is. You have your usual double initiator with the Omen. Giza is skewing some of the standards and bringing us a look at the KJ. And Rins is going to show off with the Neon for the first time.
I love my Killjoy getting some love, but I also love that Maryville is also a squad that has withstand the test of time with the Tejo nerfs.
Yeah.
They weren't playing it except for key maps before. Now they get to reap the rewards as a result where they played this composition for a long time. We saw that over on, I think, Fracture as well, right? The Neon. The race swap didn't work for Infiltrator. Ren's consistency on the Neon should pay off here. But let's get hype. It is the pistol round of the potential last map for CVAL here in Raleigh, North Carolina. We talked about it. Reigns firmly in the grasp of Winthrop. Can they gallop their way into split, or does their run end here?
Maryville University on that ever so coveted series point, right? That alarm bot doing a lot of heavy lifting here, setting up Wildfire to be able to throw in the fault line. That small little contact is just gonna careen Winthrop off of this B-side exec over towards A, where Moves has gained a lot of this A-long space. They may have exchanged a couple of bullets back and forth, but neither side is taken out just yet. Chloric is playing safe. Oh my God, Move! We were calling you out for a little bit there, but maybe we need to go even further than that because this is Maryville!
I mean, that shot was the only shining point of the round on the side of Winthrop. I mean, Nazi can take one down too amidst the chaos, but it's Renz to rise above to the occasion. 3 kills found, quick succession, the quick pivot as well, the commitment on a pistol like that. Can't do it every round, but in a situation like that where the commitment is pretty sure in stone, it is a great follow through. I mean, look at this crunch, look at this micro coordination, Triangle Odez just sweeping on through. In the meantime, you had a contingency plan as well on, coming all the way down C-Long, all the way through spawn. They were going to be there in the late round regardless of the outcome, but now no Stinger Force, nothing too shabby here out of Winthrop, just, you know, an old-fashioned garage overwhelm attempt and C-Long pressure off the ISO.
Yeah, but you hear it, the shield broken, so that's gonna send Ali away from that fight and play for their life. That's already at 65 HP. They're hurting, and they need to let the rest of Garage be able to push inside of this Kiza. A devastating defense of this Garage! One more player to go, and they get the ace, and they are hungry for it, Zobi. They're trying to track it down, and they do! They throw it all in the face of Winthrop. Maryville University, all it takes is one.
And I mean, you know, eco aces usually aren't the most impressive, but just the aura from jiggling while you're reloading and then hunting down the remaining player in that fashion as well, knife out. I mean, that's how you kickstart a final map here. When we talked about the attack-sided 3-site Haven, where Winthrop should have the momentum, it is getting shattered. And not just it being an ace, but a flawless one then for the team at that. So you keep all these weapons, you give yourself the opportunity for a 3rd round bonus.
And Infiltrator and Ali have to use Guardians, right? This not really what you want from your duelists to get in there and take these fights. Yeah, they tried to force up with the Sheriffs in the last round, but it's just for Maryville, like we really wanted to hammer that point home, being able to take 3 Bulldogs, 2 Guardians into their bonus is a massive boon in the back pocket of this squad. Small little timeout. I think we had some technical issues going on there, but quickly resolved. And for Winthrop University, they need to resolve some way to stop Maryville.
And I mean, if you're Maryville, you don't want to take a pause after a round like that. You're only going to speed things up. Ren's down for the relay, able to isolate Ollie. And while Infiltrator through the smoke alongside Flare is able to take a few kills down with them, it seems like it's been enough. The scales suddenly tip in the favor without them even landing sight on the players that were short.
Okay, Giza, you impressed all of us with some insane mechanics in the last one, but can you do it now that Winthrop University's final 2-player has all of these weapons? A valiant effort in an attempt, but Winthrop University sidesteps the bonus against Maryville.
And I mean, the energy, you know, maybe the vibes were too high. You take a little bit too deep of a dive on the Maryville side. But ultimately, again, Winthrop doing a good job of playing that reactivity card there. It's not, you know, the cleanest. You can see now, look at the shield. Still a Guardian being carried over there. But again, damage control peak at the moment they get their first round on the board. We keep things close. No, you know, stark lead antics. Kind of like how we kicked off Icebox. So maybe a return to a closer time. But all in all, this is where it starts to count, where it starts to matter. Full rifles for the side of Maryville. A little bit more of a defaulted approach as well. I mean, really, disrespect shown towards his A side take.
Ali just can't get this double tap onto the site, right? And it's gone now, so you've lost that little bit of an extra edge case to push through with your Yoru, with Infiltrator. And with 3 players stacked on here, that has to be, for Winthrop, an idea, timing-wise, that you've given up too much space for them to be able to hold on to this. And especially with them not poking out too far, where we had that like outpacing aggression from Maryville. This time, it's met with tempered expectations.
It just feels like Maryville's been hit like by their coaching staff with like situational flashcards. It's like, if this happens, what do you do? What's your reaction? And part of that is the Ollie shield that you mentioned, right? We've seen shock darts, we've seen, you know, turrets and storm grenades able to pierce through it. But speaking of piercing through, Infiltrator finds Chloric there. Ollie able to find Anj. They're starting to punish maybe the unpreparedness here from Maryville, you know, being caught out in these open quarters without much trade ability. That's open the door to the C side, where Wildfire has outpaced Renz as well. And the backstab for moves is enough. No charges. The spike plant goes down. The round will go the way of Winthrop to tie us up 2-2.
And a flawless one at that. Vital for the economy of Winthrop University. And when we look over at the other side of Maryville, it's broken. It's fractured in half. And I love the way that Winthrop was able to play throughout this round. And especially for Ali, who's been kind of quiet on the ISO, this was their pop-off shining round for them to show us the power of what this ISO can do, even if they didn't have that double tap. Because now they have a kill contract. A lot of different ways now to approach sites, especially when we look forward into the rest of the rounds.
Please don't miss the kill contract. I mean, you're granted with a kill contract a guaranteed double tap because of that, you know, little ISO buff, but we'll see. I mean, I do think the first few rounds they played this very differently, the double duelist and over on Icebox. Icebox, it was more Infiltrator dives in, Ollie's the follow-up if, you know, Infiltrator falls. Here it's been they're like pressuring different parts of the map simultaneously, kind of being those standout individualized players. And I do like that attempt, kind of, I was going to say, to regroup and counter C, conquer it together. But all that utility is more of a flush, more of a fake. And again, Maryville's been so good at not rotating. It's partially because of, you know, deep control from players like Chloric over towards A long.
And I do like that Chloric is all the way up here trying to fight for some of this space. And
it's just info.
Yeah, exactly. You're playing for info, and you're also going to be playing for a pick too, and you even get a Phantom upgraded from the Stinger. How he's going to have to show up that performance that we have from the Ace. Not quite there, but guess who's also there to support them? Well, it was Rins. It's not there for very much longer other than that. Wildfire is on the other side of this smoke, but they're waiting for the rest of the squad to spread out across the map, and especially to this Omen TP across the trip.
Yeah, I mean, Renz was grappling with the fact, do I cut my losses? Do I not go for the Giza trade, or do I? And they thought enough were stunned with the relay bolt, but Wildfire says, I need to wait for my reinforcements. I need to wait for the team because we don't have the weapons. But you're also getting pieced apart. You're not waiting for your hero rifle Chloric. It's all upon the IGL now 1v3.
All right, this is the Winthrop University that we know and love. They're reactivated. The aim is locked in, and ever since these first 2 rounds from Maryville, again, we're getting a little bit of those flashbacks to Icebox where they started off strong, where they looked really good, where they were exchanging the blows. Winthrop University is now...
They pulled ahead suddenly, right?
They pulled
right
ahead.
Around now, yes?
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see if that's going to happen again because, I mean, I like the late C pivot, and this composition is designed just to slam sites when you realize they start working, and I think that's what we're going to see devolve eventually towards the end of this half, but they're still starting out with these defaults, looking, identifying, making openings, even when they fall sometimes, you know, Ollie not clearing a corner, but all in all, I'm going to see the Kill con. Yeah.
Possibility. Giza's broken the double tap shield from Ali. That's going to be enough to leave an alarm bell to go ahead and pull them inside of the Gulag. This 1v1 vital to the success. Even though they may have gone a little bit further than that, Ali is still going to win their engagement inside of there. Rins has a trade off. Ange. Nasi just had no idea that they could have been pushed that far forward. So many different angles that Winthrop left this C long uncovered. And now they're going to be pushed back, but Ali knowing where Ange could be with that TP, plant the headshot there. Thankfully, Rins has a clean headshot from that one, but not too much further other than that. It's back and forth between these two players, between everyone on this squad.
And while we were focused on the kill contract, the brilliancy there, and maybe why we saw Ange slip through, was that the Hunter Sphere for Chloric came out so that Infiltrator could scale up and punish the Killjoy, punish Giza if he did win that engagement. But all that overfixation, like you mentioned, results in a situation where you never got C control. It's a 1v2. Removes, knows where the Sova is, but has no information on Wildfire, and this is the result! With a little smile. It wasn't even like waving. It wasn't even like standing up. It was just like a
Yeah, he's got that little smile going. Yeah, but this is what we've been wanting to see out of both Maryville and Winthrop, is the back and forth affair. Neither team really able to pull ahead just yet. Winthrop may have had the 3 in a row, but this from Maryville proves that they still have it in them to be able to take that fight back against the Winthrop squad. And for Rins, right, you may be looking at that Stinger Bride, but don't forget they also had that overdrive and even a timeout from MCE at the final few seconds before we go into this.
I mean, it's a tipping point round. A lot of ults on the Winthrop side as well. Like you mentioned with the Stinger Buy, it's evident they are planning on utilizing that overdrive somewhere. And my question is, okay, is this timeout then to be like, hey guys, don't do that? Or is it going to be like, okay, how can we set it up for success? Are you going to fight forward? Are you going to get up in their face? Because these defaults have, I think, set you off in kind of wishy-washy situations where you're not guaranteed a victory. So in those 3-3, it feels like they've been playing strong. It's more, what can we clean up and make better? So I'm hoping maybe we see some Breach Neon setup action down courtyard, down grass, because I think that could overwhelm, because that's been this default start position, right? Infiltrator only kind of go out together slowly without much utility as well. So that could be an easy punish.
It could be. I'm sure especially MCE wants to get in Rins' head about how this overdrive needs to get the most value that it possibly can. It's kind of one of those vital rounds for a Neon where you're in a do-or-die situation for Maryville that could pull you ahead. This is going to be nuts. This is going to be nuts, too, because they're going to go into the 3-stack Winthrop. They're just going for it. That was a good stun, though. Right, it's going to push them back even further. They're waiting in this corner, but Rins is not going to go any further than what they need to. Blinded by the paranoia, but they're not taking any damage. They shoot the clone, they're flashed out of their mind. They're still alive, Zobi. It took so much to get rid of this Neon.
Oh, and I'm gritting my teeth. That is the Neon nerf in full swing. Not a long enough time on that overdrive to get out of sticky situations like that, to get around the flush utility. I mean, you have a retake strategy with that lockdown, but it doesn't matter when these anchor players like Ange and Wildfire, you don't need a Sentinel on this site. You just crunch, and I mean, what started as a great Winthrop opening again, snap your fingers and suddenly the entire team is obliterated, turned to ash.
Yeah. And for this Yoru, I feel like we're not getting the full utility that you can get from an agent like this, where you're TPing all across the map, where you're trying to cause as much disruption as you can. And it feels like what we've been saying, the site execs from Winthrop University isn't leaning towards this Yoru to be able to play in the way that they can.
They're running it back this time with the weapons in hand. They did like, again, how they got that control, because they got, you know, the lobby space. It was more, again, that timer on the overdrive expiring that complicated things. And speaking of complications, look at the dimensional drift, look at the Hunter's Fury.
All right, Giza and Rins out of here. It's gonna be up to Wildfire and Ange again, but Wildfire falling at the final half. It's gonna be up to Chloric and Ange to pick up the pieces and recover this round for Maryville University in a 2v3.
That's possible, but I did like the extra added element, dimensional drift, Hunter's Fury. You fixed the mistakes that Ange and Wildfire were able to identify and capitalize off of. So all in all, again, when they get to this point, it feels like Winthrop doesn't make many mistakes. It's not a 2v3, it's a 2v5.
It's a 2v5.
So yeah, you're going to make the call maybe to go for the save here. Yes, Flare, yes, Ali are low HP, but you can maybe play some exits like Ange moves. Gotta get out of there long instead, and Hopefully don't overstay your welcome.
Yep. Risk none of these weapons. Risk not giving over any ultimate orbs to Maryville University, Chloric, or Ange. And you got to respect these two players, right? You know that they're demons on the battlefield, and they're giving exactly that to this team. For Winthrop University, Maryville University, it's a blink moment in these rounds, and you'll miss them with how this has been going so back and forth.
I think I'm going to call something back from Icebox that I wanted to see out of Maryville. It's still 4-4, so it's not like they haven't like thought of this adaptation and haven't employed it, kind of like it was worrying on Icebox, is play retake here. You know, in the early stages, you know, live by the site, die by the site was working. We saw it brilliantly out of Ange and Wildfire, but you have a Killjoy lockdown you haven't been able to employ for a number of rounds now. If you get it out of harm's way, maybe set up for that. It also doesn't help they didn't go A, which is the best KJ retake site, so if they lean towards here, this is the best time to get off site and play retake.
Absolutely. Ooh, Ange just a little bit too far off, but of course, small shadow step is going to keep you safe from that.
They're 4 strong on site.
It's a little scary.
This doesn't look like a retake strategy. This looks like
my gosh!
roll up and murder.
Yeah, well, Infiltrator's doing the roll up and murder tactic, and it's working out really well for him. He's just sweeping the legs out from underneath. But it's on this controller that tried to hold it down for as long as they could. For the rest of the Winthrop University tsunami tidal waved them over.
This is the difficulty, right? You took that early timeout. It did, you know, when you kind of a few pop shot rounds here with those ultimates, but now that they're gone and Colling's falling back to Maryville, again, this team, they don't like retake. What can I say? Like, even now, right, you had 4 players rotate strong to fight head-on over towards A. We talked about how fighting these players head-on is not how you win. We look back at Fracture because they were able to just appease Infiltrator and not necessarily fight him head-on. Now they're taking this fight head-on and losing. And they're about to do it again. Too short, too long. But there's so much neutralization utility out of Winthrop. Unless you're Flare.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, poor Flare. Stuck in the corner with the relay bolt. Not much that you can do beyond that. Nasi. Getting a little shocked. Hair is standing on in, but look at this swing through that could happen through the smoke. Yeah, it's a high-low, and it's so difficult to punch through that.
Spike?
Nasi's going to realize it too, especially since they lost the spike.
They're all the way on C without the spike, without a way to recover it. Moves, I mean, they have some time to work with. We still have over a minute left, so I think that's the idea here. I'm surprised we didn't see them like go through C-Link into B, etc., and look for more kills on their way, kind of like tourist destinations on the way to the spike. Now it's just ring around the rosy. Who's going to get behind the other? And it looks like Ranz and Ange almost had that opportunity, but the spike kills everything. And so does the kill contract.
Oh, but Ranz wins, and that's good. That showstopper was pivotal to keep your duelist alive. It protected them when they come out of it, and this is just sent things careening because not only did that happen, but Ranz beats Ali in the gulag.
Yeah, and Giza had Ranz back covered as well because they were on B this round. Left. You kind of left C4 the retake, actually, with your aggression over towards A. And now, I mean, you still have that as an option, right? If you don't want to underestimate Infiltrator and Moobs, highest performing players, I'll say, for their team. I'm wondering if that's the idea here, which is why Moobs is playing this way.
Oh, no, Moobs, the timing, I cannot believe that. They look away at just the last moment, and now they're going to be even using the lockdown. Infiltrator, you go in one direction, you got to take your fight. Wildfire, pull out your weapon, for Christ's sake. Believe it to Rins, and they're going to pull through for Maryville in a 4K spectacular.
Wow. I mean, I said Moobs was playing interference, but when they were so deep courtyard control, you didn't know if they were going to come garage, you didn't know if they were going to come through CT. And they finally get the C retake that I was hoping to see off of the lockdown. Runs 4K. Helps with that for sure. And Infiltrator, I mean, this was a smart decision, but I'm also curious because you didn't have a gate crash. You were going to get detained if Renz didn't take the fight and win it. So definitely felt like he was out of options because they hinged on Moobs, I think, taking the Killjoy out minimum.
Yeah.
All this to say, we're still keeping things 5-5. So, you know, maybe discrediting what I said about needing another timeout there. They put up a plan. They did what I asked for, playing retake at least on one of these sites. And now it's back to default, it's back to business. You don't have to worry about that ult for the time being. We'll see how things fare as a result.
Well, it's looking like it's faring for both sides so far, just really trying to figure out how they want to approach and take these battles.
Who's next?
Chloric's up close. Infiltrator is going to step inside of another dimension, clear through everything as quick as they can. Chloric seen. 2 over on the high ground as well. Renz spotted, noted. Rip out from the cone. Chloric that's demonic. My dude, that is disgusting, my friend. But Ali still gets that. They still get the double tap. They still get their shield online. And they can still win this 3v2.
Oh, the reload, the forward challenge. It's like Icebox. They always wanted to fight forward, and we're always getting challenged. Shield destroyed through the wallbang. Wildfire still double dipping. I mean,
this flank.
Oh, yeah, that's what this distraction is for.
Yeah.
He's literally playing mind games, setting the seeds of doubt so you don't expect odds behind you, but Nas does, and it doesn't matter.
All right. Make that the 1v1. Ali needs an ace. It's now or never, do or die for this duelist to put Winthrop back in the lead. Anj steps on that prospect. Maryville University ekes through with the win.
That's gotta hurt. I mean, after a round where like your kill con was at the apex, you lose the fight to Renz, and you almost pull out an ace clutch of, again, playing that duelist kit very, very well, pivoting you to all these distractions, even the flank of Anj, calling the bluff on the spike tap as well, and getting them down to 30 HP. But Anj, closer for the squad, impactful kills always found. And now, I mean, 6 rounds on your defense, that's pretty good. And they're going to be looking for their 7th here. I mean, weapons not too terrible. Light shield, a guardian as well for infiltrator. And pop play, keep the pace up. Let's go. Run B.
Just run it down.
There's 3 here.
Wow, that relay bolt's crazy too. And again, you're thinking about the moments where Ali's not able to get the value they want from this double tap shield. Renz has also been brought to death's door, but they're still alive. Even just going ahead to expend the overdrive to see if maybe someone was a little closer than they should have been. Spotted out by the Recon Dart, Giza, and now Renz are both low on their HP, but they're still alive, and that's so vital.
And I love how, again, as soon as the Renz overdrive comes up, they halt, they wait, they hunker down until that timer is gone. It's like the radiation fallout in your shelter. Once it's good, you're good to go. And now that's when they re-accelerate, but Renz never left. I mean, yes, ping down, but damage has been done.
And that's okay. All right, kill contract. Ali. Oh my goodness.
Not again.
Anj is just beating them down. Ali. It just doesn't work for them. They won 1 time in there, but in the 3 that they've used, they've lost twice now in there. And so Infiltrator is looking for any possible way for this 1v5 to be won. There is no saving. There is nothing to be done. It's the final round of the half.
And can't even pick up the gun upgrade because they want the surprise factor. They know that's all they have in this possible 1v5, but the cancel, the Hunter Fury, the player touched the logs. There was nothing that Infiltrator could do. Maryville up 7-5 at the half again. These defensive prowess on attack side and maps out of Maryville need to be studied.
They do. They absolutely do. It's not over yet, though, Zobi. Winthrop still has a hope. They still have a chance to get back into this Haven map.
Good.
Exactly. Pistol, anti-eco, boom, we're tied. So it's not the end of the world, but it is topsy-turvy.
Oh, for sure. And we've seen the best of all these players on the Winthrop side as well, and it feels like we're starting to get that creeping up on this map in particular, right? The almost ace clutch, Infiltrator, a lot of opening kills are being found. Moves some nice lurks, actually, to set up the impact, but this is where this composition thrives. Aggression, the double duelist, and courtyard. Match made in heaven. Let's see if it works.
Ooh, that's smart, though, from Giza to use the turret to figure out where they're coming from and how many players could be in mid. That's enough to just go ahead and have Winthrop lean some of their players back over onto this A site, but not too far away that they can't get back to B at a moment's notice if they need to. And again, we're talking about the power of the Yoru on this map. That gate crash is set for A. We have Infiltrator go all the way to C. Anything happening? Well, they would have been back there.
This is giving Fracture. Cloric sending the drone instead of the Tejo stealth drone through Garage to sell a C-fake when we're not even creeping up silently towards the opposite side after waiting for all that aggression. And it works like a charm this round. No util, no bloodshed. You get an A-side plant for free and play a full 5-on-5 retake.
Yeah, and Wildfire being alive too is so pivotal with that Aftershock in their favor. Rin's not even go for the peak yet. On top of that, they're waiting because they've been seen. Meanwhile, Flare is going crazy off the back of that classic, and it's all down to poor Wildfire at that 13 HP we talked about here. Not gonna happen. Not today. Not now. Winthrop University, for the first time since Lotus, gets pistol round.
Yeah, that's crazy, number one to think about. But number two, again, the dichotomy between Winthrop being so confident, so self-assured in retakes versus Maryville, it's like pulling teeth to get them to play a retake. Like, you've had the Killjoy lockdown for 5 rounds, play a retake kind of vibe.
Yep.
And I think that's, again, the difference in the comps, at least for this map, like difference in the mentality. And I mean, I said that you got a free site without much bloodshed, and then suddenly it's a massacre. When, again, that's when Winthrop thrives, when they can manage their own coordination without disruption. So I'm looking towards maybe some Giza lurks or something to play disruption later on. That could be a win factor, but for now, brush it off, maybe carry 1 hero stinger into the round, see what you can do with a C split.
And I'm glad that Maryville isn't over-committing.
Yeah, it's close.
Yeah, with that, with this, you just leave Rins to do what they do best and run it down as quick as they can. It's a very good opportunity for that. Oh, just don't get caught inside of the trip. My goodness gracious. But they're still taking a heck of a lot of damage through that, and even seen now, poor Ange, caught inside of the tripwire. They do get saved, they do get taken out of it, but now you're looking at the rest of the unit using these classics. Only so much that can be done. Cloric's going to show how much can be done. You get 2, you take down 2. Ollie's going to show up with 3, and Winthrop University shows up with a tied map of Haven.
I mean, credit to Ollie that he had 3 kill contracts at all in the first half. That's a pretty penny.
That is.
And now you're also supercharging them really early on, eating up those eco rounds this half as well. I mean, you're the kill leader right now in the lobby, and you've just tied things up 7-7. But this is where things matter. You mentioned they didn't over-invest as well on their buy in the second round. I maybe would have been okay with it on the Winthrop side, because then you can maybe get this third round through, but it's also a risk you don't need to take when it's series, it's championship Sunday points. So I understand it at the same time. So we'll see what they can do. The lesser arsenal. Looks like surprise element gone. Thoroughness from Cloric's utility. To credit to that. And when Maryville's so cautious on ecos, on bonuses, they wait for any antics, especially from a competition like this, and then they collect intel, and then they make a strategy. Their late and mid rounds are insane.
They really are. It cannot be understated how well this team plays when under the pressure of that clock. It feels like it just activates something inside of them. And even with this out drone, it's not going to go far enough to clear out the players that were going up A main. And Nasi's going to try and poke forward a little further, but with the information gathered, right, a couple of shots taken towards them, it's enough for them to just back off and play for that safe angle. Infiltrator could even go, yeah, pop flash, quick away. Rins is playing with the timing on that. They're so blind, though. They still get the frag, and that's all that matters, even inside of their own relay bolt.
But that's the thing, when Infiltrator falls, Ollie takes up the mantle now. Back to back with Nazi here to try and fight for this control. And now with the side smoke in play, you didn't expect the third, but Giza ahead on a swivel. 180 takes both out and sets now. Maryville back up for success. Flare moves left as the B team rolling up for the retake.
It's a ghost and a sheriff, right? We know what Flare moves are both capable of, but when you've been seen inside of that smoke with the alarm bot, my God, the second you take a step out of that smoke, you've been sent to the ethers. Maryville University, it's back in the lead for them.
And what a round for Giza to show some impact with just a few key kills. I was saying, hey, I want you to be a lurk player. I want you to play interference in the late round, but they were kind of that calling card like, hey, when these early players fall, I'll be the one to open up the site to terraform things, set up my alarm bot, set up my turret for the post. And it shows how, again, it's a different flavor of Sentinel, but one that's just as successful in the grand scheme of Haven and of this map for this squad.
All right, Maryville University back in the lead, but as always, who knows what can happen on this map. And we're getting that rare C long fight. The trip has been taken care of with a shock dart. Look all around. Where is Moves? He's in the corner holding that close angle, but Cloric has an immediate trade, the perfect flashbang to go along with it too. He tries to go a little bit further, but it sacrifices their own life. Thankfully, things are still evened out. It's back and forth. It's Nasi and a 3K, but it's on the shoulders of Giza. The spike is planted. It's down to the 1v2.
The drone from Nazi that late into the round as well. So impactful. And again, you can bait out a player. You can take the 1v1 just to get information. Now, Giza's Cubby.
Oh my God.
Nazi, where were you?
No way! It shouldn't have been possible. Giza should have lost their life the second they peeked out of Cubby.
Replay?
I need a replay, like stat, right now.
Do we have a Giza PV replay, I should say? I mean, they're the one in the 1v2 clutch. and they're able to come away criminally. I just need to watch. Sorry,
They
sorry,
had-
I'm not
they were
casting anymore. I'm a spectator.
They were using the shot. They were using the recon bolt.
Like, in that sort of situation, just body up, just tough it out. Your spike is what draws Geese out. He doesn't have any post utility left, but it doesn't matter. That might just be the round that breaks the camel's back. We've exited the purgatory cycle. We've broken the economy of Winthrop. It's no back and forth anymore. It's Maryville on the precipice of double digits first, and a surprise could be the only thing
No
that's
way.
those things. But Infiltrator.
That kind of just play through into that no utility. You're just banking on one player being there, but instead you see the entire Maryville squad. Spike is going to be planted with no resistance from Winthrop University whatsoever. Meanwhile, the leaderboard is being occupied entirely by Maryville. Oh my gosh, it's just one after another.
You know they're confident when on Nico, they're still planting B. Like, that's where those weapons could thrive, but they were like, we did enough damage. We took out the big name brand threats over towards Courtyard, and now we can, you know, capitalize on the B side. So all of that to say, I said it, that was going to be the round that things shifted. And this is where if I was Winthrop, I would probably be taking a timeout if I was a coach for them. Look, last buy situation, you're bringing an operator online for the first time, and you have 4 ultimates. If you mess this up, you're not seeing Split, probably not seeing the CVAL 2025 trophy, and you are probably not seeing that double in the prize of the scholarship.
Backs against the wall.
Yeah. Oh, and they're playing like it. Infiltrator first blood.
There we go.
Off of the operator, the gate crash out to safety, so there's no trade.
All right, Maryville University. What are you going to do now that you've lost Ange? They've been a powerhouse omen for this squad. You don't have smokes to be able to cover to get on the site to stop this operator from going ham. And already things are going to go in through it, right? One tripwire is taken care of, the other one eliminated as well. Rins flying through the other side, suppressed now by the uppercut. In goes Ali, but out they go on top of that. A Hunter's Fury from Nasi. It's going to seal the deal onto Wildfire, and Cloric and Rins are going to have to try and pick up the pieces. But when you go into a high-low swing into an Infiltrator operator, you better be counting your prayers. Unfortunately for them, it's only Infiltrator answering on the other side. Maryville University. What do you do if you're Cloric? You may have the Hunter's Fury, but you don't have a recon bolt. You're too close to do anything here. You just try and go for the swing and try and pray for whatever you can.
And Nazi learns his lesson. The team learns a lesson. They're like, we're not pulling any utility out in a 1vx clutch situation. They, again, play off the timer, play off the dark cover, and they are good. I said they needed to play that round carefully, and carefully they did. Keeping the weapons up, you know, not dipping into the ult reserves either. And that was really nice coordination off of what their win condition is, which is playing these coordinated retakes as a unit. And that's where Maryville just broke down. They relied on the heroics, they relied on the individuality of players like Renz, who was supposed to swing out, win their ones, and keep control of that site long enough so the off-site post-plant players could do their job. And that's where that kind of fixated reliance doesn't work against a team like this. So again, keeps them in it, keeps things close. You still aren't out of the water just yet. It's another buy from Maryville, another direct A challenge, and another first blood.
And somehow Rins takes 38, they're hanging on by 30 HP with Infiltrator getting another pick. But Nazi wasn't even caught inside of the showstopper. Infiltrator, this operator, unbelievable!
I have one comment. MCE timeout.
MCE
Anyways, this is, yeah, I think this is the time for it. Maybe it's too early. I might be getting ahead of myself, but it just feels like the momentum. You feel the winds coming in from the east to the west towards Winthrop's favor. I mean, this is the kind of, you know, confidence that they thrive off of and could send us over to Split. But again, half-buy situation. MC doesn't have a word to say just yet, even with ults on the table. Maybe they're hoping to hold on to those for the time being. Haven't lost the lead just yet, but...
Yeah, no, I'm sure that if this round isn't won, MCE is going to swoop in real fast with that
timeout. Man, it would have been so cool if he did take the timeout immediately.
Yeah, right. Would have been cool. But man, so much has been seen there. Moves going to back away from the spam inside of it and rely on the kill contract. Infiltrator seeing everything, just gathering information. No way do you come out of your own dimensional drift with a shorty. Gate crash to safety. It took so much for Maryville to get here. The lockdown is going to help them get that spike planted.
But that's it. When you're going to set up your own who doesn't have post-plant utility on site, you're using the Hunter's Fury that early? I mean, okay, if Giza can get contact like that through Garage, sure, it was a distraction play for the eager setup, but it's not done just yet. The backstab from Lolly, almost there, but that's been his story. Almost there, but never clutching out these rounds, and Maryville will get their 11th.
Maryville on the 11th round. 2 more to go.
Wow.
And
That's
you
trust in them.
Yeah.
To know what to do with that half bite, to know what to do with those ultimates. Okay.
And this is look at this buy for Winthrop. If this round is not won,
Flair's
what
the
do
only
you
one
do?
that can buy.
What do you do if you do not win this round? When Maryville is on championship point.
You hope for some sheriffs, some Bucky, some stinger shots. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there because it's Renz in the overdrive. Heating up here, overcharging the A side. And I mean, Nazi, I would get out of the way. Why are you still on site, buddy?
They're surviving somehow. Renz is just pressing W key at this point and getting away with it.
I mean, that's Neon for you, nerfed or not.
Spike planted.
And now, I mean, how do you retake A with an operator in Infiltrator's hands? One way is to finally cool Renz off. Moobs being the one to be accredited to that, but still, you need a gun for Infiltrator here, which means Flare and Moobs have to open that up. And this is where we've seen Maryville, this exact situation on other maps. Flush utility, layering it.
All right, how much more layering can they go? Up comes the smoke, out goes the shorty. Infiltrator's not done yet. They are now, though. Chlor's gonna put that out to pasture. And Giza is going to send Maryville University map championship point.
Got nervous there for a second. It looked like that A retake was shifting in the favor of that disadvantaged retake on Winthrop's side, but a well-placed recon bolt out of Chloric, and all of that is, you know, shot to smithereens. So Maryville map series championship point here. The clean sweep of the Riot Collegiate LAN here at NC State. And we talked about it, that buy is in shambles. Only one full shield, and it's because of a stinger buy. Everything has gone wrong.
Winthrop University. This was the worst case scenario that you didn't want to find yourself in. But look at Maryville University. They feel the pressure, and they know that they need to take their time. They need to be patient. They need to play for some of this different pacing that Winthrop likes to go for. They need to be so judicious in these corners, and especially with the map control that they could gain from this tepid approach towards getting on the sites themselves. Neither team has seen each other yet, but now we're down to the minute. Maryville University finally looking like they have decided where they want to go. Rin set up for the overdrive to get inside moves. There we go. All right, first blood for them. Winthrop University grabs something, and that's a hope for them to be able to go even further beyond that. The recon bolt seen from there, holding it close. Nasi has that right angle, but now they need to back off. That uppercut vulnerable is going to do a lot of damage. And Winthrop University, they're not done yet.
The bait and switch, keeping players safe like Flare. Backside just long enough for Nazi to capitalize, to set the trap. Well, you mentioned it's not done yet. It's Giza, it's Hans. These are your two clutch players for the side of Maryville. But they are surrounded, Serpentine style, slowly closing in on their prey.
Yeah. You look up towards heaven, right? Infiltrator, you cannot let Anj get away with this. It's just enough scene. The wallbang kill. Now only 3 players left for Winthrop. Over on the other side, moves Giza!
No way.
The 1v1 Ollie. If there was ever a moment you need to clutch it, it is here. It is now. Giza has just seen. Finals proof of what this team is capable of, what they can do, where they can go.
And the full circle moment of a super team's birth, growth, and maturity. They got slammed 0-3 at an NECC Grand Finals in the fall to now win out this one up against Winthrop at the end of the academic season.
this has to be a landmark moment for this program too, right? You not only won League of Legends, but now you have won Valorant. Both of the Riot trophies are in your possession. Both teams showing up in force to dominate this weekend.
And what a amazing send-off for your coach as well. MCE being promoted after this, you know, probably shipped off over to Pacific for being an assistant coach for global esports. I mean, it was kind of a final ride in that aspect, and I'm sorry, every single preparation point, from tracking where the gate crash was going to feeling how they could deal with Infiltrator, felt like that comes from thorough support, thorough review, and thorough preparation from an analyst, from a coach. And I think that's where I may have seen that difference come in to play. Maybe they weren't out aiming at times, but they were out playing every step of the way.
Every step of the way. We got to give it to Giza, though, right? So many of these rounds, so many of these moments. You had 3 players breathing down your neck. You had so much going on there, and you didn't lose sight of that victory. A story that I'm sure will be told through time, and we've hyped up Giza so many moments before in so many different avenues across different collegiate conferences. We've seen what they were able to do on St. Clair. Now we're seeing what they're doing here on Maryville.
I mean, I think we kind of started drawing down this chapter for Maryville very well, and honestly, it feels like both a birth and a new beginning at the same time, because honestly, I could see this being a new Collegiate Kings kind of moment.
Yeah.
Again, we kind of hang challengers over the head of Maryville, but they've proven they deserve that spot, honestly. And it's hard when Premier is best of ones. I mean, they literally beat Burger Boys, 2-0 in Red Bull home ground, right? They have shown that they can beat the best. They deserve to play among the best. And that's really all there is to say, that they are the best collegiate team in North America right now.
The best collegiate team in North America needs to lift a trophy. So we're going to throw things over to Necra.
Thank you so much, Santox and Zobi. Give it up one more time for your collegiate champions. What does it feel like to get this win?
It feels amazing. We went 4 for 4 out of lands this year, so we're excited to end on a win and not a loss. We can actually complete the full sweep of the lands this year. So yeah, amazing.
What do you feel like gives your team the edge when it comes down to playing on LAN?
Just the mechanics and just the friendship and the vibes.
The friendship and vibes must be so high, and especially coming together as a team for this kind of big Avengers squad, I feel like, is what people have been calling you. So how has it been building that rapport with each other?
At the start, we had a rough patch with each other, but we started talking through everything, and the friendship has just grown, and we've gotten better and better as a team. So I think it's a pivotal part in our success. So it's good.
Awesome. Can't wait to see where you all go. Please go ahead and lift up your trophy and celebrate.
Get it going.
Before we get to the individual trophy list, we also have one more matter to handle, and that's to give away the MVP. Yeah, let's chant it out. MVP, MVP, MVP. Congratulations, Ange. Do you feel like you deserve this MVP win?
I do. I think my first map was poor, but after every map, I play pretty well. I won't lie.
How do you feel like your growth has been over the last year with this team?
I feel like I've been playing pretty well with this team. It's been fun. I got a bunch of big wins together. It's been fun playing with them.
So what's next for you in the squad?
Make challengers.
After this win, are you feeling pretty confident you can do that?
I just got to make it through the best of ones, but I'm confident. I'm confident.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Congratulations, and congratulations to Maryville. Give it up one more time for your collegiate Valorant champions. Thank you all so much for tuning in and for cheering on these amazing players as they battled it out through the grand finals today. We're going to go ahead and let them all celebrate with their individual trophy lifts, and we're going to kick it back to our casters to close out our show.
You've seen both of these teams play across all of the different collegiate conferences, but to get to this moment, to see the emotions on their face, the lifting that trophy from rocky starts to the super finish that they've gotten to here, it's just a poetic moment, I think, for Maryville.
And we've celebrated the players, and I think it's time to pat ourselves on the back as well, because we've been in this space for a long time. So being here to cover this action with you has been an absolute pleasure. And we actually got to see some of those storylines unfold. Like, we've seen Giza when he was on SCC. We saw him here today where he put up an MVP level performance like that of Anj as well, who has also been insane at those previous LAN successes. And again, this experience is built, mounted, and gotten to this point today.
Yeah, and Anj was talking about what's next for the team, where they want to go. They said VCL. I have no doubts in my mind.
I mean, they just played premier matches yesterday. They won one and then FF the second so that they could be locked in and well rested for the matchup today. So they are confident that they can win those matches later in VCL and still get over that bar to either be #1 seed, auto qualification for the following stage, or even play in that promotion relegation tournament, because they already missed out on stage 3. They are playing for next year, already looking forward to the following season after Ascension.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations to Maryville yet again. I believe we are going to throw things over to our desk. Boom, look at that. For Infernosis and Jackson 5K to say their words.
And we could not possibly ask for a single better final ever here. We had a great one last year from Texas A&M against UST, and they came up with that dub. And this time we had what we thought maybe could be the matching scenario to see Winthrop take a crown over Maryville, but instead we see the doubleheader with Maryville now taking both trophies this weekend.
Yeah, incredible show out from both organizations, but Maryville ultimately coming out on top, taking home both trophies this weekend. It was an absolute pleasure to cover this with you, Scott.
We had a great one last year. We felt we did a great job, and I felt like it only gets better every year, and so we're hoping to see that continue for the rise here throughout these weekend, these championship series. But with that being said, that is it from us. My name is Infernosis, been joined here by Jackson. If you were tuning in on the VALORANT Americas channel, make sure to continue to stay tuning in for the VALORANT North America Game Changers. That's at 5 p.m. EST, followed up at 2 p.m. PST. If you're that witness, that best of 5 rematch between World Champion Shopify Rebellion Gold versus the kickoff winners of whatnot. Stay tuned for that. You won't want to miss it. We see you there.
Breaking them. Focusing.
One enemy remaining.
It's you and me. I go to spike.
30 seconds left. One enemy remaining.
That's 3. Initiated.
One enemy remaining. Last player standing.
Off your feet!
Go, go, go.
One enemy remaining. Spike down A.
Why destroy? No distraction.
You should run.
I'm back.
Spike planted.
Nowhere to run!
One enemy remaining. Last player standing. Last player standing.